What's up, y'all? What's up? What's up? It's coming. Turn the volume down just a little here. Oh, what up, gun? Organic coffee? Ew. Ew. I'm a coffee brat there, gun. Spoiled with my my fancy schmancy Italian coffee. Oh, the ad was showing it. I wasn't even looking. It wasn't my ad. That was GGG's ad. Sadly, I am restreaming their ad. The advertisers are getting the double dip on all the restreamers out there. Get a juice ad while I have a PoE ad? Man, that would be some rough shit, huh? Man, I am stoked for this, y'all. I am super stoked. I got it streaming on both YouTube channels and Twitch. There is a Twitch drop, though. So anyone watching on YouTube, you know, I hate to get you guys to leave YouTube, but anyone watching on YouTube, you can get the ugliest cosmetic ever known in any video game for free today by watching over on Twitch. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with that cosmetic. That is the stupidest looking shit ever. What's up, Andrew? How you doing? It's ugly, ugly, Flanagan. There will literally, the only people that will be using that cosmetic are people that are trying to troll other people. It is that bad. It's too big, like, bloody looking hands that are enormous, like twice the size of the character, coming off of the back as wings. Like, imagine you had two giant hands growing out of your buttocks. That's what you got. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, unless it's a troll, I mean, maybe they were thinking, this is the trollest looking shit ever. Let's do it. You never know. So we're supposed to get PoE 2 info, but additionally, we're supposed to get info on the next PoE league as well, aren't we? What's up, Tox? How you doing? Pretty sure we're supposed to get info on the next PoE league also. This is going to be a big old info-packed live stream, that's for sure. I'm doing good, man. Doing good. I get way too nerded out by this shit, man. I literally am sitting here with like goosebumps on. Way too nerdy. In-gamer riot? Oh, yeah. I think I might do the unthinkable for the current league, gun, and instead of playing that trickster as a spinny boy, going with power siphon. Oh, it was even more than that, Andrew, but yeah, it's very, very anticipated. Well, I mean, we were joking about it in the Discord earlier. If you look, there's like over, including all the co-streamers like myself, there's over 100,000 people watching the countdown timer for the PoE 2 live stream. Meanwhile, there's a Diablo 4 campfire chat going with all the developers. It's got like 4,000 viewers. Like the actual stream versus a countdown timer, and the PoE 2 countdown timer is 25 times more than Diablo. I mean, it's a very, very anticipated game launch. There's no doubt. Sorry if I'm confusing you all by my chat. I've got 2 YouTube channel chats and Twitch chat going all at the same time. I mean, I'm hyped. I cannot wait. The early access supporter packs are supposed to be available today too. That will give you cosmetics or whatever for Path of Exile, and then we'll also give you... Oh, you got a Trickster build? Nice. I'll check it out after the stream. I definitely want to... I just... You know what? I love RF. I have so much fun with RF. And every season, I'm like, God, man, I wish I would have just started RF. And then every single season that I do start RF, I say, man, I wish I would have started something stronger. You know, it's a vicious, vicious cycle. Like, you got the ultimate quality of life of the RF League starter. Super smooth sailing, capped resists, no problem. Tox, thank you so much, man. I do appreciate it a ton. Shit, I didn't have my Twitch alerts turned on. What the hell? Or that one didn't pop up or something. Thank you an absolute ton there, man. You have no idea. You have no idea.
Sir,
here we go.
Facing here.
A relic of the old world. Ready your men, Captain. We will only get one chance. And remember, when you hear the whispers, call for help. Do not attack.
Oh, goddamn ad.
What do you think he was on about?
It's Dorman, right?
That is so wrong.
Then Dorman. Shut your damn mouth. Ugh, why do I always get stuck with these rookies?
Hey, the kid's got a mean cleave. Give him a
Get rid of
chance.
this ad with the low, low price of $10 a month through Twitch Turbo. Oh, shit!
Sullen!
A mean cleave, eh, Captain? Rookie can't even lift his own sword. Captain Oren? Captain? It's here. Rain! Send the signal!
What the fuck?
Rain! On my back will be blade up!
Come on, come on! I'm ready! I'm ready! It's a man!
No, it's not.
Angry.
Run!
Oof.
Captain! Captain! Captain!
Ooh.
Stop! Humanity isn't ready.
On your feet, lad.
Sir, the captain,
You'll be fine. Here.
What is this?
Well.
Get the body.
Stop. Mortal. It can still be contained. You don't know what you have unleashed.
Your kind no longer control this world. We cannot destroy your body, it's true.
Yeah,
But you
Oxbow.
will watch as we destroy everything you have built. Bind him! Feed. Grow, my child. I'll make sure you can eat your fill.
Oh, damn. Not the tentacles. Oh my god, that is the best looking animated logo ever.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers, Game Director on Path of Exile 2. Now, Path of Exile 2 is going into early access in around 2 weeks on December the 6th.
Hell yeah.
Even though it's early access, this isn't just some small taste. The game is huge. And this live
Oh shit, what happened?
Existence is a thing
Yeah, everyone that's tagged Path of Exile 2 has it drops on automatically.
permanent. Life and death are mortal enemies, and yet bound to one another.
Gotta get your big ugly hands there, gun.
The continuation of life must be protected at all costs. Some have said my methods are brutal.
Oh shit.
This, I say, there can be no salvation without sacrifice.
Yeah, boy. Why is there no spinning? Must have spinning. Fancy looking skill trees. Trying to give you nightmares? I think
We
that
are
would be
faced with
the goal,
end,
right?
And I will do what I must.
Serious boss fights, man.
Those who obsess with death, let them soon be acquainted with it.
Oh god, it's the hands.
Now, as you just saw, Even in early access, Path of Exile 2 is a big game. It's actually been 5 years since we announced PoE 2, and over that time we've revealed a lot, but it's been in bits and pieces. It's pretty hard to keep track of it all, so today we're going to do a full rundown of all the content that will be available at the start of early access. Classes, character progression systems, and for the first time, a full overview of the Endgame. This is going to be a big one, so get comfortable.
Yeah.
For 20 years, Rayclast has been free from any sources of corruption, but the Count of Ogham, tempted by promises of power, intends to harness it once more. The dead are rising, monsters are mutating, and madness is spreading. Under the dark influence of corruption, the Count doles out sentences of death to any who would question him.
Twitch ain't messing around with the ads today, Jesus.
And this is where you find yourself at the start of PoE 2. Explore the dark forests of Ogham. Traverse the barren plains
Oh, really?
of the
Buffering?
Mysteri Desert. And delve into the jungle ruins of Exile, an ancient Vaal city. There are
Are they breaking Twitch?
challenging monsters, hidden runes, lost camps and treasures, roaming merchants, and of course, unique
That's
weapons.
their end.
No two areas are the same. It falls to you to track down the seed of corruption, the source of all this devastation. On the way, you'll face fearsome monsters, meet
Their
strange
video
characters,
isn't playing
forge
properly.
unlikely bonds, and uncover lost civilizations. But first, you'll need to pick a class. Now, early access will initially have 6 classes available. Let's have a look at them. The Monk is a fast and furious melee fighter.
Oh, come
He dashes
on,
in and out
really?
of combat and his mechanics involve building up and keeping momentum. Like all classes in PoE 2, you'll want to use a wide variety of skills to mix and match
You can
different
tell
combos.
it's a problem with their video because the audio is not
To
interrupting.
get new skills, you will first need to find skill gems. Using a skill gem will open the gem cutting menu, which shows all the active skills available in PoE 2. You can choose an existing.
Yeah, there we go. I was gonna say. You could tell they were having a problem with the video running. The video was too high of a bit rate or whatever. They probably did it in 4K, a 4K video, and tried to stream it to Twitch, which is just, Twitch can't handle that. But you could tell that was the problem because the audio wasn't having issues, only the video. They'll get it dialed in here, though. I tell you, the intro trailer looked badass so far. I'm super stoked. Yeah, it does look, it looks, I mean, it's going to be good. It's close, too. I mean, what, 2 weeks? The new OMD game is not fully out yet. It's a little too soon to tell. It's a roguelite. I've got mixed emotions on that aspect of it. Like, I personally am a big fan of OMD 2. I don't like a lot of the character choices. I've actually gotten a lot of feedback in YouTube comments about the character choices. Everyone is saying it looks like they went woke, which, I mean, I personally, I don't even want to get into that conversation, but I didn't really have a problem with the characters, I guess, but a lot of people seem to. I don't know. They keep going further and further away from OMD 2, and that's my only real complaint about Orcs Must Die currently.
Sir,
There we go.
What are we facing here?
Precious. Those who
Power.
Now they're
intends
trying to
harness-
find their spot.
There are 21 active skills for quarterstaves. so this just scratches the surface of the options that you have. By endgame, you'll be dashing from pack to pack, spewing where you find yourself at the start of PoE 2.
There we go. They backed it up good.
Explore the dark forests of Ogham, traverse the barren plains of the Vasteri Desert, and delve into the jungle ruins of Exile, an ancient Vaal city. There are challenging monsters, hidden runes, lost camps and treasures, roaming merchants, and of course, unique bosses. No two areas are the same. It falls to you to track down the seed of corruption, the source of all this devastation. On the way, you'll face fearsome monsters, meet strange characters, forge unlikely bonds, and uncover lost civilizations. But first, you'll need to pick a class.
Here we go.
Now, Early Access will initially have 6 classes available. Let's have a look at them. The Monk is a fast and furious melee fighter. He dashes in and out of combat and has mechanics that involve building up and keeping momentum. Like all classes in PoE 2, you'll want to use a wide variety of skills to mix and match different combos. To get new skills, you will first need to find skill gems. Using a skill gem will open the gem cutting menu, which shows all the active skills available in PoE 2.
Gem
You
cutting.
can choose an existing skill to level up, or choose to engrave a new one. Since this is a level 7 skill gem, even if you pick a new skill, it will immediately be level 7. So there's no
Nice.
harm in trying out something new. The Monk primarily uses the quarterstaff. There are 3 schools of martial arts: lightning, ice, and wind. But don't think you have to stick to just one. The best combos are going to involve mixing elements of all 3. Let's try Killing Palm. Like many monk skills, this can be used to quickly take advantage of a specific situation. If there's an enemy on low life, you can use Killing Palm to dash to them and kill them instantly. This will provide a power charge. Then we can use a different skill to consume that power charge for a much more devastating attack.
Oh,
The
so
Monk
power
also has
charges are going to
powerful
work like combo
skills.
points.
Tempest Bell, for example, is a skill that places a giant resonating bell. Hitting the bell causes it to ring, dealing damage to all enemies around it. You can also do things like freeze or shock the bell, which will add elemental damage to the strikes. The Monk also has a variety of abilities to empower his staff. If an enemy is close to being stunned, you can use Staggering Palm to punch them down. After that, any attack you do will shoot out wind projectiles. There are 21 active skills for quarterstaves, so this just scratches the surface of the options that you have. By endgame, you'll be dashing from pack to pack, spewing projectiles and obliterating screens of enemies with huge combo attacks.
And
Now,
they're
if you like a
aggressive
style
on
of
the
melee
ads
that's a little
today.
slower but hits much harder, then the Warrior is for you. He pounds the ground with big chunky attacks and can shrug off the hits of small enemies with large amounts of armor. Even though the mace slams are slow, you never lose control. Longer attacks can be retargeted as you go, and if you find yourself committed to a long attack, you can dodge roll out of it at any time. Among the skill option for maces, you will find a variety of slams, fire attacks, war cries, and shield skills. Here, I'm going to slam the ground, rending it apart with lines of fire. Any slam skill will then cause these fissures to erupt with lava. I can even run through them with a skill like Stampede to do huge amounts of damage. The Warrior can also use war cries, which can empower your next skill. Seismic Cry, for example, will
Gifting
double any
subs
slams
to a
from the
game
next
developer.
attack.
That's so
The
fucking
Stampede counts
shameful.
as a slam, so I can double that for even more craziness. If you want to go a little faster and be a
Some
little more
people are
defensive,
just so
equip a
fucking
shield.
stupid.
In PoE 2, you can raise your shield at any time to block all damage from the front, even spells. While holding up your shield, your stun meter will build as you take damage, so be careful. If it reaches 100%, your stance will break and you will be vulnerable.
Yeah, it looks good so far.
Some
That's,
enemies also have unblockable attacks, which are indicated
it's early,
by this red flag.
early in the stream, but
If you see
looking
one of these
good.
coming, make sure to dodge out of the way. Using a shield also gives you access to shield skills, like Shield Charge, which allows you to charge towards enemies and stun them. While charging, you're also blocking the whole time, so you have full damage immunity from the front. The Warrior also has access to totems. Some totems have built-in abilities, like Shockwave Totem, which can be placed to stun nearby enemies and trigger aftershocks like those from the Earthquake.
That's a cool looking
But you can also get
shockwave.
Ancestral Warrior Totems, which allow you to use any slam skill in your repertoire. This is a meta skill, which means that it's a skill you can put other skills into. I can take a slam like Sunder and socket it into my Ancestral Warrior Totem. Now when I summon him, he'll sit there and slam the monsters from a distance.
Oh,
There are
damn.
20 active skills for maces, so there's a lot more to try out. But by endgame, you're going to be dropping hammers from the sky, leaping fearlessly into combat, and separating the very earth you stand on. Time for some ranged attacks. The ranger is primarily about the bow, but we wanted to make sure that she feels agile as well. In PoE 2, you can shoot while moving. Combined with all the skills the ranger has that allow you to jump around, you will have a lot of mobility in combat. Bow skills have a variety of lightning, poison, ice, and physical attacks. Lightning attacks bounce around between targets. You can also stick lightning arrows in the ground which explode when hit by the bouncers, or electrocute enemies to take them out of combat.
Well, I mean, there will be metas. Every game's
Ice
got
attacks allow you to
metas,
slow
right?
and freeze enemies to keep them away from you.
I mean, hopefully every class
Using
is viable
poison not
for
only
the
can you
majority
slowly
of
damage your
content,
enemies
but
from
there will
afar,
definitely be
but also
high-end
grow
metas.
some interesting plants. With 21 bow skills and all the mobility and combo tools the ranger has, you can take advantage of every situation. By endgame, you'll be creating hundreds of arrows, be they falling from the sky, bouncing around between enemies, or spraying out of tornadoes.
That looks beast.
You might have noticed in the bottom left of the screen that the flask slots look a little different. In PoE 2, you have one dedicated life flask slot and one mana flask slot. Flasks gain charges as you kill enemies, and typically allow you to heal 6 or 7 times if they're full. But that's not the only thing you can use charges for. Charms are a new item type that will automatically defend you from various debuffs or damage types. Having trouble with getting frozen? Equip a thawing charm. When it's fully charged, it will make you immune to freeze for 3 seconds if you get frozen. To recharge them, just kill more monsters. You can gain more slots for charms by upgrading your belt. The mercenary wields a crossbow that can be loaded with different ammo types, offering versatility, power,
The
and
mercenary
mobility.
looks super
All
cool.
classes in Path of Exile 2 can be controlled with WASD.
Oh,
which
it
makes
won't even
this
be a
class play
comparison
exactly
to
like a
Diablo
shooter.
4.
For the crossbow, you will find skills that work like
I
shotguns,
mean, that coming from a Diablo
sniper
fan,
rifles,
it's
assault
not going to
rifles,
be a comparison.
and even grenade launchers. But not only that, there are a wide variety of more interesting elemental ammos too. It's very fast to switch between ammo types, so long as you already have them loaded, which makes the mercenary able to combo abilities together for devastating
It's like
effect.
comparing checkers to chess, you know?
Use Glacial Bolt to create walls of ice to separate enemies, then switch to Fragmentation rounds to explode the ice, dealing massive AoE damage.
The mercenary
If
looks
I come
super
across an
cool.
armored enemy, I could use armor-piercing rounds to break their armor, and then high-velocity rounds to take them down. Or perhaps I could fire a gas grenade to poison enemies
Pardon me.
before detonating the cloud with an explosive shot for massive damage. If you want to call in some suppressing fire, you can summon artillery ballistas. These have a minimum range, so you'll want to prepare your position carefully before moving in.
I mean, I enjoy D4, but it's definitely
There
a
are
more
22
casual game.
active skills for crossbows. By endgame, you'll be calling destruction down from the sky as you litter the battlefield
Doesn't
with
have the
grenades and
depth.
pepper your enemies with your automatic shotgun. If you're looking to take a back seat and let your minions do the work, then the witch should be your choice. She can call forth hordes of undead monsters to fight for her, while casting powerful chaos spells that debilitate her enemies. Occult skills are some of the most varied in the game, with skeletons, noxious spells, specialty minions, curses, and sacrificial magic. Before we talk about minions, we'll have to talk about a new resource in Path of Exile 2 called Spirit. This is a spirit gem, which allows you to pick from a range of persistent skills. All classes have a variety of these skills which can add some very interesting effects, like Arctic Armor, which does cold damage to enemies that hit you, or Raging Spirits, which summon fiery skulls each time you cast a fire spell. For the Witch, though, we'll want to be using our spirit to create permanent minions. These minions will be revived automatically when they die, so you don't have to worry about resummoning them all the time. Here, I'm using the skill screen to allocate which minions I would like in my horde. You can see the spirit cost of each one.
Oh, that's cool.
Skeletal warriors are cheap, but weak, useful for tanking damage and distracting enemies. But I want more heavy hitters in my army, so I'm going to unsummon some warriors and instead add skeletal arsonists.
That's
Permanent
pretty
minions come with
sweet.
special active abilities called command skills. You can order these guys to detonate your own minions for even more damage and area of effect. If you want a bigger army, you'll need a scepter. This new weapon type is imbued with even more spirit, allowing you to summon even more friends.
Oh,
And if you want an even
friends.
bigger army than that, you can take advantage of corpses to summon true hordes of minions. But what can a witch do while her army is at work? Well, she has a range of chaos spells to spread disease amongst your enemies, or bone skills to impale them. Or, you know, you could curse them to make them weaker so your horde can take them down. There are 25 active occult skills. By the endgame, you'll be the leader of a fearsome army of the dead, consuming everything in its path. The sorceress bends the elements to her will, using them to unleash devastation on her foes. This classic spellcaster weaves a flurry of elemental magic from afar. The elemental skills have everything you might expect and more. Fireballs, icy explosions, lightning storms, you get the idea. Each spell is unique and has many different ways to build and combo with others, even between different elements. For example, Flame Wall conjures a burning line that not only damages enemies, but also empowers all projectiles that pass through it. If you place a wall and fire lightning sparks through it, they'll gain extra fire damage. It's a good idea to take advantage of the ability to automatically swap weapons when you use certain skills. Having a special staff with bonuses to fire skills
super
and
cool
another
too.
with bonuses to lightning skills
That's like
can really
next level
power up a
feature
combo
right
like
there.
this. The sorceress can also take advantage of powerful trigger gems. For example, you could grab the Cast and Ignite gem and use it with Firestorm. As you ignite enemies, a counter will go up in the top left corner. When it's full, a Firestorm will automatically be cast at the enemy that was ignited. There are 25 active elemental skills. By endgame, you'll be firing off projectiles left and right as you rain down elemental storms on your foes. Now, those are the characters that will be available at the start of early access, but we will be adding 6 more character classes with just as many skills and options as these. There's a lot more to come. There's one more important thing to mention about skills. Even though we talk about them as belong to each class, in reality there are no restrictions. You can use all these skills on any class so long as you have the attributes. For example,
That's so huge.
a poison ranger might want to try out using occult curses to
One of
increase
the
her
things
poison
that
damage.
separates
Or a
PoE
monk
from the
might want
rest
to
of
trigger
the
elemental
ARPG
ice
world.
walls to use with his glacial cascade combo. The possibilities for cross-class combos are practically unlimited. We're looking forward to what kind of things you guys might find. Now, Path
Yeah,
of
it's
Exile is a
sim-
game
it's like
known
now.
for build customization, and we haven't even scratched the
There-
surface of
the
what is
classes
possible
will
yet.
have benefits to using them.
So let's talk about support
It's like
gems.
now. I mean, you can put a Cyclone gem in
Path of
any
Exile 2
character.
has a system of support gems that can be combined with your active skills to dramatically change the way they work. If you find a support gem, then right-clicking it will open up this screen. Here you will find a variety of recommended support gems for each of your skills that you can pick between. For example, this is a multiple projectiles support gem and can be used to add multiple projectiles to any skill. Normally, when you fire a grenade, it'll look like this. But if we add multiple projectiles, then you get 3 of them.
Hell yeah.
Once you have the gem, you can also freely move it between any of the skills on your character. If you want to have a multi-shot sniper rifle instead, then simply move the gem over to your high-velocity round skill.
Wow.
Generally speaking, if it sounds like a support gem should work with a skill, then it will work. So it's a good idea to experiment. Note that you can only have one of each support gem on your character, so you'll want to think carefully about which supports can be used best with each skill for maximum damage. Now, if you want to stick to the recommendations, you should have a perfectly good time. But if you want to experiment a bit more, then
That's
uncheck
good that
that
it adds
recommended
those
button,
recommendations
and you can see
in.
the full list of
It'll
supports
take away
that will
some
work
of
with
the
your skill.
massive confusion
There are
that new
hundreds of
players
support
get with
gems to
PoE.
choose from, and even we don't know the results of all the possible ways these can interact. Each skill can have up to 5 supports socketed into it, and if you're clever, you can come up with some pretty interesting ideas. Now, all of this is just scratching the surface. You can make frost vortexes, break people's armor, make minions explode, make skills repeat, make enemies set each other on fire, cull enemies, or pin them to the ground. Supports let you drastically change the behavior of your skills and create your own unique build, or at least follow someone's OP build guide. So, speaking of builds, let's talk about one of the most iconic Path of Exile systems, the passive skill tree.
Skill
Yes,
tree's got
it's
fancy
huge.
lines in it
There
now.
are over 1,500 nodes on there. Now, a lot of people open the tree and can get a little intimidated at first, but try not to be scared. There are lots of options, but at its core, it's pretty simple. Each level you get 1 point to put into the tree. Each class starts at a different location, but they all share the same tree. Around your section of the tree, you'll find relevant bonuses for your character. You should be safe in the knowledge that there aren't many wrong choices here. Almost all the starting nodes will be useful for your character in some way. But if you do happen to make a choice you regret, you'll be able to respec any nodes you've taken by spending a little bit of gold.
Nice.
Now, the tree is generally divided up into clusters which have similar themes. In each cluster you will find small nodes that give simple bonuses like increased damage, but the real power comes from notables. Notables normally have much more interesting bonuses, and they tend to care a lot more about how your build works and what skills you're using. For example, in the mercenary area of the tree, this one gives a 25% chance for crossbow skills to not consume a bolt. And here's one that gives grenades a chance to blow up a second time. This one gives a chance for projectiles to rebound off terrain, as well as giving you some
Hell
pierce
yeah.
chance to make that more likely.
That's
Note that
awesome.
even though this is in the mercenary section, this would work with projectiles from all classes, so there are often reasons to go to different areas of the tree. In order to get between these clusters, you will generally have to allocate nodes in the attribute highways. Attribute nodes allow you to pick which attribute you would like to use.
Well, that's
so it's
new.
very easy to get points for any attribute that your gear might need. You can
That's
change
crazy
which attribute
good.
these nodes give you for half price at the respec vendor. In addition to notables, you will also find even larger passives called keystones. Keystones have both an upside and a downside, and often require changing your entire build to design around them. A great example is Giant's Blood, which allows you to wield two-hand weapons in a single hand, but doubles the attribute requirements of them. You can use a two-hand mace with a shield, or even dual wield them.
Oh, wow. Damn. That's
How
some
about
Dungeons
Mind
and
of the
Dragons
Matter,
shit
which
right
makes all
there.
damage go to your mana pool first before your life pool, but you lose 50% of your mana regen. Skills like these can be tough to build around, but if you're up for the challenge, they can be very rewarding. As we showed you earlier on
Hell
the
yeah,
Sorceress,
double
you can
two-handers.
swap between weapon sets on the fly as you use certain skills. One of the new features in Path of Exile 2's passive tree is that you can choose to have your passive tree change as you switch between weapon sets to take
This is
advantage of
huge
specific
too.
bonuses on the tree. For the Sorceress, you might want to change between fire and lightning specialization.
It's going to confuse the shit out of people, but
Or you could switch between
It'll be
one
really
hand and
good
a two-hand
once you-
setup
once we
in order to
understand
be
it.
able to block boss attacks while following up with heavy hits from your bigger mace. Or perhaps you could have a full curse setup on your witch to debuff enemies before switching to a chaos degen build for maximum damage.
that is so huge, man.
If you want to stick with just one weapon set, you can just use these specialization points as bonus points to invest however you like, but creative players will find plenty of opportunities with this system.
Huh. That's
You can get
interesting
weapon
too.
specialization points throughout the campaign from optional bosses and quests. For example, if I manage to defeat the Crowbell, I'll get a weapon specialization book. There are lots of other permanent boosts available from the campaign too. On the map you can see icons that indicate the many optional encounters you can find. Some of them have permanent character boosts, and others have powerful items. If you're having trouble getting past a boss, it might be a good idea to explore and see what you can find. For example, if you defeat Blackjaw the Remnant, you'll gain a permanent increase to fire resistance. One of the most important finds are spirit bonuses. You can find the first one here in the canopy in Act 1. Defeat the boss in this area to acquire a permanent addition of spirit. The permanent buffs you gain from spirit are very powerful, and every class will find a use for them. So make
Nice.
sure you hunt down these upgrades. There's one in each act. Now we haven't even talked about the most important element of character progression, items.
loot.
That's why we're all here, right? Items in Path of Exile can be broken down into 4 rarity groups: normal, magic, rare, and unique. One of the things you're going to want to do as you play through the campaign is upgrade the items you find, and you can do that with currency items. An Orb of Transmutation will allow you to upgrade a normal item to a magic item with 1 mod. You can then apply an Orb of Augmentation to add a second mod, then use a Regal Orb to add a third mod, and upgrade it to a rare. Finally, you can use some Exalted Orbs to add more mods to your rare to a total of 6 mods. One of the things we think is really
That was
important is
lucky
to make
rolls.
these options available to use as you play. All the items that add mods are much more common than they were in Path of Exile 1, so that you can use them throughout your campaign playthrough.
Nice.
We want you to find things on the ground that can be crafted into upgrades much more frequently. As well as making the drop rates on these items much more common, you can also get them by disenchanting unwanted gear at the magic item vendor. If you disenchant magic items, you can build up to an Orb of Transmutation, and by disenchanting rares, you can build up to Regal Orbs. Another important area of crafting items in PoE 2 is sockets. Some items you find will have sockets that can have Ezomite runes placed in them that add more mods to the item. If I insert this glacial rune into my helmet, it will give extra cold resistance. This is a great way to solve problems that you have with your build, like resistances or damage. If you find socketed items that you don't have a use for, you can take them to the salvage bench in town to work towards an Artificer's Orb. This will allow you to add sockets to your existing items.
Nice, nice.
Body armors and two-hand weapons can have up to 2 sockets, while the rest of your armor and one-hand weapons can only have 1 socket. You can also salvage items with quality to create items like armor scraps or whetstones. These will allow you to increase the quality of your items for an up to 20% boost. If you don't want to disenchant or salvage your items, you can always sell them for gold. Gold can be used to buy items from vendors, and we've tried to do a lot to make sure that the items they have for sale are actually useful. Every time you level up, they get more stock, so make sure to check back often. Other vendors offer a gamble. Pay a flat amount of gold and you'll get a random item of a specific type.
Don't do it. Don't do
This
it.
could be a
It's
great
a
way to
trap.
improve your
No
gear,
gambling.
if you're lucky. Gold is also used to respec your passive skills. Take advantage of the system to experiment with your tree and rework it as required. The other thing you might want to use gold for is the currency exchange. This allows you to exchange currency items with other players on an open market, in exchange for a small gold fee. Now, all items in Path of Exile are freely tradable. We never bind anything to your character, except gold.
That's awesome.
Now, most gear in Path of Exile 2 is randomly generated, but there's another type that isn't: uniques. They are especially rare, each with a handcrafted set of unusual mods which can dramatically change a character's build. They're not just better rare items, they can do much stranger things that can fundamentally change your character. Corpse Wade will make any corpses you run through explode into clouds of poison. The Sands of Silk is a body armor that changes your dodge roll into a blink, morphing you into sand as you teleport past your foes.
Hell yeah.
And of course, some uniques are just pure hits of dopamine, like Quill Rain, which just turns your bow attacks into full auto by doubling your attack speed.
Well,
Each
it'll
unique
be
is something that you can build your character around.
less
We try to make
common
sure
than
that
they
most
are in
unique items have a
PoE
potential
now.
use at
I wouldn't
endgame,
compare it to
even
Diablo,
if you find them
really.
early on. And as you can see, every single unique item comes with custom art to match.
It'll
The
be
last
similar
character
to
progression system that you can do
PoE1,
during the
except
campaign is
a little bit
Ascension.
more rare and more targeted.
Starting in Act 2, you will come across Ascension trials, tests that you must complete to unlock your Ascension
Oh
class.
wow, right in Act 2.
We'll explain these trials soon, but first let's take a look at what Ascending can do for your character. Each class has access to 3 Ascendancy classes, but at the start of Early Access, only 2 per class
Well,
will be
I think
available.
it's not that you have to, it's
Ascendancy
that you
classes
get
are
to.
unique to each character class, so choose wisely. They can drastically
Where the problem
affect
is
how you
now, a
build
lot
your
of the
character.
uniques are just random drops.
As a sorceress, you could become a Stormweaver, a master of the elements. Tempest Caller causes elemental storms to be summoned each time you do a critical hit with a spell. With Strike Twice, you can stack 2 copies of Shock for more damage, and going deeper into the tree, you can make all your damage types apply Shock. Make a Shock build from any skill. Alternatively, you could become a Chronomancer and command time itself. She literally has the ability to stop time with Time Freeze. Not only that, but she has many other time manipulation
that's
abilities.
awesome.
Using Temporal Rift, she can teleport back to a previous location, resetting her life and mana back to what it was. Or with Time Snap, she can reset all her cooldowns and cast all her spells again.
Thanks, Lasty Puck.
On the Warrior, you can choose between the Warbringer or the
Freshly
Titan.
borrowed.
The Warbringer channels the might of his ancestors to gain tremendous power. Using Answered Call, you can summon ancestral spirits linked to each of your totems.
Yeah, for sure.
With Jade Heritage, you can encase your body in a protective layer that absorbs all damage until it breaks.
Hell you.
Warcaller's Bellow allows you to explode the corpses of your enemies. And with Great Wolf's Howl, you can ignore the cooldowns of your war cries. Let all that anger out. The Titan class is all about hitting big. With Earthbreaker, every slam is a chance to create an aftershock. With Crushing Impacts, every hit becomes a crushing blow, which will allow you to stun your enemies with ease. With Surprising Strength, you can take advantage of stunned enemies to deal 40% more damage. As a ranger, you might choose to be a Deadeye, an expert markswoman who can take down foes with style. With Endless Munitions, every attack gains an extra projectile.
That's awesome.
With Gathering Winds, she gains a small increase to movement speed with every attack. But be careful, she loses them when getting hit. With Eagle Eyes, she will never miss, allowing you to stop wasting all those passive points on accuracy. Alternatively, you could become a Pathfinder, the master of flasks and poison. She can choose from one of several throwable concoctions, allowing her to spend her flask charges to throw explosive bottles that deal various types of damage. A bleeding concoction will make your enemies bleed, while a fulminating one can shock your enemies, allowing you to do extra damage. Contagious contamination allows her to spread poisons between her foes, while overwhelming toxicity doubles the number of stacks they can be infected by. Running Assault allows her to move much more quickly while firing, while Relentless Pursuit makes her totally immune to being slowed by enemies. The Witch can ascend into the Infernalist or the Blood Mage. As an Infernalist, she can summon a loyal Hellhound companion. The Hellhound sets enemies on fire, as well as taking a percentage of the damage if the Infernalist gets hit. With Pyromantic Pact, you can turn your mana into Infernal Flame. As you cast more spells, the flame builds up, and if it overflows, you'll take damage. Using Bringer of Flame, you'll want to make sure you keep the flames topped up. While your Infernal Flame is above 30%, all damage from you and your minions will ignite enemies. She can
Goddamn
also
ads,
transform
man.
into a literal demon. While in demon form, she takes an increasing amount of damage, but her cast speed and damage increase rapidly as well. So if you're planning on transforming into a demon, make sure you stack a lot of life recovery.
Demon form sounds
She can also
awesome.
become a blood mage, a master of life and energy. All blood mages must pay the price of making skills cost life as well as mana, but in exchange, every monster they kill will drop life remnants, which allow them to quickly gain back that life. With Crimson Power, she can gain large amounts of extra life, and with Vitality Siphon, she can use her spells to leech life back as well. Once you've got a significant amount of life, you can use Gore Spike to make your critical hits deal incredible amounts of damage. A monk who is in tune with the elements might become an Invoker. With Elemental Expression, the Invoker will create waves of elemental power each time he does a critical strike. With Faith as a choice, you gain the ability to meditate, allowing you to double your energy shield. Choose between I am the Blizzard or I am the Thunder to specialize in cold or lightning. And I Shall Rage will allow you to turn into an unbound avatar. Each time you apply a status ailment to an enemy, you gain Unbound Fury. When you have enough, transform into an avatar to deal way more damage and inflict even more elemental ailments. Some monks choose to reach into the darkness instead. The Acolyte of Chayula can exchange their mastery of spirit for darkness, a resource that can be utilized to both absorb and deal damage. The Shroud of Darkness will protect you from all damage incoming, but if you take Grasp of the Void, you will deal extra chaos damage from all the darkness you have. Their Dark Pact offers greatly increased resistances to chaos damage and can allow their mana leech to not only happen instantly, but apply to their energy shield as well. Another node you can take is Waking Dream, which allows you to see into the domain of the Breach Demons. There you will see the Flames of Chayula that can be taken to gain life, mana, and damage. The Mercenary has a job to do, but which job suits you? You might
I'm
choose to become
pretty
a witch
stoked
hunter.
about the mercenary.
Obsessive Rituals will give you a sorcery ward, allowing you to defend yourself against elemental hits in exchange for less defense against attacks. With Zealous Inquisition, your enemies have a 10% chance to explode on death. The chance is doubled against demons and undead. With Judge, Jury, and Executioner, your initial hit against enemies can deal up to 30% of their life and damage, if you're lucky.
Wow.
This is great for hunting powerful bosses.
Big
And with
chonker.
Witchbane, you can break your enemy's concentration, preventing them from casting spells as often as they would usually do. You could also choose to become a Gemling Legionnaire, enhancing your abilities by embedding gems directly in your flesh. Integrated Efficiency will give you extra skill slots. Thermatological Infusion gives you extra maximum resistances as you sock up more and more support gems.
Wow.
Adaptive Capability allows you to use any color of gem without worrying about attributes, while Crystalline Potential adds extra quality bonuses to every gem socketed into your character.
That seems
So
really
those
strong.
are the Ascendancy classes for the start of early access. But one thing we haven't talked about yet is how you ascend in the first place. Ascension in Path of Exile 2 requires completion of one of the Great Trials, which you'll find as you progress through the campaign. Each one is associated with one of the major cultures of Rayclast. Located in the Vasteri Plains are the Maraketh, a culture of rich tales and brutal traditions, who must do whatever it takes to survive in the desert. The highest position in Maraketh culture is a Sekima, and it is not a title given freely. All aspirants must complete the Trial of the Sekimas, a grueling gauntlet that will test their strength, will, cunning, and patience. To enter, a warrior of the Maraketh must prove their worth by trapping the soul of a djinn in a coin, and you are no different. Once you have earned your coin, it may be placed on the relic altar to begin the trial. In the Trial of the Seconders, each room has its own challenges to overcome. In this room, each rare monster you kill will send its blood to the chalice in the center of the room. Once the chalice is filled, you will be able to proceed. While fighting monsters in the trial, you will need to be very careful. Each hit will not only hurt you, but will damage your honor. The monsters are well telegraphed, so that you can avoid their attacks, but if you run out of honor, you will fail the trial and need to find another coin in order to try again.
Oh wow.
It is a good idea to make sure that you are well prepared before challenging the Trial of the Seconders. After each room, you will be rewarded. In this case, you have been given a key that can be used to unlock chests later in the trial. Once you have claimed your reward, you will be shown a map of the rest of the floor and may choose how you wish to proceed. Which challenges would you like to face, and which rewards do you want to claim? Some rooms are more dangerous, afflicting you with debuffs that will persist for the entire trial. For example, entering this room will afflict you with Spiked Shell that will cause all monsters in the rest of the trial to have 50% increased life. You will want to take care if you choose such a path. There are many different challenges and rewards as you journey through the trial. Deadly traps, waves of monsters, and strange artifacts will test your honor. As you progress, you'll be able to gain boons from the Jinn, which will help you on your journey. For example, the Sekima's cloak will revive you once if you die, giving you a second shot at a run. One of the rewards you may find is Sacred Water, an extremely valuable and treasured resource to the Jinn and the Maraketh. Trading it with the Jinn will allow you to receive many benefits. You can recover honor, gain additional boons, or remove afflictions. At the end of the floor, you'll find a powerful boss which will truly test your limitations. In order to ascend, you will need to defeat him.
Well, it's like they took two features from PoE 1 and combined them.
Having defeated the boss, you've earned the right to ascend. But first, the loot.
They combined the
The keys you have
labyrinth
found
and
may be used to open the various treasures in the vault at the end of the floor. We only have a single bronze key, so we'll just have to open one of these small chests.
that's
If you
for
want to
sure,
open the better
Tiger.
ones, you'll need silver or gold keys. Let's use the Altar of Ascendancy. Your first ascension will allow you to pick your class and grant you 2 points to use in the tree. Now there are more floors and many more rewards that can be found within the Trial of the Seconders, but we'll save that for the section on the Endgame. For now, let's talk about
They
the second
literally took
ascendancy trial,
the
Trial
lab,
of Chaos.
the
In
labyrinth
Path of
and
Exile 2,
Sanctum
you
in
can choose whichever
PoE
trial
1
you
and
like to
combined
earn
them.
your ascension. Each culture on Rayclast had their own methods to ascend. If the Trial of the Seconders is not your kind of playstyle, or you're finding it too difficult, you could try another. You can gain all your ascension points from just one, or mix and match them. It's up to you. For
So
early
different ways
access,
to
we'll have
ascend.
2 trials as options, with a 3rd trial coming later for the full release. While exploring the Vaal jungle, you'll discover the Temple of Chaos. Before the Vaal embraced the science of corruption, their civilization worshipped chaos. This ancient trial was once used by the Vaal to test their high priests. A high priest of the Vaal must show willingness to risk everything to gain power. Entry to the trial requires a token from a strange entity known only as the Trial Master. For those in which he sees potential, he shall inscribe an ultimatum. Many have attempted these trials in search of greatness. Most have perished. Will you be able to defy the odds? Before you begin each chamber, the Trial Master will offer you a reward and a choice.
Same
Choose
thing
one
here.
of 3
It's
tribulations
kind of
to
a,
affect you through the rest of the trial. These
it's a
modifiers
very
might beef up the
interesting
monsters,
twist
curse
I
the
did not
player,
expect.
or add environmental hazards
they
like
combined
turrets or trap
labyrinth with
rooms.
another league
In
mechanic.
this case, we'll be picking shocking turrets.
What's up, Theta?
As you enter the room, the Trial Master will fill it with hazards to test your commitment. In this case, you must destroy all the monsters that fill the room, while dealing with the lightning projectiles from the shocking turrets.
Yeah, this one is lab and ultimatum combined. It's definitely, I didn't expect this twist.
After each room, you will need to make a choice. Take the rewards you have earned so far, or go double or nothing. Increase your rewards, but take on more risk. Each tribulation you add is minor on its own, but they quickly stack on top of each other and can become overwhelming. There are many types of chambers in the trial. Each will test your resolve in different ways. This one simply requires you survive for a certain amount of time. Another requires you to escort the stone idol through the level as elevators full of monsters descend to attack you. Should you be able to get through the first 3 chambers, you will face your first boss. The order of the bosses is random, and combined with the tribulations you have selected, the fight will never feel the same. After defeating the boss, you may claim your rewards. Of course there are the items, but you also gain the right to ascend.
That is
If you already
definitely
did
a
the trial
very
of the sacraments,
interesting
then you can
twist.
claim 2 more
Very,
points
very
to add to
different.
your ascendancy class. Now it's possible to go much deeper. There are more bosses, rewards, and risks to take, but we'll talk more about that when we get to Endgame. So how about we talk about that now? So far we've only been showing you footage from the campaign, but some people would argue that
All
the
this is
endgame
just the
where
campaign.
game truly begins. Something that happens almost every time a new action RPG launches is people saying, there isn't enough in-game content. Well, we want to make sure that in PoE 2 people don't feel that way, and we actually only changed our development priority for this recently. The first 3 acts of PoE 2 already take around 25 hours to complete if you're a new player. This is already a pretty significant campaign. On the other hand, people spend hundreds of hours in endgame each league. We realized that finishing the rest of the campaign for early access was actually a bad idea. Instead of having acts 4 to 6 in early access, we could concentrate on endgame and make that great. For new players, a 25-hour campaign is already a huge game with lots of content. But for existing action RPG players, what you mostly care about is all the endgame challenges to overcome. So several months ago, we switched the entire development team's focus over to making endgame content. At the start of early access, there will be 50 bosses and around 400 monster types. But the great thing is that the rest of the game is like 80% there. We'll be adding content to roughly double the size of the game during early access and into release. Now, in order to make the endgame happen at the same character level as what it would be after we added the rest of the acts, we've added a second difficulty level called Cruel, where you repeat the campaign with all the monsters and bosses leveled up. And of course, new rewards. You can kind of think of it as like a new game plus. It's also a lot faster to get through the content the second time as your clear speed increases. That will take you to around level 65, where the endgame begins. Once we add the remaining 3 acts, we'll be removing Cruel difficulty.
That's
so you'll
fair.
progress straight from the end of Act 6 to endgame.
That's a good
But
way to
what is the
approach it.
endgame? To explain that, I'll hand over to Mark. He can tell you all about it.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile 2. Well, one thing that Path of Exile is known for is having a lot of distinct endgame content to choose between. Each endgame mechanic needs to have its own progression system, areas, bosses, rewards, and player power that can only be gained from that content. We are going to be adding a lot more over time, but for Path of Exile 2 we decided to start with 7 distinct systems you can progress through.
This is the Atlas, and it serves as the core of the endgame for Path of Exile 2. It's infinite and expands in all directions.
Oh, wow.
Now, we are not going to
Infinite
spoil the
Atlas.
plot too much here, but corruption from the beast has blighted the land, and your objective is to help fight it. In the center of the Atlas, you will find the Ziggurat, a temple in which the Val research the fundamentals of space and time. Here, we can open portals to nearby locations and begin cleansing corruption and finding resources. In order to power the portal device, we will need waystones. Each waystone has a tier which will determine the level of the monsters that you will face. To go to an area, simply click one that is adjacent to an area that you have already completed. Insert the waystone and click Traverse. Portals will open, allowing you and your party to travel to the area you have selected. All the areas in the endgame feel distinct from the locations in the campaign, and we have dialed the randomization
shit.
up to 11.
Is that Flicker
The monster
Strike?
packs you will face in each map are totally random, and the combination of them can lead to some very interesting combat situations. There are over 400 monster types in early access, and they have a lot of varied and interesting abilities. Depending on which combinations you face, you might find some serious challenges. In order to cleanse the corruption from the area, you will need to defeat all the powerful rare and unique enemies in it. Once you have done that, the area will be marked as completed and you will be able to travel past it to progress deeper into the world. If you die, then the map can no longer be run, and you will have to find another way around to get to the areas behind it. There are also all kinds of other random encounters you might run into as you play maps. One such encounter are precursor artifacts. These are ancient, corrupting monuments that irradiate the monsters around them. The monsters that feed off the corruption are drawn to their power. If you defeat the monsters and cleanse the artifact, you will get a powerful temporary buff. Some of the buffs make you faster, others rain lightning or fire around you, and some even give you increased experience or help you find better items. You can also find strong boxes. These enigmatic chests guard piles of treasure, but are always a trap. Monsters lie in wait to attack you the moment you open it, and the boxes often have mechanisms to unleash powerful spells or dangerous debuffs. There are different types of strong boxes containing different items, and you can even use your currency items to craft them on the fly, so you can optimize the contents. But be careful of opening one you can't handle. Sometimes you'll discover monsters frozen in essences, solidified crystalline corruption. These dangerous monsters can be broken free. If you defeat them, the essence they drop can be used to upgrade normal items to magic items with a guaranteed mod from a category. For example, we could use this one on some boots to ensure a movement speed mod. Rarely, essences will also drop that allow you to upgrade magics
Oh wow,
to rares,
essences
adding the
affecting
guaranteed mod.
individual affixes? Am I reading into that? And not like re-rolling the whole piece?
This is incredibly powerful, since it allows you to
Oh,
get a
yes!
second deterministic mod in your crafting project.
Oh my god!
Combining these with the currencies that are commonly found in Rayclast for modifying items, and we can get
Oh
a
my
very
god,
nice pair
that
of
makes
boots indeed.
crafting so much easier.
Waystones, like all items, can also be crafted using your currency items. Adding prefix mods will improve the rewards, while suffix mods increase danger. The more dangerous a map is, the more waystones will drop. Adding mods to your waystones is key to progressing to higher tiers and sustaining them, but it will require you to take on larger challenges. There are a variety of factors you'll have to consider when crafting your waystones. Some maps will have higher density, some lower, some have more magic and rare chests, or monsters, some are more linear, and others more open. Make sure you explore and think about what makes certain maps good if you want to maximize your returns. As you cleanse corruption from higher and higher tiers of the Atlas, you will gain points that you can spend in the Atlas tree. This tree allows you to juice the danger and rewards of all areas in the endgame. You could increase the number of monsters, the number of rares, the number of precursor artifacts or strongboxes, even the quantity of item drops. As you explore the endgame world map, you'll notice various different biomes, from snow-capped mountains to dense jungle valleys. Most maps are restricted to certain biomes. As you continue to explore deeper into the Atlas, there are all sorts of things to discover. These cities are constructed by different peoples of Rayclast, and have specific items that can be found there. These strange structures marked on the map don't appear to do anything for now. Perhaps you'll work out how to use them later. You might find unique maps like Untainted Paradise, an undisturbed island full of beasts that give an extreme amount of experience. You may even find a lonely man just enjoying his retirement who will give you a unique item for free. In addition, you can find special areas that would make a good spot to set up camp. Clear these areas of their hostile inhabitants, and you'll be able to claim them as your own hideout. You can decorate your hideout as you see fit, and invite various NPCs to join you there to create your own personal base of operations.
That's awesome.
A
All
great
new
tool for
hideouts.
exploration are towers. These mysterious precursor constructs are dotted around the Atlas. Completing the tower will reveal a large area around it, allowing you to scout out your next challenge. There are lots of things to find, so keep looking. Some sections of your Atlas are influenced by corruption.
Pretty
This
much
adds
unlimited
extra
end
modifiers
game.
to the maps in the region, increasing difficulty and rewards. Here, slaying monsters in close proximity to each other will cause the vestiges of corruption within them to merge together, forming powerful and grotesque abominations. You may have noticed while looking at the Atlas that some of the areas have these icons above them. The icon indicates that the area contains some kind of special encounter. This icon indicates that the area has a powerful boss. Because only 1 in 4 maps contain a map boss, we are able to make them very powerful and very rewarding. These bosses come from the campaign, but have had their difficulty increased with changes to AI and some of their abilities. It's worth noting that because you can see where the bosses are, you can choose to take them on or avoid them. If you do choose to hunt bosses though, then you will be rewarded with special points for the boss hunting section of the Atlas skill tree. The points here will allow you to specialize in boss killing, giving you much greater rewards for defeating them. For each different type of content in the endgame, we are adding specialized trees in order to make it so you don't feel the need to respec your points when you change between different types of content. We will be showing you 7 of these by the end of this presentation, so there is still a lot more to come. Bosses are not the only icon you will see on the Atlas. Let's take a look at one of the endgame systems, Breach. If you played PoE 1, you might be familiar with Breach. For PoE 2, we have created sequels to several PoE 1 leagues. While the mechanic is familiar, the monsters, bosses, rewards, and progression are all new. A breach is a tear in the fabric of reality. Opening it will allow you to see the demons and otherworldly monstrosities that lie in wait on this other plane of existence. By engaging with a breach, you'll create a bridge between their world and Rayclast. In order to keep the breach open, you will need to kill the demons that pour forth. The faster you can kill the monsters, the more monsters you will fight, and the more loot you will find. You can also find clasped hands that will open and drop more items if you run over them.
Come on, let's see Blight,
These
damn
can
it.
be a good boost to the rewards of the breach, so keep an eye out.
Give me
One
my
of the
tower
rewards that you
defense.
may find while fighting monsters from Breach are tablets. Tablets are special items that can be used with precursor towers to add more encounters to the Atlas. Breaches will drop breach tablets. Clicking on a completed tower will allow you to consume the tablet to add more breaches to areas within range of the tower. This makes all the content in the Atlas self-sustaining. Want to do more breaches? Find the tablets, add them to your towers, get more breaches, getting more tablets. Soon your Atlas will be covered in otherworldly domains. In addition, like all items in PoE, you can craft them. Use your currency to add mods to your tablets, allowing you to upgrade all the breaches in range. Tablets can have up to 2 mods. These mods do things like adding extra rare monsters, extra clasped hands, or even monster density of breaches, allowing you to keep them open longer. Often, you will find multiple towers near to each other with overlapping areas of effect. This can allow you to really juice the mechanic by stacking the mods from multiple tablets. In your fight to hold the breach demons at bay, you may want to use the powers of their world against them. Each endgame mechanic always has player power that can only be gained from that mechanic, and Breach is no different. In Breach, you will find catalysts,
Please show Blight,
items
please
that can
show
increase
Blight.
the quality of rings and amulets by improving specific mods. You can also find Breach Rings, a special base type that can have its quality improved by catalysts up to 50%. In this case, you could create a ring with around 170 life. Breach Rings can become some of the strongest rings in the game, giving you some good motivation to face the demon hordes. In addition, each endgame mechanic needs to have a pinnacle endgame encounter. While killing breach monsters, you may find breach splinters. Collect enough of these and you'll be able to create a breach stone. Using a Vaal technology called the Realm Gate, you can use your breach stone to access their domain and bring the fight to them. In this twisted domain, you will find nothing but a single massive breach. Triggering it will reveal hordes of breach inhabitants. And should you be fast enough, you will be able to fight their leader, Zesht. We that are one.
We that dreamed. We in nightmare.
Absolutely. The hands, not the hands.
This is just one of the pinnacle encounters of PoE 2. We won't be showing the rest of them, so you will have to discover them for yourself. But rest assured, this is some of the hardest content we have ever made. All of these encounters have specific uniques that can only be found from them, but that's not all. We still have the progression system. Defeating Zesht will give you points to allocate into the breach section of the Atlas tree.
Sleeps for the weak,
Allocating
Theta.
these points will make breaches and the breach domain even harder, but will give you more rewards. The small
Wow.
nodes will increase the difficulty of the twisted domain, while the large nodes have more specific bonuses. For example, this node adds more clasped hands to your breaches, and adds a pack of magic monsters that can guard them. Get some more points and you can allocate Waking Nightmare, which will double the number of splinters you get from clasped hands, and inflict you with a mysterious debuff. In order to earn more points, you will need to defeat Zesht at a higher difficulty, and some rewards from Zesht can only be found by increasing the difficulty of the Twisted Domain above certain thresholds. Defeating Zesht at difficulty 4 will be a challenge indeed, but there are many more threats in Rayclast. Ritual altars are sacrificial sites built by the mysterious King in the Mists.
God, they're not going to
If
show
you
blight,
encounter
are they?
this symbol on the Atlas, then you know that the area contains ritual altars. Ritual altars demand tribute. Every monster you slaughter in the circle will feed the altar. After the sacrifice, touch it to begin the ritual. The monsters you just killed will be resurrected by the King of the Mist's dark magic, and you must fight to survive. The tribute you have offered to the altar can be spent to buy powerful items, but they can be expensive. To gain more tribute, you will want to find more altars. Each successive ritual you do within an area will spawn the monsters revived by the previous ones, in addition to the ones you sacrifice next to it. By the end of an area, you will be fighting a truly imposing number of foes, but will have a significant amount of tribute to spend. One of the rewards you can buy with tribute are omens. These are special items that allow for meta crafting. Crafting items that affect other crafting items. Have an item with good prefixes but bad suffixes? This omen will help you to remove the mods you don't want while keeping the ones you do. There are a bunch more of these with different effects, but we will leave them for you to discover. Now don't forget that Ritual will also drop tablets, which can be used to specialize into getting more rituals. If you want to get to the pinnacle boss of Ritual, then you will probably want to use them. They can also be crafted to grant mods, making your rituals more rewarding. The pinnacle encounter of Ritual is the King in the Mists. Feared by the Asmeri people, he is said to have brought eternal darkness to the Wildwood. We won't show the encounter, but just like Breach, there are a range of unique items you can get for defeating him, and you will gain points in the ritual section of the Atlas tree. Some maps have been touched by insanity. A mysterious entity has taken a special interest in you. Step through
Delirium
the looking
looks
glass
cool.
and you will find your nightmares coming to life. When you touch a mirror, the mists of delirium will spread out across the area, infecting your mind. You must stay within the mist to maintain the nightmare, which is as profitable as it is terrifying. Everything you kill will increase the rewards that drop. However, the deeper into the mist you travel, the stronger the monsters are. Be careful not to overstay your welcome. Rare and unique enemies will become vessels for terrifying demons, who will manifest out of them to unleash powerful attacks on you. The mist also offers a strange crafting material, distilled emotions. By combining these emotions, you are able to instill your amulet with a notable from the passive skill tree. This is like gaining an extra passive point for free, attached to your gear. They are also particularly
So
great
they took the
because you
blight
don't
oils
have
and
to
moved it
traverse
to
the tree get
delirium.
them, allowing you to get off-class bonuses that would normally be much harder to get. Distilled emotions can also be used to instill your endgame maps, applying Delirious to them
Oh,
and
wow.
adding additional difficulty and rewards, allowing you to further juice your endgame maps. The tablets you can find from Delirium can be used to further improve it, increase pack size, make the fog dissipate slower, or improve your progress towards the pinnacle encounter of Delirium. Speaking of which, every now and then you will find simulacrum splinters. The mysterious entity will create strange encounters based on warped versions of your own memories. Monsters and simulacrums come in waves that get progressively more difficult. You will receive loot at the end of each wave, and you will have to make the decision to leave now or continue on, facing up against even tougher foes from the mist. The bosses you will face as you get deeper into a simulacrum are truly terrifying. If you can complete a simulacrum, you will gain points for the Delirium section of the Atlas skill tree. Next up, we have Expedition. Occasionally, while clearing corruption, you will encounter these Kalguran settlers.
I'm starting to get
The
worried there
Kalgurans
won't be
have
blight.
discovered ancient burial sites with lost Verisium artifacts, and they want you to help dig them up with explosives. The Kalgurans have marked the locations where the relics can be found. Place explosives as best you can to dig up as many as possible.
There is just one problem. Corruption has brought the corpses of their ancestors to life, so you might have to do a little cleanup before you can reclaim the artifacts.
Blight is like the tower defense mode from
You can
Path of
also
Exile
find
1.
remnants, the destruction of which will further anger the restless dead. Each one you blow up will make
And you
the
know I'm
subsequent
kind of a tower
monsters more
defense
powerful,
nerd,
but
so I
also
love
more
that shit.
rewarding. Danig, Rog, Tujin, and Gwenin will exchange the artifacts for useful items and runic magic. You can also find tablets to increase the number of expeditions and the rewards. This one increases the radius of explosives, while this one increases the number of remnants you will find. Eventually, you might discover a logbook.
Is
These
it
are special
multiplayer?
maps
Oh,
full
yeah.
of buried treasure and relics. Essentially, one
Fully
giant
online
dig site.
trading guilds.
Here, you can create an extremely long chain of explosives and go
I'll
through a
have
very
a
high number
guild
of
going.
remnants.
Actually,
But
we
be careful.
might end up
Many
using the
remnants
same
have
one
mods
from
that can
PoE
really
1.
brick your build, so you will probably want to avoid these ones. If you add too many remnants, you could easily make the encounter harder than you can handle. There are all sorts of interesting things buried under the ground in logbooks. You
My
might
guild will
find
be
dripping
noob-friendly,
caves
yeah.
and hidden pirate caches. But the most powerful encounter
always
is
welcome new
Olroth,
players.
the ancient undead commander of the Knights of the Sun. Defeating him will grant you unique rewards, as well as points to spend in the expedition section of the Atlas tree. So those are the in-game systems on the Atlas, but we are not done yet. The trials we talked about
no.
earlier have much more content
They're
when you
not
get to
gonna do
endgame too.
Blight.
Just like the other endgame systems, they also have progression mechanics, unique rewards, and player power that can only be gained from them. As you get higher level coins for the Trial of the Sycamores, you will unlock more floors to explore. Each floor has its own challenging rooms and a floor boss that you will need to kill. There are 4 floors in total, leading to another pinnacle boss at the end of the last floor, which can only be accessed at endgame. The Trial of the Sycamores is where you'll find jewels, which you can socket into your tree. These are like passives that you can craft with your currency items. They can be really powerful as they allow you to stack modifiers that may not be easily accessible on the tree normally. This jewel gives lightning damage and shock chance, for example. There are quite a few jewel sockets on the tree, so it's possible to gain a lot of power here. There are also other types of jewels that don't provide any bonuses themselves, but affect other passives surrounding them. This jewel increases the effect of small nodes and radius by 25%. With careful placement in the tree, you could get a significant amount of power from it. There are also unique jewels available with very interesting effects, but you will have to find those for yourself. In order to push further into the trial and uncover the secrets of the Maraketh, you will want to take advantage of its progression system, relics. Relics are items that can be placed in the relic altar as you start the trial. They give special bonuses that affect the trial, making it easier and increasing its rewards. Of course, you can craft these with your currency items, making them even stronger. If you can complete the entire trial overcoming all 4 floors,
Yeah, they're
the
bringing a
final
lot of
boss will
mechanics
reward
from
you with
PoE
one of
1.
many unique relics.
And
These
giving
relics
it
will be
their own
consumed
twist
when
for
used on
PoE
your
2.
next run, but can
It
reward
looks
you
quite
with unique
interesting
and
so
powerful
far.
items. For example, this is
The thing is you
last
won't have
flame.
to do all
if
of
you
these.
use it, you will
You'll
have
find
only
what
one
you like
honor
the
for
most, and you
entire
can
trial.
specialize
So you
on
will
doing
need to do
that.
a completely hitless run. The Trial of Chaos also extends into the endgame. As you gain inscribed ultimatums of higher and higher levels, the number of chambers that you can go through increases. In true Val style, this allows you to take even more risks for even more rewards.
God, those mercenary
At
explosions
endgame, you
look
can progress
so
through up to 10
badass.
chambers with 3 bosses on a single run. Stacking 10 tribulations on top of each other will make this a significant challenge, but it's worth it. The Trial Master will tempt you with items of the Val Empire, such as Val Orbs. Val Orbs are powerful crafting items that corrupt your gear with random, mysterious outcomes. Corruption prevents an item from being modified further, so it has to be the last step of your craft. But it's also the most impactful one. For example, if you use one on your body armor, it might add a new powerful enchantment, or it might re-roll up to half of its modifiers. Val Orbs also have the ability to add a socket, allowing you to bypass the normal restriction of how many
wow.
sockets an item can have. A body armor could get up to 3 sockets this way, allowing for a significant number of mods. Val Orbs can even modify uniques. Adding enchantments or sockets to uniques can make them incredibly powerful, but there is a good chance that you will break them as well.
The Trial Master will also occasionally offer you soul cores. Originally formed by Chaos, the Vaal sought to replicate soul cores through human sacrifice rituals and blood magic to power their civilization. Soul cores are powerful socketable items, with mods that cannot be obtained from regular runes. Like all endgame content, there is of course a pinnacle boss. The final chamber will drop keys to this mysterious door. Some say this is where the Trial Master himself resides. Perhaps you are willing to take the risk to find out. Had enough yet? Because there is still just one more
So
thing.
many bosses.
The most difficult content in Path of Exile 2. While mapping, you might come across this fortress that has emerged from underground, surrounded by an enormous maze riddled with danger. Is the maze preventing something from getting in?
It's definitely
or
an
something getting
interesting,
out?
fresh
This
take
fortress is of
on a
ancient
lot of
origin,
the
and its
already
construction has
existing
similarities to the
PoE1
towers
systems.
and tablets that you have been using on your journey through the endgame. It is clear from the entrance that there are 3 keys required to enter. Local factions are vying for access to the fortress in order to seize the power they believe will be inside. Each of the faction's leaders have managed to get
What's
their
up,
hands on
Allison?
one of the keys, so you will need to defeat them. Each faction is led by an Uber-Act boss. You can see one of them inhabiting the city, but in order to fight him, you will first need to defeat their 2 lieutenants in the adjacent zones. Be careful. If you fail against either of the lieutenants, or to kill the leader, they will move on, and you will need to find them again. Kill all the Uber bosses and you will gain access to the fortress. We aren't going to spoil it as we can't wait to see you guys attempt it for the first time. But is there a tree you get points in after killing it? Of course there is. This is Path of Exile. There is always another tree.
So these are your challenges for PoE 2. As you can see, this project is crazy huge, way bigger than even we expected when we started out. But how do you gain access? Well, during early access you'll need a key to get in. To thank our existing PoE supporters who have spent more than $480, we'll be giving you guys a key for the PC version for
Wow,
free.
480
Anyone
bucks.
else who wants one can get one by purchasing one of the new early access supporter packs that have just been released to the store. If you just
They're
want
out
early
now.
access to PoE 2, then you can get a key in the $30 early access pack. The pack also comes with $30 of points to spend in the MTX store. But we also have a variety of other supporter packs filled with exclusive microtransactions, points to spend in the store, and even physical items. The cosmetics can be used right now in PoE 1 and in Path of Exile 2 when early access starts.
30 bucks, get
Most
you
of
in the
this
door.
footage has been recorded in Path of Exile 1, since that's where you can use them immediately. The Lord of Ogham supporter pack contains a cosmetic armor set befitting of the Count of Ogham himself. There is also a matching back attachment which has an alternate variant depicting the influence of corruption. Also in this pack you can find a portal formed of the rusted armor of the fallen soldiers in the Red Vale of Ogham, and the offspring of a vicious Crowbell boss found in the hunting grounds. This one doesn't look so vicious though.
Cool
On
looking
top of
pat.
that, you'll receive the Iron Count's Zweihander to apply to your one-handed or two-handed swords. For those
That's
who
a
are wanting to decorate
badass
your
looking
hideouts
weapon
with fond
skin.
memories and tales of Path of Exile's history, you will
PoE
also get a
does
series of hideout
cosmetics
statues.
right. They
This
look
pack contains
good.
the statue of Hillock. For Path of Exile 1's closed beta, each pack contained a true New Zealand icon, the Kiwi. Following this tradition, all packs in this series will also contain a new themed Kiwi pet. The pet will loyally follow you into battle, but run away at the first sign of trouble. Become the ruler of the desert with the King of the Faradin supporter pack. Show your mastery of traversing the sands of the Vasteri Plains. The body armor will allow you to glide along the ground with ancient sand magic. Now each armor set comes with body armor, boots, gloves, and helmet, but the boots are covered in sand. If you'd prefer to show them off, you can turn the gliding off if you want. The accompanying back attachment equips you with 2 powerful pillars that can control and manipulate lightning. They
I
will
mean, their
periodically
cosmetics
release their
are like
energy in a
night and
powerful
day
blast while in town,
from
and
this to
hover in a
Diablo
circle
4.
around you, arcing lightning between them, forming a barrier of energy. Replace the appearance of any bow with the Faradin's Glory skin, or replace the appearance of a spear with the Tyranny's End spear skin. This spear skin can be applied to staves and war staves in Path of Exile 1. If you want to truly show your worth as a King of the Faradin, then you definitely need your trusty, moving, entire city fortress known as the Dreadnought to travel across the Vasteri Plains. In Path of Exile, you can decorate your hideout however you like, and it's no
Wow.
exception here. It comes with a variety of thematic elements to use, or use decorations from elsewhere in the game. Additionally, you will get the Deshret's Blessing level up effect. the king of the Faradin Kiwi pet, and last but not least, a statue depicting the Vaal Oversoul from Path of Exile 1. For those who don't know how supporter packs work, each pack comes with all of the cosmetics from the previous tier, so you'll get all the items from the Lord of Ogham supporter pack as well.
That one's probably
the Thaumaturge
pricey.
of the Vaal supporter pack features an armor set and back attachment themed around the Vaal and their pursuit of science and progress. You can find the Soul Core weapon effect in this pack, which causes thaumaturgic energy harnessed from sacrifice to spill from your weapon. This pack also contains Doryani's Idol. It replaces the default appearance of any foci to an ancient relic once used by Doryani, and this can be applied to shields in Path of Exile 1. That's not the only Vaal weapon you'll find. It also contains the Wand of the Thaumaturge skin.
I don't know, they're pricey,
and the
pricey.
Royal Sacrifice Dagger skin.
PoE does
You wouldn't think to put sacrificial
their
gems on a Kiwi,
monetization
but the Vaal did.
pretty fairly.
Thaumaturge of the Vaal supporters will
They
receive the
charge
Thaumaturge
a
of
lot
the
of
Vaal
money
Kiwi
for the
pet.
higher packs, but they're
And the Statue of
super cool
Dominus.
looking.
This
So
is
if you've
also
got
the
the
first pack
money
in the series with a physical item.
and you don't mind
When
paying
purchasing
for
this
some
pack, you'll receive
incredible
a Path of Exile
cosmetic,
2 logo
they've got
t-shirt.
it.
But if you don't want one, you can opt out and return for additional points to spend in the store. Becoming a Warlord of the Karui supporter will grant you an armor set and back attachment adorned in jade carvings and iridescent feathers resembling power. Enough to even impress the ancestral gods, specifically Tukohama, the Karui god of war. Overkill, you say? I think the Karui people would disagree. Why not drop a gigantic totem on rare
Oh my
enemies
God,
and slay them
really?
to crush them to a pulp? Replace your crafting bench in your hideout with the Ancestral Canoe crafting bench, where Ancestral Chief Mata will summon a giant canoe manned by Karui warriors to aid in your crafting desires.
We must all start somewhere.
You'll also get a pair of weapon skins. Equip Akoya's Felling Axe skin to your one-hand or two-handed axes, or Tukohama's Crusher to your one-handed or two-handed maces.
Hell yes, Liko.
A true Karui warlord is always accompanied by their trusty Kiwi. Equipped with armor and harnessing ancestral magic, they make the perfect sidekick. Once one of the most feared beings in Rayclast, Malachi was slain by a powerful exile. May the statue commemorate the virtue of exiles past, present, and of the future. Of course, it's not all about dressing up in game. You'll want to look good in real life too. By becoming a Warlord of the Karui supporter, you'll also get a Path of Exile 2 hoodie. Our final tier of supporter pack in this series is the Liberator of Rayclast supporter pack. The Liberator of Rayclast armor set and back attachment come made with the finest materials in Rayclast, and shattered glass mosaics suspended in divine power. Set up your base of operations in the Beacon of Salvation hideout. Why restrict yourself to just one island when you can liberate more?
Yeah.
The Beacon of
I mean,
Salvation
their
hideout comes equipped
stuff
with your
goes
own
up to
collection
really,
of small
really high
islands
prices.
and personal operators of boats that you can
But
use
it's
to
all
row between them.
cosmetic. So, I mean,
Just walk to the piers,
although
click
it
a
looks
boat to
incredibly
enter and
cool, you
navigate as
don't
you choose.
have to have
Decorate
it.
each
So,
island as you
like,
see fit
I
to
will
best
never
represent
have
your
those
well-earned
cosmetics.
hideout.
That's just a lot
Everyone
of
in
money.
your hideout can use their own boat. Why not have some races?
I do
You can
recognize
also
how
get the
cool
Window
looking
to
they are,
Twilight portal effect, a beautiful mosaic piece of art that shatters and reveals a gateway to your desired destination as you approach it. As you walk away, the glass magically reforms back to its original form. Rule in style with the Throne of the Ruler map device. Sure, this map device can create portals to in-game maps, but it also comes with a throne you can sit on to oversee your growing kingdom. Look down on the plebeians running your maps. Being the Liberator, though, is not just about sitting on your throne all day. If you do decide to join the fight yourself, you can leave a High Priest in charge as your second in command. Liberator of Rayclast supporters will also get a set of varied weapon skins. The Light of
Yeah, I
Divinity
mean, what
Scepter
you
skin,
get is incredibly cool
the
looking,
Deliverance
but
Crossbow
they're
skin,
pricey as hell.
the Justice Flail skin, and the Redemption Shield skin. Once again, you'll have an accompanying Kiwi, and of course
I mean,
a statue
people
depicting
at
one of the most
Blizzard
iconic
should
events
be
in
like
Rayclast's
hiding their
history.
heads in shame.
The battle
looking
between
at
the
these
powerful Exile
cosmetics
and
versus
Kitava, the
what's in
Insatiable.
Diablo 4.
With the help of two deities, Sin and Innocence, the Exile was able to
I mean,
defeat him once and for all.
Come on.
This supporter pack also contains the Path of Exile 2 art book. This 215-page full-color art book includes a huge amount of amazing concept art and lore produced during the long and exciting journey of Path of Exile 2's development. And finally, Path of Exile has a tradition of letting the community participate in designing game features. For Path of Exile 2, we'll be adding the Twilight Order Foil Reliquary. By becoming a Liberator of Rayclass supporter, once Path of Exile 2 is released, you will be able to select any unique item you have found and be able to drop it from the Reliquary. Once players have submitted their items, keys to the Reliquary will start dropping, and other players will be able to find foil versions of uniques that you have submitted along with a message for the lucky player. The more players submit the same unique, the more chances there will be for the Reliquary to drop them, so choose wisely.
That's the same as PoE
Now,
1.
almost all of these items
but
are available to use
The
in PoE
personal
1
message
right
is
now.
cool.
There are a few exceptions where the item class clearly doesn't exist, such as crossbows or flails. And there are also a few microtransactions on weapon types that are unavailable in PoE 2 at the start of early access. Once classes that use those weapon types are added, those microtransactions will be available to use. If you can't decide which supporter pack to choose yet, you can always start with the
No,
early
they
access
get
supporter
added
pack
to a
that just
pool,
includes
and
a
then
key
players can
and some
find
points to
them
spend in the
in-game.
store. Then you can upgrade to any of the following tiers.
It's
at a
basically
later
like
date.
getting your own
These
thing
supporter
added
packs
in
will be
for other
available
players
for
to
purchase
find.
throughout early access. We'd really like to thank you for your ongoing support. Without
It's
you guys,
in,
Path
it's
of
in
Exile 2 could
PoE
not
1
happen.
now.
Now, I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. Stick around, because coming up next, we have a live Q&A with Ziggy D.
Yeah, they're doubling during the early access period, the content will about double. It's going from 3 acts to 6 acts, and then the endgame systems will stay the same.
To the post-show discussion and Q&A. I hope you all enjoyed what you've seen so far. It's been
Ziggy
pretty
D's got
exciting for
some
us here as
sync
well,
issues
as
with his
you
mic.
guys have been inspired already just watching things. And you're already cooking a new Ascendancy class.
Yeah, for sure.
Got to do design whenever you can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's been a few fun moments here already. But I'm your host, Ziggy D, and I'm joined by Jonathan and Mark to talk about everything you've seen. Honestly, it's so much.
I mean, we were really keen to make sure that when we went into early access that people didn't feel like it was just, limping along and kind of, just like a minimum amount of content. We really wanted to kind of blow people away. So hopefully people feel like, there is enough content. Because, it was certainly a mission to get all that stuff in.
Yeah, I did come here expecting that there would be, maybe a basic mapping placeholder endgame and your 3 acts and, the half the classes. But you've made a decision here clearly that's got the core PoE player community in mind.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we have to make sure, look,
I'm
Path
doing
of
good,
Exile's
Allison.
in-game is kind of known for the fact that you get to choose between different types of content and that, some people enjoy one thing, some people enjoy another. And I feel like that choice is, a huge part of what makes it good. So if we didn't have that when we entered in-game, then I don't think that would be, that wouldn't be a Path of Exile in-game. So that's kind of what we have to make sure of. So we kind of said, okay, well, what is the minimum number of different in-game things you need to be able to have in order to be able to actually have a viable in-game that we feel like you get different choices. And that's how we ended up with what we have here.
I definitely feel like a lot of games nowadays release, and their campaign's intact and real good. You get to the end game and it just falls real flat.
Yeah.
And it was certainly a very important moment for us when we were like, hold on, that's the wrong thing to do. Let's not make the same mistake as everyone else. Let's pivot. And we actually did that, and it made a world of difference and made the game all of a sudden, 100 times bigger with an infinite amount more content, right?
It was definitely hard though. It was it's we're progressing. It's we would have made it. We would have gotten, all these acts in if we hadn't have changed direction. It's to actually say, you know what, we're going to specifically not finish this content that we'll be working on, that we it's pins down everyone. We're stopping work on this. We're going to move over to endgame because it's actually more important. That was certainly a hard one.
That would have been some whiplash there, I imagine.
For sure. Well, I mean, it's suddenly the whole, environment art team, it's they're all just whatever you're working on, just scrap. You don't want to scrap, but, just stop it. we're doing something else now. So
saving clothes, yeah.
Especially for a lot of the developers, because you got to also think, a lot of our developers have just been working on this campaign for, what is it now, 6 years?
I think it's even longer, actually.
Yeah, it's just this epic journey, whereas none of them, a lot of these people haven't been working on Path of Exile 1 this whole time, so some of us are we're just churning out in-game with every league and doing all of that, but for a lot of these people, a lot of these developers, it was quite jarring to swap over, but everyone embraced it,
You know, we talked about it. Everyone was happy about it and stoked about it, and it just ended up coming out real awesome. So
I think it's landed well, and it definitely kind of blew me away when you. So even before I saw anything, we were in the car on the drive here, and you were just info dumping all of the endgame. You're like, oh, we got this feature, we got this feature. I'm getting dopamine just from hearing about it. I haven't even seen anything yet. But do you guys feel like you're competing against yourselves a little bit here? Because Path of Exile's kind of set the bar. The original game has set the bar for what is available to endgame in a game like this. And
Ziggy D's got the hookup, man.
It's not acceptable, really, to
content creator living in the same area as the developer is golden.
I mean, like if you're not competing with yourself, then I don't think you're going to make good progress, right? So that's what you really have to do.
Yeah, but cracking that out for beta even.
Yep, absolutely.
Pretty
well, as I
exciting.
said, I just think it would not have landed nearly as well without that. And I think it's important that our existing Path of Exile 1 community feels like they're also served. Like, yeah, sure, we're doing all this stuff for new players, and that's really important, and that'll expand the audience. But, you know, if we launched and all the PoE 1 players are unhappy, that wouldn't be good. So, you know, we have to make sure that they also feel like, you know, they've got a game for both them and for all the new players we hope to bring to the genre.
And you definitely want all those different axes as well. Like just having two, right? You'll get a lot of content can be immediately divisive, right? Obviously, that's the nature of it. That's how it goes, right? And so you have all of these different avenues because there are different players who like different types of content.
Yeah.
So if you're just like, here's your one end game system, well, immediately then there is a portion of players who are just like, I don't want this, right? And so having all of these options is like ultra key, and that is what Path of Exile 1 has taught us. And again, it's like, I'd say lessons learned, you know, for the genre, and it is expanding in other games and stuff. But yeah, certainly, as you said, competing with ourselves, yes, PoE 1 has like, you know, 40 axes, you know, and we've got 7 really good ones here, and obviously more to come. But 7 is a lot, mind you.
Especially when it's all like, you know, like people have to learn a lot of things again. It's going to be very interesting to see how long it takes people to do the kind of difficulty 4 pinnacle content. It's like we have to. It's honestly like we actually don't even really know, because like you never know what people are going to find in terms of builds and so on. Like I'm hoping that it will take people a while to be able to work it out, but you know, you never know. Maybe end of day 1, people just be like, oh yeah, easy, no problem, mate. You know, could be what it's like.
We have a few people that are doing that sort of thing. I saw like a solo self found level 100 in 24 hours or something.
Jeez. Okay, this is where we've got it now, is it?
So but I imagine there'll be a little bit of a soft reset there for people.
For sure.
A relearning period.
There's stuff to learn.
And I mean, PoE 2 has changed a lot over the years, so more than 5 years of development now. And what was that initial pitch when PoE 2 was first put forwards, like, as to what it's going to be? Because it was much smaller in scope originally.
Yeah, so when we started, it wasn't even a sequel. It was just we're just updating the character rigs, and over time, it kind of feature creeped into a proper sequel. But the thing that we were saying is, whenever we were talking about it, and I guess this is the main thing, is that we're like, okay, when we make an area here, it needs to be that there's like a theme for it. It feels unique from everything else. We're not going to just like have recycled stuff like within the campaign that just feels like, oh, you know, we just took this area and modified it slightly. You know, each one's got to have its own stuff. It's got to have monsters that were like carefully thought about, that like, you know, fit in with the world. And it's got to have bosses that are actually like good tier quality. You know, and every area is going to have one. So those decisions have kind of been things that have meant that they really raised the quality bar to a level that took us way longer than we even really expected. Like those things there, just like it's huge, right? Like honestly, I feel like we underestimated significantly what it would take to deliver that level of quality.
I remember really early on, a battle I fought for, and I mean like way back, was like, if you think back to, say, Diablo 2, which obviously still holds a lot of, you know, power in terms of design motivations and philosophy and stuff within the company, you get things like the super uniques, and PoE 1 did them.
It's like
and it's
skinny
just like,
jeans
here's a
are super
boss
popular
with
in
one or
New
two
Zealand.
skills. And I remember very, very, very early on in PoE 2, I'm like, I want every single boss to be memorable and a thing. I don't want a
Shit's
unique
too
monster
tight,
that's
boys.
just like dies in 2
Put on
seconds
some
and
cuffy
uses
pants.
heavy strike and has a fancy name. And I remember, I even got some push.
Poor Caliph.
I remember getting some pushback at the time and thinking like, you know, I love the bosses, my favorite part of everything, and so I was just like, man, I don't want this. This is just terrible. But of course, that decision, me pushing for that, me wanting that, turned into this megalithic.
What have you done?
Now we have 50, aiming to be 100. Honestly, probably later, several
would hope,
more 100
right?
once all the end games, everything start to evolve and more expansions comes out. And I'm like, yep, we maybe just made 100 times more work for ourselves, but 100% bloody worthwhile, because I'd say those bosses are one of the main attraction pieces of the game, and anyone who plays it is just like, holy crap, those boss fights are amazing. So like, obviously some are bad and some are good to different people and all that. That's how it all goes. That's part of all the fun. But it is true that me pushing for that thing literally created thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of work. Now, worthwhile work, but it is again that exact thing of like, the scope was kind of small on numerous axes, and as we just raised the quality bar to what we thought was good, it certainly went from, what was it initially, just reskinning some character classes and new rigs or whatever, into this like mega scale entire campaign, everything. But
full standalone separate game. Yeah.
Fun other anecdote, since we went out of that territory. It was originally codenamed Project Chimera.
What? I don't.
It was this pipe dream.
I've never been a fan of these codename things
it
like
was
that.
It was this like, there were times way back in the original Office, there was all this like, sometimes there'll be a feature you can't really do in PoE 1, and it was always like, we'll do it in Project Chimera. That was like amongst the developers, and people were like, what the heck is that? Now, ironically, there is a boss in Act 3 called, well, it's got a different name, but it's called the Chimera internally. It is a Chimera. It's a multi-headed beast, and you've seen it in a few of the marketing, things here and here, different trailers, little snippets of it. And I think it's just ironic that was actually the first boss asset made before everything, the first monster, because back in when we used to just make random monsters and we'll find out how to use them. And that was made for that game. It was used in the original PoE 2 trailer, right? It is the only incomplete, technically, but only from a balance standpoint, or it was the last boss to finish in the entire Path of Exile 2 campaign right now.
It sounds like there was like some sort of emotional demon that you had to battle there, of like the legacy of the original idea, and you had to finish it.
We had a moment with the monster game designers where we're like, oh my god, it's happening, the Chimera is finally being finished. Holy, this is like, we were effectively like, we need to celebrate this boss finally being done. It was like at the origin, and now it's at this, point where we're about to deploy early access. Not to say the end, because the end is forever away.
Yeah. It's still the beginning of a journey in many ways. Huh?
Yep.
But on that note of celebrating, like, how do you guys feel having now kind of, for the first time, I feel really like laid bare kind of everything you have, you're putting it out there, and only being 2 weeks away from everyone playing it?
Well, it's always scary, coming into a release, and I think especially for, there's like a bunch of people.
They're not taking live questions.
They have this is their first game that they're going to be releasing, and that experience is something that
this is live. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like it's
but they're
tough.
not
Honestly,
taking questions from chat.
Even we were feeling a little bit cocky.
They confirmed that Blight will be in the
because,
game.
We release
already.
Content,
but it just may not. It may not be there for early access, or they may have just not shown it
to get a game released. But honestly, like
it's
PoE 2
possible
was just a whole entirely.
But they have confirmed it will be there
as far as getting things out, right? Like it's just way more difficult. Like when you actually have to make everything, like the whole freaking thing, right from the ground up again. It's
I just want to play it now.
There's way more stuff there, and like there's even things like the passive tree where it's like, I feel like we underestimated what it would take to get something like that to an actual releasable state. Like that was a huge amount of work, just like absolutely colossal to get it to get that kind of stuff in shape. Like it's just been crazy. Obviously it's nerve wracking, coming up to a release day. But I think we do have something that players are going to really enjoy, and like it's always comforting when we had a live event in LA recently.
Yeah, Blight is a lot of people don't like it, but I personally I'm addicted to it.
I think people are going to really enjoy it.
It's been a whole different experience for me here playing this time around as well, whereas before I was playing a very buggy kind of internal version of the game that was very experimental. Now playing almost what I'm going to be playing in
Well, I heard you still managed to blow the count up the elevator with some kind of knockback bug.
I wasn't going to mention that.
Yeah, we have to get that one.
I did send the Act 1 boss up an elevator with knockback. It was good.
Intended mechanic.
I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
He was in his like big wolf form and kind of trapped in there, so just barking at me through the wood. It's good. So a few little. I'm sure there's a few things to work out over this next 2 weeks. I hope the team can have a little bit of a rest for a day before they get back into it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot. So you've done that pivot to the endgame focus and got so much for us now to play around with in the beta, and it seems like originally I was thinking, we might be playing for a few weeks here, and then maybe going back over to some Path of Exile 1 stuff. But it seems like you guys want us playing through Christmas.
That would certainly be good. Look, there's enough stuff there. I think it will take people a long time to get
It's
through.
only like 3
And I
weeks.
mean, obviously, it's also going to be the first time people are playing through a
Gonna be
completely
playing
fresh
way
campaign as
further
well. I
than
think that will
that.
take people a fair amount of time. There's
They're
and then, of course,
talking about
endgame
just
as
the
well to explore. I mean,
campaign.
it should be pretty significant. I mean, we've always wanted it to be that Path of Exile 2 leagues, are going to be, like how PoE1 leagues are, where you play them and you play them for a reasonable amount of time, and then sure, you get done with them eventually, and then you've got the next content that comes out. So in order to be able to realize that, you have to have enough of a base to make that happen.
Yeah, people are definitely wondering how invested they can get in the beta. So I definitely want to ask a few questions kind of around that idea. So firstly, is there going to be wipes and resets, and will there be something before launch as well?
So we are going to be having new leagues effectively throughout the beta whenever we launch something significant, because we want to make sure that all of the effectively that people are able to play through. But that stuff will be merged into an early access league, and effectively after we go into full release, that league will stick around. Now, I can't promise that everything about your character will function exactly like how it did in that thing.
I imagine it will be a glorious kind of snapshot of all of the here's all the broken stuff. Yeah.
But effectively, we can contain all that stuff in the sort of early access league, and then if you still want to play those characters, then you can go right ahead and do that. But the action is always going to be in whatever the most recent league is, and then of course after that point, there'll be a standard that everything goes into, which all our economic sins will forevermore be archived in the in standard. So that's. No doubt what will happen.
Well, it's nice that it's not going to be affecting what will be the standard league.
Yeah.
Also,
that's the idea.
People will be able to kind of get invested in their characters. Because,
absolutely.
I mean, there's even something kind of cool about the idea of making something that will be like that little historical piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little collectible.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there'll be some handful of legacy things that only exist in early access leagues. So, I guess we'll have to see what comes with the unique balance.
You talked about the, playing for a week or how long are we expecting?
Yeah.
Well, we also got to remember, and a lot of the, a lot of the PoE1 players will be thinking very differently to people who are obviously going to experience this as a new game, but it is a new game, right? You don't have all these predefined, hyper-refined builds to play to immediately, go through things. You don't have people coming in with fully detailed 7 million line build guides of exactly what to do with what items. The discovery is going to be there. The discovery takes time, and the discovery is honestly,
that's the
ultra
funnest
fun
part
for
right
me.
there.
I love it. Now, those things will emerge after time. Of course they do. Completely fine. But you should remember, there's a lot of game to play here to discover, to learn about the world, the new narratives, the new world building, the new unique items, the ascendancy classes, the massive passive tree, which is bigger than PoE1's, the, endgame systems, the bosses, it's not going to be this, I personally, when a PoE1 league comes out, for example, I play for a month. Sometimes a bit longer, sometimes a bit less. It ultimately also depends largely what's going on here and how much I need to invest here. So, and there are other people who play for more 3 and whatnot, but there's certainly going to be a much longer time period you can play this for while still discovering new stuff and not feel like you're finished, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, of course, you see that's subjective. Everyone can pick their own point when they finish, but if you want to see everything and do everything, you're going to be investing a lot more time, especially these first-time rounds, and then obviously with every league, there's more to discover, but you get faster at doing all these parts over and over and over again. You'll get more efficient over time. That's how the game works. So, yeah, I'd expect a lot of time to be sunk into this to fully explore it to start with, a lot, not a week, not 2 weeks. You're going to be going far, far longer than that if you want to see everything. But, it's up to you. Play at your own pace. See how you want to go. Learn at your own pace. That's the beauty of a new game as well, which we haven't been able to experience with Path of Exile 1, or other games and for so long, is actually discovering the entire world. And there's some familiar mechanics at the end game and stuff like that.
The
which is
Eternal
awesome for
Realm
people,
in Diablo
I certainly want.
But no one plays it.
I'm very excited to see people discovering the new things and getting so excited about it.
I can tell you're amped for watching people go through that discovery process. I'm maybe even diving in yourself
100%.
Oh no,
I
it
mean, I
will
love
exist.
sitting
That's
there
what they
and
say. That's what they mean when they say
as
standard
many
league.
of us do, but
Standard
I am
is
very excited for that.
Eternal.
Oh, yeah, as
Disco-
as
that
we were
new
saying,
Path of
discovery
Exile's
process
version
for
of
a while.
Eternal.
I think you were saying how
Unmapped.
much you were part spreadsheet. I think I'm like I think I was saying I'm like maybe 60% spreadsheet, 40% discovery, and that's my play archetype. You know, so
Coming up with our player profiles, Timmy spikes, and things like that for both of Exiled characters. Yeah.
the discovery part of me
Basically,
is
at the end of a Path of Exile league,
that's coming
it's
from
just like
someone
it is
who kind
now.
of knows all the content.
Those
I'm still,
characters
because
get
there's something
migrated
different
to
about making
standard,
it
which
versus
is
actually
the
playing
Diablo
live with
version
the
of
players,
Eternal.
seeing them discover it, uniques being linked in chat and on Reddit and all of that is just so cool. So we're gonna get a massive dose of that, and it is like genuinely exciting to just see how people are gonna.
You
think,
should try out
what's worth
PoE 1
chaos
while you're
or what's
waiting
worth
there,
10
Booker
chaos,
Tim,
what's
if
worth
you
a
got some time.
If
Between
chaos
now and
is
launch,
given,
even
the
the
metric-
Is chaos even the currency that people settle
We
on?
were arguing about this earlier.
I'm pretty sure that one C spam in chat might turn into one E.
It's an incredibly good
one
game.
Exalt, given that Exalt is now.
I think it'll be chaos.
People probably
ad remove will still be.
People don't appreciate, by the way, like, so when we say we've increased, you're going to be getting multiple exalts in Act 1 in PoE 2. Like, we actually have increased that a lot. It isn't just like an idle, like.
I can
thing.
see Exalts becoming the new kind of like chaos.
Yeah, I think actually that
chaos
will
being
be
the new
yeah.
divines.
I actually agree. But we'll see.
That's my point.
But it's a new economy, right?
Who
like, who
knows?
even knows? The market will have to.
But I like they were already arguing about this. It's good fun.
Well, it's a game that's
do
been
you have
around
some kind
for
of,
a
beta
decade
release
plus.
roadmap for updates and things like that for people to look forward to.
I mean, we certainly did have one 6 months ago when we were, but now that we're, now that we're sort of getting to release, it's like, oh my god, like, we have to look at it. So, I mean, look, I don't think it'll be any less than 6 months, and I think it could easily end up being more. I certainly don't want to. I mean, look, 2025, I think, really want to be full release in 2025. I mean,
that's
don't
realistic.
Really want to be
a
spending
year,
more than
a little over
that
a
would
year
be,
of early
that would be
access.
crazy, but I mean, honestly,
It's
like we
very
have to get
fair.
all the content finished and all that sort of stuff.
Get the game done.
We always feel like we
no
underestimate.
need to
these
rush
things.
it out.
And of course, we have to learn what we need to learn. We have to get the game to the point when it is really fun. We have to make sure that, like, all of the things, like, we've got the difficulty right for all the players, we've got the economy right, like all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're gonna
yeah, there's nothing wrong with
I kind of
checking
have
out a
feeling
build
that the first
guide for
few weeks at
PoE
least are
1,
gonna just be
Tim, especially
scramble
if it's your
of,
first time playing. There's no shame in that, man. There's a lot of complexity.
We found this thing, and like,
you'll learn as you go.
That's always scary, because
But there's
just,
a lot to learn.
When we add content to PoE 1, it's like at least the kind of base of stuff that we have is kind of well tested and people know kind of what's going on with it. But here it's like just complete new world, and we're the kind of game that has a lot of ability for players to do stuff that we wouldn't anticipate. We have just the way support gems work and everything like that. So there's
a lot of
worry
choices,
that, like,
Tim.
There's just going to be builds
depending on how you like to play, melee or caster or
like
like an archer type thing. There's tons of choices.
Hundreds of support gems that can be like that. So that's going to be an interesting one.
It will happen.
Yeah, for sure.
It is inevitable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's nothing we can even do about it because you need hundreds and thousands of hours of testing to be able to do that with what can only be done with hundreds of thousands of players. But that's also the magic of it all, which is awesome.
That's why I was asking you, like, are you literally really doing 12 classes and 36 ascendancies, like, actually?
Yeah, that's absolutely. We have we know what we want to do with
It's a
all
bit
that
unhinged.
stuff. It is a bit, but we like a challenge. I mean, a studio that produces a passive skill tree like we do clearly has a
for
bit
sure,
of a
Ethan.
punishment.
No doubt.
In regard to just like mixing.
You
and
totally
things.
could have done 6 and then, like, I don't know, added more later in an expansion or something.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we could have. I mean, look, this is the plan. This is the plan. I mean, like, as people go through early access, it's going to feel like there's just expansion content coming up pretty frequently. Just because we have all the stuff that we kind of got a lot of the way through. So there's stuff that's coming. I mean, look, I'm pretty sure. Like, I really want to get the Druid out. Like, we announced it. We've talked about it. It's a lot of fun. I'm keen to get that out there as soon as we can.
You'll have to
the
DM it
Huntress,
to
we've
him,
talked a bunch
Oxbow.
about as well.
It doesn't
There's, like,
allow
those kinds of things. I think will be
links.
We'll be able to move towards those pretty quick. There's obviously more to do.
The other thing you mentioned, talking roadmap like things, is we've always been. It's hard to predict because a lot of what will happen is, and what we leave space for is
reacting to what the players want.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you plan everything for so long,
Yeah.
you're going to have very, very, very slow reaction
Yeah,
times
they
to
didn't
fixing,
mention
you know,
Blight,
or adding
side
certain
tech, but they
content
did
where they
confirm
may-
it before.
You know, maybe the issue is like, the campaign
So
needs
it
more
will
of this,
be
or
there,
this
it
class
just may
needs
not
more
be
of this, or
there in
something. So
early
you're
access.
planning, then you're going to be delivering on what they want solved like a year down the line or even longer.
Right,
and where we like to remain very, very dynamic and like, you know, you want to be able to fix that stuff like, oh, well, this is the main problem. Like, sure, obviously you need more than a week sometimes, most of the time. But we want it generally to be that the next releases, expansions, updates, whatever, can alleviate as many of those problems as possible. So, yeah, you try not to get too strict with the planning has generally been our philosophy because, especially when it comes to actually having the live service product out, because that is very, very important. Otherwise, you're never going to seem like you're doing what people want. And what are you doing if not that?
So that actually is a good point. Like I was going to ask, what do you folks, what does the team want out of the beta? Because obviously it's like a good way to market the game, but it's also, you know, key to shaping the game in the future. Like the actual beta, it's not just early access.
I think one of the most important things, I think it's going to be really good for the development team to get back into a live mindset and like get it back into the idea of like everything we make is shipping.
People are
soon,
seeing
you know,
this.
like get back into this. You know, people are seeing. You know, like actually getting back in that and like and like being able to sort of see directly like, okay, we make something, it goes in the game, people like it, don't like it, like that kind of stuff. Like and that really like that has been our studio for like most of its lifetime. Obviously, we you know before we released PoE1 it wasn't, but after that point, I mean, we are a company like. We are a company that likes to think that we can do live service better than anyone else. Like that is our goal. And so, like getting back into that again, you know, for everyone in the studio, so that everyone's like, working on things that are going to be.
They do live service really well.
Certainly in less time than than 3 months away. Is going to think be really, really good for us again. I look forward to just being able to do that because these long term, like really long term things, like that span over years. It's like you go so long without proper feedback, like stuff kind of gets made, and then like you know, it's not really in a real game, and so it doesn't get
probably
tested
lose
properly.
perspective,
And you absolutely lose perspective on this stuff. So I think that that's just going to be a really great to get back to that again.
Yeah, I honestly, as you said, it is early access. It is a beta period, and I'd say personally speaking, the thing that, and we mentioned it briefly about the character balance and the builds that are broken and all that, that's obviously pretty useful to me, right?
Yeah.
Plus, we have other systems in there like, the checkpointing system, right? You have to kill the boss in one life. You know, these are things we haven't mass tested, and obviously other games have, and they work, and that's awesome. There are other things like, the Endgame system is a little bit less forgiving in that if you die, you fail the map, right? These things are things that we obviously need to test and iterate on in the future by adjusting.
I'm going to bet you that gets changed.
Stuff like that. And especially as you get towards this point,
people are going to have shit spots all over their atlas from dying.
Okay, Act 1 has been tested like crazy.
Yep.
Right, and you get less and less testing as it goes on because you get less people. They've just been around for less time. And so, it's going to be a huge amount of iteration and feedback, and from the players and us just, reevaluating all the stuff. And the thing is, we're always dynamic about that stuff. Like, we'll just change things if it's wrong. We'll redesign it. We'll come up with a new way. Jonathan's a firm believer of if A doesn't work and B doesn't work, then we'll find C, we'll find option C, we'll find option D, and we'll keep changing things and we'll make it work. So, it's going to be a lot of that iteration on our design decisions, how forgiving, because, like, the game is pretty hard. It can be pretty hard. And so when you're on that fine line of, like, if things are difficult, it's not too easy to know if you've tilted one way or the other. So, finding what everyone agrees should be the common corrected difficulty is something that I will obviously be paying very, very, very close attention to.
It's a pretty hard thing to nail down when you are making the game. And so we've seen that a lot where you folks have been pretty willing to change and then rechange and rechange again.
That's a huge challenge for every game developer, I think.
The waypointing system.
Because you'll always have the crowd that says it's too easy.
Of course.
And then you'll always have the crowd that can't complete the content.
Like the most recent change to that was like ultra recent. Like have we even had like a closed beta of that yet? Was it? No, I think we haven't. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's way better than it was. Like it's the things have improved a lot. And honestly, like that's one of those things we've been wanting to do something to sort out flasks for ages.
Yep.
And it really came about because when actually looking at what new players were having trouble with when they were playing, Flask Piano was actually like, even from the very beginning of the game, actually ended up being one of those things that like.
Thank you so much, Thaden. I do appreciate it.
Just the manual
68
dexterity
months.
required
Damn, dude.
to like hit all your different flask keys, and then you have to know when one of your flasks run out so you can move to the next one, and like various things like that. Like all that stuff actually was like just a weirdly large amount of mechanical complexity right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then even at Endgame, I don't think it was really that satisfying either, because you ended up with like, you know, just like having to press all these
Coming up
buttons all
on
the time.
6
Obviously,
years,
it's all utility
Thaden.
flasks that people were
Holy
using at
shit.
Endgame. And then we kind of tried to band-aid this in PoE 1 with the, you know, some of the flask automation stuff that was added there. But there was still this idea that that you're still more powerful if you don't automate. So therefore, you know, like it's like, you know, it's like there's that trade-off there. So
next
You're
month
just more
is the
powerful if
one.
you get mage blood. Really,
Sure.
They did 69
and then it's all
wins.
automated, and you are very
Yeah,
powerful.
sure, all right. But, you know, so the point is effectively that the charm stuff that we're doing effectively means that you no longer, the game is making that decision of like, you know, that stuff will be automated. You no longer have to do that like crazy flask piano to get the best, you know, the best out of your character. And I think that is definitely a step in the right direction. And the other thing as well is it actually makes the crafting more meaningful, I think, on the flasks, because when you've got like 5 slots, then like the individual mods and the individual stuff like seems to tend to
Send me a friend request in game too. There, Tim.
Things like that, but,
I've
you know,
been
like
playing a bunch. I can help you out if you
now it's like
run
the
into any
actual-
spots.
It's much more meaningful, like on your life flask, the choice between.
I think my name is JuiceBags2770.
That kind of stuff actually can be a lot
I think
more
is my
meaningful once
number.
you've only got one. So yeah, I think it is a lot better personally.
You have we'll jump ahead to Floss since we're on the topic. You have locked in effectively the fact that there's a mana flask there now, so that there's always going to be a mana flask slot. And how does that tie into your design for mana? And are we always going to be using a mana flask slot, or if we solve another way, what does it do?
You can absolutely solve another way, and then you'll just have a flask slot that isn't doing anything for sure. But I think it kind of has to work that way, because we really don't want. Because like once you sort of start getting into changing that around. I feel like the system sort of starts to break with regard to like, you know, the feeling of like I know where mana is, I know where my health is, like that kind of stuff. That being said, you know, we've always got uniques and stuff like that. I believe there's already
there is a unique that allows you to equip 2 life flasks.
But the thing is, then that's a build choice that you're making, so it's a little bit different, and that's fine. But I think the system as it works now, just it's a lot easier.
So it does sound like on the mana side of things then that there are going to be multiple angles of solving mana, not
Of course.
necessarily flasks.
So we've got Leech edition number 475 is how it works, and we've finally got it right this time. You know, I think it works, and I think it's good. So I think that Leech will be more common.
I'm not going to have to like crack out the Leech diagram showing the different buckets and things like that.
I was saying, I think that Leech might be. No, I think. I was going to say, Leech is one of the topics in the studio that has wasted the most designer time of anything.
All right, Tim. Appreciate it, man.
But I actually don't think it's that. I think the actual worst offender is what stats should Dex give you. I think that is like that one has wasted there's so many arguments about that.
I feel like that one's never come to the fore. Like we know about the Leech one.
But no one is happy about it giving accuracy, but no one has a better idea than what accuracy that it can give. And then, like everyone's going to come up with like in chat a bit. I bet they'll be like saying, oh, you know, it can give this or this, whatever. But there's like seriously, there's been endless arguments about that topic. It's like it's outrageous.
Yeah. You've got me thinking about it now.
Yeah.
I mean, speed would be good, but then it's probably too much.
Something like Dex, you just can't.
Dex stacking speed.
We can get all the designers down here right now.
Yeah, I know. We'll just have it out again. We'll just have it out again.
The longest Q&A of all time.
Yeah.
It's already going to be that.
Sometimes you're just like, you start the day, you're like, all right, here are the problems we need to solve, and then you're like,
what about?
But then accuracy on Dex comes up again.
No, it's 3 p.m. and we're still discussing dexterity.
Yeah.
So I go home. Just make it accuracy again.
Yeah, exactly. That is literally how it comes back to accuracy every time.
This is arcade.
Yeah.
Rewinding a little bit, we can't forget our roots with Path of Exile 1, of course. So for the PoE 1 enjoyers, what is the plan for PoE 1 during the course of this beta? Is there going to be leagues launching? Is it on the back burner?
Yeah, there absolutely will be leagues launching. Now I don't know the exact date, but the plan is kind of late February.
Yep.
But I mean, look, we'll see what happens. I will admit that unfortunately we did have to steal a few PoE 1 resources just towards the end here, which is kind of been a bit unfortunate. I really wish we didn't have to, but as I said, we kind of underestimated some of the stuff. But everyone is going to be going back to PoE 1 again for the February league, and we're going to make sure that
February league confirmed.
One of the things that was a big problem for our studio when we had a long-term project and a short-term project is that you know, you've always had that thing of like, you always want to work on the short-term thing.
Yeah.
So now that we've got 2 short-term things coming up, I actually think it's going to be a bit easier to prioritize in some respects because,
Funnily enough.
you know, it's like it's just like all that stuff is then, you know, is like coming up soon. So, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we need to get that PoE1 expansion out next.
Yeah, obviously, you know, I just want to always make it clear that, you know, the reason why things can't be so planned out is, again, we're just releasing this game.
Yep.
Obviously, we pivoted to Endgame, and then that needed more resources. And then, of course, combined with the fact that, you know, things obviously change. There are unpredictable things in the environment we can't necessarily guarantee. And then, of course, you have, you know, Christmas coming up and all of that, right? There's so many variables to consider, but we also don't know how much time is going to be invested necessarily or need to be invested into live operations for post-release. How many problems are going to go wrong? How many builds how many of the uniques are broken? How many, you know, and where do all these resources go? There are like just millions of variables here to consider, and so like it can get very, very difficult, especially at this time. But once you release, you have a bit of a grace period, so to speak, where well, more like a period of extreme amounts of fire, where we're putting out fires everywhere. But we have a period where we're fixing everything. You get everything stable, and then we're going to be like, all right, let's recalibrate, figure everything out, and what is our plans, and then establish all of that, based also on the feedback we get from that, you know, period where everything's on fire. Not to make it sound like it's going to be bad, but that is the inevitability, is that there's always problems. And
Hopefully it appears good from a player perspective, but there's always going to be like, oh my god, people found this, and you know, like, yeah.
We don't have to see all the fires.
Like ideally the best thing is when we're able to fix some kind of exploit before people even hear about it. And when I say exploit, I'm just talking about some broken thing. Like if we we obviously normally have to worry about like the whole mid-league nerf concept, but it's like if you can deal with something within like an hour or two of it happening, then it's like you're kind of okay because you know, no one had a chance to kind of like everyone didn't swap their build over to it or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna have to be really on the ball for PoE2
for sure,
because there's so many things that are new.
well, I mean, look, we have several bosses.
That and they play
with
their
several
own
elevators.
game, which is not super common amongst developers.
You know what I mean? Well, that's
Which
what
is
I mean.
understandable.
When I say a fire, I'm talking
I mean,
about
if you
bosses
work on
being
it
pushed
all
up
day,
elevators.
every
Like, it's
day,
not okay.
you're less likely to
looking
want
at
to
mercenary
get
flashbang
enjoyment
knockback is
out of
very
it on
fun.
your recreational time. These guys
you need to
do.
look into that, by
They
the
play
way.
Path of Exile every league right
I
now.
feel like you're gonna nerf my build.
Is this when he's
Stay away
just
from my
finding fires
Grenada.
already?
No,
These
I
are
think
the
that's
fun
one of the
things.
aspects
Discovering
that makes the
stuff
game
can be very
special.
fun for the players. It's just
They've got
internally,
real
it's like,
passion
we have
for
to-
it.
What are we doing?
It's
it can
not
get a little
just
bit
their
panicky
job.
after release, you know, and it you know, there's lots of things going on. You're like, oh,
They're
geez,
living
what
their
do I sell
dream,
first? But
you know?
obviously, you know, it's the same as PoE1. We're good at it at this point.
Got some
you know,
experience.
yeah.
Under your belts. You aren't going to be torturing us with like releasing beta stuff at the same time as PoE2 league launch, PoE1 league launches.
Yeah, the plan is to keep them separated a bit from
you.
each other so that you know, you get a chance to play.
Don't
with
make me
both teams.
choose.
Yeah.
So we saw a cinematic, to put it lightly. It was that was quite epic, and I know has been cooking for quite some time, and that was pretty exciting. But we've also seen just a lot of story stuff happening on a much higher level than previously now. So stepping up your storytelling game here a bit.
Yeah, so we're really wanting to make sure that the storytelling in PoE2 is much better than what it was in PoE1. Like, you know, there's a lot more kind of, I guess, like that kind of like stuff with the introductions to boss fights and the outros and things like that, like all that stuff. We've just got a lot more storytelling going in. All of those things. We do have the intro cutscene. There's also kind of like light, like between the acts. There's these kind of like more kind of motion graphic type cutscenes, just kind of establish things. And there might be some more surprises later on in the game as well. Not in early access, unfortunately. Later on that we can see as well. But ultimately, we just want to make sure that like I think a lot of people who got through the PoE1 story had no idea what was happening by the end. And so effectively we want to make sure that that is not the case this time around, that people really are able to absorb things. But
Guilty.
One thing I will say though is that it's ultra important to us that we don't break the feeling that like when you're playing a second time that it feels like we don't want it to feel annoying the second time.
We were talking about this morning. About you don't take the control out of the player's
exactly.
hands.
So yeah, I'm personally a believer of the fact that if you just change when you change the camera position for a cutscene, immediately it feels way more
Czar,
annoying. Like,
thank
'cause
you
there's
so
this whole-
much.
this whole thing of like if you click on an NPC and like the camera changes position, like sure, when you're playing through the campaign the first time, that kind of thing is like like that can be cool. But then if you're like you're playing through the second, third, fourth, fifth time, you want to be able to go to the NPC and go click, 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 and just get past, and without it feeling like you've had to sort of worry about anything. So yeah, like effectively, we want to make sure that it's still that we still have that, because ultimately, we're a game you expect people to play through many times. So ideally, we can kind of deliver both the situation where the first time you play through it, it feels like an amazing story that you're getting, that you're taking seriously, that you're understanding, that there's like all those sort of touch points and little things just all through, while also maintaining the fact that if you know what you're doing, it's like you don't have to go talk to some quest giver just to get a quest. Like you can just go do the thing, without having to talk to someone about it first. So that kind of stuff is really important, just to make that stuff work well when you know what you're doing.
Yeah, you said something this morning that stuck with me, where you said like Path of Exile is a game where the player's meta knowledge is allowed and
yes,
encouraged.
Absolutely. So
you're
yeah,
allowed to cheat the quests
effectively,
because
so
you know
effectively,
what to do.
there's what the character knows and there's what the player knows, and in our game, what the player knows needs to be sufficient as far as like being able to progress the storyline. If you don't want to have it so you just talk to an NPC just to find out something you already knew as a player.
Yeah, like if you kill this boss, you get the next area's waypoint. So you just like kill it, log out, log in, waypoint, right?
I love doing that.
Meta knowledge.
Sure.
Yeah. So you explained to me the other day the kind of the context for the beast and how that leads into the cutscene in the beginning of PoE 2 from PoE 1, and that I think helped put it in a lot more perspective for me and made me appreciate and understand what's going on with the story.
So effectively, what you're seeing in the opening cutscene is effectively the a new seed of a beast that is going to be is growing now. In PoE 1, the beast
tentacles,
the beast was killed,
not the tentacles.
And then what happened in response to that is a bunch of all the gods in the world were able to effectively rise again. And you killed a bunch of them, but there are more, in the world. And effectively, we don't want to spoil too much about the storyline overall, but effectively, obviously someone here, the Count is wanting to harness the power of the beast once again. And then we have the mysterious figure there who is saying, no, don't do this. This always turns out badly.
There was a comment in chat that I loved that was like, stop opening Eldritch boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do people keep doing this?
Yeah.
But I would.
If someone handed you a mysterious orb, wouldn't you press the button?
I mean,
there's a puzzle box.
Exactly.
What's inside?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I'm going to try, but who knows how many hours it's going to take me.
Indeed.
So we had a fun moment earlier where you were watching it and you were like, "Oh, we really need to rename that passive because he's a Karui and it's a wolf. It's called a wolf.
Great Wolf's Howl. And the Great Wolf obviously being
so he went out there.
Ismite history.
You started telling him.
I stomped out of the room and I was like, "We need to rename that notable. He's Karui." And then I was kindly reminded that actually he was
an orphan who
orphan and was adopted by a Ismite and raised and so yes, there is a mixture of Karui and Ismite background, and I was like,
it works. You were wrong.
Fair enough. I walked back in here all sad and whatever. My bad. It's fine. The name
he
is
looked
good.
so chastised when he came back in, but that just like points to the fact that I feel like you're doing a lot more with the characters here. For sure. You even mentioned that ascendancy stuff is going to have an impact story-wise.
So, like with
that's wild.
We just think a lot about this kind of stuff. So the acolyte of, and I always get this name wrong. The acolyte of is it Chalula? Chayula. I always say this wrong. The acolyte of Chayula, for example. So that we have this sort of storyline with the origins of the monks, where there's like an order of monks who worship a thing they call the Dreamer, and the Dreamer is actually Chayula. So they don't know this. So they're effectively worshipping a breach demon. So the acolyte of Chayula is effectively you embracing the fact that I'm worshipping a breach demon. I'm just going to go all the way.
I'm in too deep now.
Yeah, exactly. we're just gonna do it. So there's a lot of thinking like that goes into these things. Like what is the history of these people? Because I think a lot of that stuff inspires interesting mechanics as well. So for example, on that one, you've got that into the breach skill, which kind of means you're always in a breach all the time. You can see the things going on. Like that stuff is. I think that there's a lot of cool inspiration there. So coming up with that storyline stuff for that stuff,
there's a couple other little things that I think is cool as well, and hopefully people will notice and pay attention to. So there's one of the bosses that was shown as uses a lot of time or chronomancy. And interestingly, if you are a sorceress and you ascend to chronomancer and you then go to fight that boss, if you, for example, try to use time freeze, the boss is like, yeah, that doesn't work on me. And has a dialogue line. And if you cast temporal chains on them, he's like, just puts it back on you. And it's like, yeah. And so there's interesting things like that. And it doesn't like change things on a grand scale, right? It doesn't make a certain class not viable or anything like that. But there's just interesting little quirks and quips everywhere. Different bosses have different intro lines depending on what class you're playing. They have different skill lines sometimes depending on what class you're playing.
Yeah, I mean, we've got different dialogue all through the campaign for different classes. Like the sorceress is obviously from the Maraketh. When she goes back to the Maraketh, there's kind of a little backstory there about how she was banished originally. So she needs to find a way to she needs to be accepted back into their culture again. Like we've got things like the character we talked about earlier. So the warrior, was an orphan. He
Poor warrior is always an orphan
in Act 1 town. So obviously there's a whole different dialogue there because he's effectively his adopted son. We've got things like that. There's a lot of thought that's gone into just trying to make it feel like all these character classes have some level of involvement with the world. They didn't just come into existence the moment that you.
There's other little things. So like more on the narrative side, obviously we saw the world map. You have the icons that show different things that are in each act, like all the things you want to explore,
Such a good idea.
and yeah, awesome. But each of them also has a little bit of a kind of little bit of text on them as well. And like, for example, there's one in one of the first areas in the game that's just like a camp of Iron Count guards. And, we showed it in a trailer when the Ranger class trailer we did, whenever it was, you saw the Ranger kill some of them because they were trying to like hurt a child, and the child was just trying to get some food. And the Ranger just like snipes them with arrows and kills them ruthlessly. And so you read this thing and you're like, you hear whispers of an Iron Count, scouting party that was slain by a rogue archer or something like that. So you get these little things where we're like connecting a lot of little dots, and even that you absorb a little bit of interesting little information. You've got other things, for example, when you enter an area, it not only says the name at the top now, it has almost a subtitle text that's giving you a little bit
of history.
And these little things like somehow make the world building feel so much better. And when you approach certain landmark rooms and you walk into them, you'll get a banner at the top as well, which says what it is and gives again a little bit of a thing. And all these little micro narrative delivery mechanisms like make you feel way more immersed in the world and way more aware of what's going on and way more connected to your character, way more connected to the bosses, to the NPCs. There's a lot we're doing now that we certainly never did before. We didn't even think of before. But yeah, it's
I like that
awesome.
a lot because like as an action RPG gamer, I don't really care too much about plot, but I do want a really cool world to be blowing monsters up in. Basically, that's all I care. I want the characters to be cool, I want the baddies to be cool, and I want like the things happening around me that like build out a bit of that story.
I don't care about that lore. I just want to blow shit up.
It sounds like there's more of that going on as well, which is great.
That is a very fair sentiment.
That's how we almost designed an Ascendancy class in here just before when we were watching that trailer earlier.
Yes. So what you were saying a shadow. You came up with a shadow Ascendancy.
Yeah. Internally we had some developers watching the trailer yesterday, getting excited about it, and then I was like, I want to play that. I want to play that character. I want to be that character. Yeah. That's awesome. That like kind of Val Thaumaturge type character. And so like all of a sudden it's like we should make that a class. And then we had another guy like suggest it should be a shadow, and so now I'm like, oh yeah, we're definitely we have to do a Val Thaumaturge like shadow ascendancy. Like that's gonna be cool. And you can do awesome things now. Even I know it's hard to see because you hide it under all the armor, but you can do things like, with our character classes, just due to the upgrades and models, where all of a sudden now the character can have tattoos added to them and stuff like that is completely feasible in the future. And like, I want to do a lot more of that stuff. Like for the, there's little things like for the Warbringer, I think was the class name on the warrior. When you take that ancestral totem node, all your totems now have like an extra blue glow to them, kind of like they're enhanced by this ancestral magic. And what we also want to do is add tattoos as well that like glow blue when you're using certain skills and all that. So heaps of little things that again connect all the culture and all that stuff together and make you feel like, it's believable as opposed to, and this is a character as opposed to this is just a mechanic and,
Makes picking an ascendancy more epic. I know that there was a part in the trailer that was like not fully finished where you ascend and it doesn't really really do anything, but I know you want it to be like a cool moment where some power goes
Yeah,
into
absolutely.
you.
We just hadn't finished the VFX yet.
Even the another one, the Blood Mage, when you play the Blood Mage, now you get an additive surge on your character whenever you cast spells. You're getting like almost bloodbending kind of vibes.
I don't know what
going
that
on,
is,
and, like,
drawing it from their veins and sending out a fireball.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's real cool.
Yeah, you can have like the tattoos get tattooed on them as they ascend.
I have no idea what that
that
is.
just makes taking Ascendancy way more cool.
Twitch
it's
backdoor
already, I
added
think-
something.
I almost feel like Ascendancy is more important than the classes for players kind of like feeling the vibe of what they want.
Whatever it is, it seems like it's
For
not
sure,
working.
'cause I mean, the classes are pretty open. You can play whatever skills, whatever
Yeah.
weapon. Sure, you're on a passive tree at a start point, but by high
Well, I wonder
level,
why it's not
you
doing
kinda go
anything.
wherever you want to go. Using jewels, especially getting off-class stuff, you can kind of be whatever you want with the base class.
Yeah.
So eventually, the
Or is
ascendancy
it
is
just
what
not
becomes
doing anything
more
in
of
my
that
view?
important
Is it doing
identifying
something
feature,
on your
'cause
view?
that's what you have actually chosen that makes you distinct.
Oh, okay.
That
So
another
it's just
different
I'm just
class
not seeing
wouldn't
it
be
from
able to
my
actually have.
dashboard.
So yeah.
So you want to make that
Well,
super,
awesome.
super cool. And on that note, I know I was definitely confused. I know people are definitely confused and a little worried about Ascendancy and what's happening with that. And people were like watching the
I'm gonna have to go back and look at it.
the Sycamore trial and being like, oh, what if I don't like this? Oh, is this another lab again? But I want you to like lay it out as like simply as possible. Like how do you ascend?
Yeah, so effectively, in the full game, there's going to be 3 Ascendancy trials. For early access, there's 2. And effectively, you can use any of those Ascendancy trials to be able to do your Ascension.
You choose.
You choose which one.
That's
And
kinda cool.
effectively, if you, as you get to higher level keys for those trials, that will unlock more points. Like if you do it at certain level breakpoints, that will allow you to get more points for those classes. So if you want to just play the entire, just only the Trial of the Chaos God with, to get all your points, then you can just decide to do that. Just play it at higher and higher levels, and you get more points as you go through. If you want to do a mix, that's fine too. Personally, I think people will want to try out all the different content. I mean, you might think that you, but even within the trials, there's choices, right? Like, I know that there's always contention around traps, but because in the because in the Trial of the Sycamores, you can choose which rooms you want to go to. If you don't want to deal with traps, you just don't pick those rooms, right? Like,
you don't go to the gauntlet rooms.
Don't go to the gauntlet rooms. You can just go to other things.
Do the combat
It looks
do the
like it's
combat
going
ones
to take a
and that's
while
fine
to
too.
get through the
Effectively, it's
Ascendancy
like you always get to
trials.
choose like what you're doing there. Like it's funny because like I know traps are so contentious, but also there are other people who just enjoy that stuff. So we want to have something for all those people too.
There's these like
Path of Exile, divisive content, but lots of choice, and you can
Yeah.
choose what to do and what not to do, and then we're embracing that here now, and that is.
I mean, you're
just a win.
clearly leaning into that now. You have well, I mean, such a competitive advantage in that you have so much content, and even with PoE2, that's still going to be the case. So you can lean into that, like making content that is spicier but divisive.
For sure.
And now you're like separating trees and having these things be a little able to be focused on a lot more. And you're doing that with the trial, with the ascendancies. So and you can kind of do all of them and drip feed yourself smaller progression if you want.
And there's also stuff that you're going to be getting from those, like specific rewards and everything that might incentivize you to do that. But of course, on the other hand, if you don't want to do that content, we have full open trade, right? You can just trade for the rewards, and that's fine too. So that's always part of the.
Yes, like the rewards there. For example, like jewels drop throughout the world. But if you want to get more jewels, you go and run Sanctum. Now, if you want to get the radius jewels, you do. Well, it's Sanctum. I can't. Trial of the Sycamore.
So just so for anyone who isn't a Path of Exile 1 player, this is effectively a sequel to Sanctum League that we did in Path of Exile 1. So it's mechanically very similar, but it's obviously a Marraketh, like a Marraketh trial now, and we've changed it. A lot of things about it have changed, and like the content is new, but it is effectively the same overall mechanic. In terms of that sort of roguelike mechanic that we have.
And it's the same with the other one. You have Ultimatum and PoE 1 being the theme, and of course now it's redesigned and it's evolved into Trial of Chaos. A lot of people in chat would have been spamming Ultimatum, and for those who haven't played would probably be like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah, effectively the Trial of the Chaos of Chaos is a sequel to Ultimatum. Which is
and we just have to get used to the new names.
I think I'll like
which is very hard.
Ultimatum, the Ultimatum one more.
Anyway, the
I don't
point
know.
being,
We'll
of
have to
course,
see.
and Valorbs drop in
I
the
was
world
never
as
a big
well, and if you
Sanctum
want
fan.
a larger dose of Valorbs, and you don't want to trade, go feel free to run some ultimatums. Thing is, because they're all item generated keys as well, it's not like you have to do it right then and there. You can trade the keys away. At any point, you can also buy more keys if you want to farm more of that thing. And if you just want to do it later, just stockpile a bunch of them, run them all at your leisure. You know what I mean? It's like you have the freedom. They are itemized, tradable, as is a lot in Path of Exile tradition, but
Well, as is everything, right? We do the
Yeah.
only thing you can't trade is gold.
Yeah.
So we're like the exact opposite of most games, where it's like the gold is freely tradable and the items get locked. We're like the gold is the only thing you can't trade, and every other item is free and open.
Yeah, and that's because you've made gold be this like way to be like you're playing the game, so you have access to this, and
Absolutely.
so you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to trade that away.
Effectively.
Yeah. So how on the ascendancies and the trials, how hard do you foresee getting your ascendancy to be while leveling? Do you expect people to fail out and attempt these things multiple times, and what does that look like if you do?
Well, I failed the first time I did this.
Yeah, I
did the trial.
it is important to know that that first itemized key is a quest key, and we have special rules around it that if you do fail, you can just repeat it, right?
Yeah, you changed that
That's
recently.
good.
Because, that was something that I didn't
I was
actually
thinking
realize
about
had
that when
changed.
they were going
I
through
guess
it,
was a
thinking,
little
oh
too harsh
man,
to
that's
kind
gonna
of get another
suck.
one.
Yeah, you weren't the only
Had to
one
go
failing.
refarm another key.
But yeah, so pretty much you get to reattempt it, and you know, for something like Ultimatum, just to immediately start thinking of exploits. It's like, I can just do 3 of the waves, then intentionally fail, and then repeat them. Well, we've thought of that. Don't worry, you can't. But yeah, the first ones are repeatable. You're not going to be like, oh, what the heck? Now I have to just play to the whims of random generation to ascend like that.
Right.
Yeah, so
it is pretty hard though. Like it'll take. I definitely don't think you'll do it on your first attempt. But
I did. Not
you
to
did.
brag.
You did.
Not to brag,
Wow,
I did.
well,
I
it's
did
just-
pass on. I was clenched though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, especially in that boss fight.
I was
yeah.
watching. I was watching.
Yeah,
the video.
it's a
Right,
little
right, right as I was doing the boss
suspect
fight.
there,
You have some,
Azar.
like,
I'll watch
kind
the
of
whole
powerful
thing, but it's
boons there,
definitely
to
a
be
little
perfectly
suspect.
honest.
I got 60% move speed. But
Yeah,
that
you
was
were
part of
like-
my strategic choice.
I was watching you from. I'm like, how is he so fast?
This isn't the PoE2 slide.
I was like, what was dodge rolls going across half the arena?
This game's supposed to be slow.
No.
Yeah, it was good. It was good fun. I quite liked it. I like mostly like Sanctum. I don't want to do it all the time, but I did quite like the Trial of Sycamore. But knowing that there's other choices, so I can do Ultimatum instead or something like that is fun.
100%.
So you've got these like 2 roguelike dungeons that are going into the beta that launch, but they're done very differently. One's got the honor system, which is like a separate health, but it's based on and scaled by your health, which I noted as quite
And your defenses
interesting.
now. It can be
And your
fully
defenses.
mitigated and
Yeah,
everything.
so
Yeah.
fully scaled by your character. You go in a tanky character, you'll be tanky in the dungeon, which is really cool. So
And then with
you've solved
Ultimatum,
that.
and just because people will ask, in Ultimatum there aren't any traps.
Yes.
So that's the
no
thing
traps
that
in Ultimatum
yeah.
and no honor system in Ultimatum. If
Correct.
you just want more of a pure
don't necessarily
combat
mind the traps.
experience, then that's your choice. And then there's going to be a third one as well, which
They will eventually.
is a secret for now.
So
but-
once Act 4 goes in, then we'll have a third trial. So people sort of broadly know that the Kuruia in Act 4. So it's the question of how would the Kuruia ascend is the question there.
Yes, and if there's any other things that have been called trials associated with the crew at some point in the past, and how likely that is to be related.
I'm just thinking now, we're just thinking of that Val Thaumaturge class with 4, and I'm already thinking like, oh, it'd be so cool if you ascend and Ultimatum, we want the Trial Master to say different lines to you because you're like choosing the way of the Val. I can't stop thinking about all this stuff.
I did hear a few of his lines in some of the gameplay Jonathan was showing me. It was quite good. I love that he's back, the Trial Master.
Yeah, he's cool.
Good. A little salty sometimes that you're taking this power, it seems. So we have the unique rewards from each of them. We got like the like you said, the jewels are global, but there are unique jewels, and then there are unique socketables from the other one.
Yep.
And there's something planned to be unique from the final third trial that will be added later?
Of course.
Yes, there is already.
Secret.
I know what I'm not going to say. Don't worry.
Okay, keep some secrets. Fine then.
Yeah. Again, I value the discovery, right? I'm certainly if I accidentally say it, it is certainly by mistake. But yes, don't.
And that Val orbs from the Ultimatum in particular they seem like they're a lot more important, a lot more powerful.
I mean, I certainly think that like some of the stuff is a lot better with how they work. So So one of the things that we wanted to change was that implicits on items are truly implicit. Like you can't get rid of them; they stay there. And so that means that when you do a Val orb, the mod that you get there now is an addition to whatever implicit already had, which is obviously good. And then the next one being that you can get plus 1 socket above the normal limit, which is also kind of powerful. So especially with the soul cores, so that in the Trial of Chaos, you get soul cores that you can't get from anywhere else, and those effectively are mods that are typically a bit beyond what you would normally get, like on regular items. Whereas runes, which kind of drop everywhere, those ones are just kind
I
of
think the
normal
cast
everyday
of
mods that
it
you'd
was
expect to find
good.
in
I
the
think
regular. Yeah, just
the
resists some
issue
damage and that
is
kind of stuff. So
like for
effectively,
the
Soul
Dune
Cause is,
purists,
you
like
know,
I won't be a Dune
is kind
snoot,
of the
but I'm
more
kind of a Dune
endgamey,
snoot.
socketables that you might want to.
But for the Dune purists,
And,
that's
yeah,
the
obviously being
knockoff
able to
book
get,
written by
+1
the
socket, it's something
Sun.
that everyone will want.
It's not a Frank
but on the
Herbert's
other hand, there's
product.
that risk of just bricking your item. So that's the deadly
Holy
gamble
crap,
you have
side
as
tech.
your final crafting step there.
It's they are Valobs are more forgiving though.
They are.
Thank you
But,
so
like,
much, man.
You know, if you think about we talked about enchantment, yeah. So some slots you might value the enchantment over a rune or a socket slot, right? That probably, especially towards endgame, I'd say that's probably
Holy
gonna tilt
crap.
that way because well maybe a soul core contests with it, but the whole point is that there's choice there involved.
Yeah.
And then there's enchantment. We just talked about the socket. There's obviously always the case of doing nothing, which happens. But for just say regular rare items, it will re-roll like
It's
1 to
10 years
3
in the
modifiers
past,
that
but
ran
it's a
effectively do
washed
Chaos
over
Orb
Dune
on 1 to 3
story.
modifiers, not all 6.
That's not
And as
super
much as that
original.
can
I
often
think
be a
is the main
downside
complaint
because if
of
you're
it.
using it on a very good item, obviously it's going to take
It's
away
like
the
a
good ones. But if you're using it on a
reimagined
mid
version of the
item,
already
you can actually turn
existing
it very
story.
good. Now, I've had this happen. Like when I've been playing, I've got like this is life, defense, double res, and something else that I don't want. And I'm like, I'll just start valing everything because why not? I've got my Val
I'm
orbs
stoked,
and I
Cake.
val it and it
I'm
re-rolls
gonna be
that
busy
bottom
as
model
hell
into a
all
tri-res,
afternoon.
and I've got
I'm
a
gonna break
tri-res
this all
double defense
down
life
and
helmet,
make a
and I was
bunch of
like,
videos.
Awesome. So even that which
out
can
of
often be
this.
perceived as a bad outcome now isn't
That's why I wish
gonna
Ziggy would
completely brick your
get
item.
to
And
some
so,
more important
for example, if you
questions
have a
and,
weapon, you've
less
got your 3
chit-chat
damage
here, that way I
mods,
can get to
and
work.
you've got some bad suffixes.
This-
It could even
the
be an option,
after
like,
Q&A
or hopefully it doesn't
has
just
been
remove
going
all 3
for
damage
over an
mods,
hour,
whereas
and it's
before,
not actual
if it
Q&A.
bricked, it
It's just discussion
often
between
was
3
almost
people.
always a brick, right? Like that item is now dead. So
And then you told me about a new unique
Yeah,
result,
I did.
which I don't know
I
if you
wasn't
want to
sure if I should
spoil
ask
or
about
not.
the unique one.
100%.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's so cool.
I'm surprised you even got that one past Rishi, honestly.
I mean, he got it made.
Okay, great.
We discussed it. I agree. I agree. I messaged it to him thinking.
I'm not
he'll
sure
be
how
like,
long
"No
these
way, this is
Q&As normally
unacceptable,"
go.
but we'll-
He was
But I
able
mean,
to
I've
afford
got
it.
a lot of
Turn
work
into
I
a
want to get done
dexterity
today
chat.
now.
Yeah.
The
And
meat
so,
of it's over.
Yeah,
The first 90
what
minutes
it
was
effectively does is it just takes
the
the mod
good stuff.
values and it multiplies.
This
It
is
goes
just
up
3
to,
dudes in skinny
I
jeans
can't remember
having a
exactly the
chat.
values, but let's just say it
Said it was between
changes all the values to between 0.8 and 1.2 of what they were multiplied.
I
but
normally
it
for
doesn't care
PoE
about the
one
minimum
streams,
and
I usually don't
maximums.
watch this
So,
section.
for example, if you had 1,000 life Kelm's heart, you can use this to get. Again, this is me assuming it's 20% variance, but because I can't remember what we balanced it to. But you'll be able to get a 1,200 life Kelm's heart, for example. Now that's obviously giving up the enchantment and a socket. Just thinking about sockets on Kelm's heart. I can't remember what we did, but whatever. I think you can actually do that, which is interesting. But ultimately, it's like, now I'm choosing. Do I want the enchantment? Do I want an extra, 100 something, 200 life, whatever that ends up being, or do I want the socket? So it's quite an interesting choice and adds an extra axis of corruption to unique items. That is.
Ahmad was asking for him.
The divining of uniques.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, effectively, it's divining them, but with higher
they need to
maximums
get
and lower
kick it in
minimums.
gear
There's
here.
gonna be some broken
It's,
things like max res or something like that.
People's
maybe
attention
we'll get
span
to
through
find
this type of thing is not going to
Cross
last
that
too
bridge when it
long.
comes to it. Yeah.
It's fine.
So that was all just talking about the trials, how you actually get your ascendancies. But what about the actual ascendancies themselves? How are they cooking?
Well, they're fun.
I mean, it
they're
was
cool.
all about the first
Yeah.
90
We
minutes. The
certainly
first 90
tried to
minutes
get-
was the
what,
official
What we've tried to
news.
do is for the class, we've tried to have one that's a bit more out there.
Yeah.
You know, something that isn't just, like, if you think even about in PoE 1, you've got the duelist, and you can go like champion or slayer or holy words, I don't remember, but you know the drill. And the gladiator. And the problem is, like, okay, they're all just about like hitting stuff with weapons, and they haven't. There's nothing really out there. Sure, they all sound cool. Like, don't get me wrong, and they can be cool, and they do have differences, but there's nothing that's like kind of crazy. So all of a sudden now, when you're like, sorceress, you're using all your elemental skills, and now you can just like go into this thing that can stop time. It's a little bit more crazy, and you got the the mercenary, and you can turn into a gemling legionnaire and like, effectively fuse gems into your flesh to like.
That's a pretty cool thing. The whole gemling deal
it's
with
like
the mercenary.
not just talking about crossbows and projectiles over and over and over and over again. It's like doing kind of whack stuff. So I really like that. That's awesome, and we're going to make sure every single class has one thing that is like definitely out there, and then one thing that's more predictable, more to the expectation of the trope. For example, the Deadeye to the Ranger, and but yeah, lots and lots of cool interactions, just cool playing with different mechanics, and we've tried to make them like, for example, none of them call out a weapon, right? None of them. So we're trying to make sure that they're broad enough to be that. You might be a ranger going a Deadeye, but playing a caster, right?
Yeah.
Playing spells, like keeping all of that open, that flexibility, that kind of crazy, for the Johnny players, as we call it, out there who want to just completely experiment and figure out, the most broken, weird stuff, and you get things with that when you're still like, okay, I'm a ranger. And I'm using a quill rain in one weapon set, spec'd into a bunch of prod speed, attack speed, and in my second weapon set I'm using a spellcaster staff with a bunch of projectile stuff, and I'm invested into more spell damage side, and you've got a whack tree, and all of a sudden now you're this like Deadeye, Archer, Spellcaster, Mage hybrid doing all kinds of wacky stuff, or like even, or let's say the same build and experimenting with a bunch of triggers, and so you're using
That's
your
one
bow
of the
as a
really
rain as a high attack speed delivery
for the
mechanism
entire genre,
for,
that sort of
laying
thing,
down a
being
bunch
able
of
to hot swap
either
like that,
CCs
depending
or
on what skill you're
slows,
using.
or building up
That's
crowd
like
controls, and then
pretty
you're using the
revolutionary
caster stuff,
shit.
Like, you get some pretty out there things going on, and the important thing is it's not like just like benefiting only arrows or only bow attacks or anything like that. It's broad, and now opens up the world to what you can do. And same like the Gemling Legionnaire on the mercenary.
I mean, could you imagine in Diablo 4
about
like
gem
if you
slots,
hot
skills,
swapped
support, etc.
between
There's no,
a two-hander
you don't have to be anything. You
and
can
a
be
sword
literally
and a
whatever build
shield,
you want.
depending on if you were using
that's embracing
Whirlwind
that, making sure
or if
people
you were
still, even though we have
stomping,
all these classes,
and it just
we're embracing
automatically
that path of
happening.
Exile,
That's
you can do
incredibly
anything
awesome.
fantasy that we want people to be able to do. And
yeah,
if you don't want to go with the trope, perfectly fine.
Yeah,
and
so
you'll still be powerful.
It sounds like you're really trying to avoid that thing that
Oh,
we've
for
had a
sure,
couple times
Kate.
in PoE 1 where like a certain niche is relegated to one ascendancy. Like that's the only way to go for it.
sure.
But it sounds like that's not going to be the case here.
Well,
quite
at
as
least
much.
if we're doing our job right, that should be the case. Yeah.
And with so many of the ascendancies as well. Got a lot of choices. Originally the plan was to like have all of the PoE 1 ascendancies available, and it was some sort of weird split campaign stuff and all that. I don't really know at this point. It's a bit confusing. You mentioned Deadeye though, so it sounds like some of them are coming forwards, but is it all just being
I think it's more
redone at this point?
At this point, yeah. At this point, they'll just be different, right? Like originally, way back when, we were planning on just keeping the ascendancies as they were and putting them over. But at this point, that wouldn't even be good enough because like it doesn't fit the kind of like Path of Exile 2 way of designing this thing. So yeah, I mean, look, we might have a class called the Deadeye, and it might have the same themes, but it'll be like different actual mechanics and different things.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even the Deadeye, you got Tailwind.
Jesus
works
Christ,
differently.
man!
You've still got an
It's
additional
an hour and 10
projectile.
minutes into the Q&A, and they haven't answered a single question or taken a single question.
It's really easy, and it's honestly been fun just looking at them going like, now we have all these system changes, all these skills, and everything works like this. Just what would the perfect class be?
I'm not sure if it's
like,
going to happen.
How can we retrofit and band-aid a PoE 1 class to work? It's just way better to look at it and go, here's all the things we want. Yeah. So, well, yeah, like when you only have now the life and mana flask and stuff, it could obviously things don't work quite the same.
I mean, as
but
far
then
as dev
now you
streams
have the
go,
charm
I
system,
think
and
they
all of a
do
sudden
theirs
actually
right.
Pathfinder would be cool with that.
Pre-record the content and then just play the
So
video
it's
for the
just
bulk of the
here
dev
are,
stream. I think every
12,
developer should do
eventually
that.
36 classes. It's not really like here's the PoE 1
It's the best way
and they're
to-
identical kind of
to
thing
communicate
anymore, for sure. Too many
the
things
exact
changed for that to
specific
even be possible
information you
anyway.
want to communicate.
All right. That sounds very epic. We can skip over the flasks and trinkets as we did cover that very well. So moving into skills, I realized I was like,
oh my
had
God,
many pages of questions here, and then I was like, wait, we haven't even talked about like skills here.
Yeah, you haven't even talked about a question yet.
Over the course of this beta.
He's just asking. He can ask
how
us
has
all
the
this
list of
shit
skills
off
been
the
shaping up
screen.
overall?
I mean, it's certainly getting there. I mean, look,
He's going to be there all afternoon. You know he's going to.
Even
I don't
just
know
the
what
classes
time
we
it is
have,
in
like,
New
there's still
Zealand
gonna
right
be
now, but
more skills coming.
probably
Later on as
super
well
early
for
in the morning,
these
huh?
classes, because there are more skills that we got just about there, and just didn't quite make it. So yeah, and like getting a class finished in terms of the skills you need, like It sort of seems very easy.
They just
when
need
you,
to not call it a Q&A
well,
and
okay,
call
we
it
did, like,
discussion with
20,
Ziggy
23,
D.
24th, number of skills, something like that. And it seems like that's
If
not
I
so many
wasn't
kind of
live
designer,
streaming,
but
I
when
would
you
I
actually
would have
come up
walked
with all
away
the
by now.
things, the way they interact together, the number of prototypes you have to do that kind of don't really work, and like.
But I'm not gonna cut it off
fun.
now.
And then, of course,
I'll
the
go for the
support gem stuff, like
duration.
you need to make sure that every skill has enough viable
I'll
support.
just get
so that
more
you
and
can
more
actually
bitter
recommend
about it
people
as we
to
get longer and
what to
longer.
do. Then you need things like the passive tree support for all of them. You need to have all of the stuff with like the buff gems for each character class as well. You need to be thinking about uniques for the type of that can work with these things. It's just like there's so many different elements to actually make skills work, and once again, it's another area I think that was underestimated to some degree before, and it does take to actually get that finished, it takes a lot.
I mean, this whole format is
So,
fine, but the
that's
problem
been,
with
a
it
total
is we
struggle.
already know that
we didn't
Ziggy
think
D
we would have to have only 6
just
character
over the
classes
last
initially.
years and
So
years
early
and
access,
years
we were
and
thinking
years
we
of
would
this
have
sort
8,
of thing. He's
to
got to
begin with.
kind of be on the
But,
payroll.
when it actually came down to actually getting to actually finish something, it just ended up being too much. Now obviously
So he's
we've got a bunch-
spoon-feeding the
we've got a bunch of
questions.
work on more of the classes that we've done. There's things there, but it's that finishing work of like making sure that all the systems in the game come together to support how that works. That requires a lot.
Doing all of that as we're still discovering how we want those systems to work, like the changes to support gems and all that, as we're also making support gems, as we're making character classes, just can cause things to slow down quite a bit, and then we have to recalibrate and all. It was an extreme amount of work that we certainly predicted poorly, but that was also because
he's the guy
are
that's
making
there.
all these cool systems,
He's
all
the
these
face
changes to all these systems,
of
which are having like immense
PoE
benefits as
content
well.
creation.
So, yeah, I
for
would say
them
it's
because
pretty
it's
safe to
convenient.
expect
I mean, he
that,
lives there. He's from New Zealand.
As much as you can't play
Probably
them on
lives in
day
the same
zero,
town
a lot
as
of
the
some of those
developer.
other classes that we have shown in the past.
I mean,
and some of the
obviously, he's
skills
not
and
anyone's
stuff,
go-to source
there's a lot
outside of
there,
the
like,
live
just
streams.
Not to make it seem like it's shallow or anything, but
I don't
we
think
will
I've
be adding
ever
those classes in
seen
for sure.
a guide or
Yeah,
a
the thing
tutorial or
that
whatever from Ziggy
keeps
D.
like surprising me is when you click that all gems tab when you're doing an uncut, there's quite a lot of skills in there, but you initially
They said
kind of
it
box
that
yourself away where you
their
think, okay,
goal
so
is
I'm playing the
2025.
mercenary, so I'm just looking at the crossbow
Arcadia.
skills. And then I was like, well,
They haven't
what if I
given
go
any
look at the elemental
specifics,
skills?
but
And then I
it'll
find
be
flame wall,
a
and I'm like,
year.
oh, I can shoot
I
my
mean, I
pickles
think
with
a
that.
year
Okay,
is
cool.
pretty
I like
fair,
that, but
to be
that's like
honest.
surface level because you also have the weapon swap.
So
thing. You
my
can
guess
actually
is they're going to
viably
be
do
shooting
with
for
the
holiday
automated weapon
2025
swapping.
for the actual
And
launch.
it's not like toxic where you have to
But
push
that's
the
just a
button
guess,
a
of
bunch of
course.
times. And you've got the trees that like customize whenever you do it automatically
yes.
on the fly. So
Well,
that's all
Quinn
of a
is
sudden I'm
not
like, oh, well,
advertiser
why can't I
friendly
use
for
a
them.
sword, on the other
Is the
hand?
thing.
Yeah,
Quinn
absolutely,
would
you
be
absolutely
That's
can
actually
do
far
that.
more
cool
entertaining.
mercenary vibe sword and crossbow.
But he's
So,
not.
I mean that stuff is like
he's
is,
not
is crazy.
Disney
I mean,
friendly,
like,
so to speak.
Actually, there was one
Ziggy D was in the Mickey
community
Mouse
guys
Club,
reported
you
where they
know?
were using a bell, the bell skill with
Yeah.
the quarterstaff,
Sick.
with the rapid shot mercenary.
Oh, it'll
skill.
be a year.
And when I saw, it, I was like, oh man, that's like.
I mean,
it's
any
like a
shorter
model.
than that, and something
yeah,
will
like
be
I didn't
unfinished.
even know about that particular combo until I saw it in the some of the footage they recorded.
I started thinking about that too with like multiplayer. And I was like, I was throwing my gas grenades, which you can blow up with your explosive grenades. But then I was throwing it at a boss that was doing burning ground, and they were blowing up instantly. I'm like, oh wait, so it reacts to the environment. Well, it's obviously going to react to my friends doing burning ground. Then, so my flame wall friend.
And this is the reason. Like this conversation here is the reason why there's going to be crazy builds that we don't anticipate because the some of the stuff that can happen between classes, I just have no doubt we will not have discovered.
Yeah, like how much co-op have you really been able to?
I mean, you
test?
got to look at it
I
as
mean, like,
it's not
we do
early
test party
access
play
to
all
the
the time.
finished
Yeah.
product.
Mark's like,
Early
that's
access
the
is
whole
just
way.
the
I'm the
name
support character
of
player.
a beta.
Now I'm like freezing
the
armor
PoE2
breaking,
beta.
putting down
Yeah, yeah.
clouds, slow. I'm like, holy. There's just a
So
lot
there's
going
going to be
on
lots
for
of
that.
development
I'm just
over the
standing
course
there
of
like,
2025 and
puffs coming out of me.
changes and
You know,
balance
it's like
and
you're,
everything
you're like,
else, and then
I'm actually
they'll
doing all this
once they get
active
that
support
to
and like different
a point
conditions
they're
to
happy
synergize
with,
with
they'll
the group,
launch it
and now
out.
it's like, okay, you're doing that skill. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do this and enhance my armor breaking and go ballistic armor breaking, and you just spam your thing that consumes it. So you get a lot of that stuff.
Well, you're
going on
far
for sure,
past
where,
the limit. Then they said the limit was
but,
$480. Anyone who has
it's
spent more than
kind of, honestly, the
$480 gets it
terrifying part as
automatically.
well, where it's like, what
I'm
do we have?
nowhere
We had
near
the whole
that,
like
so I'll have
vulnerability
to
curse
pay my way.
with gas cloud
yeah.
ticks or something, and it was like literally applying armor break like every
Thanks,
frame.
SciTech.
And so you have the monsters going ting ting ting
And then
ting
you
ting
have
ting.
armor
ting.
explosion on there as well.
Yeah, and then you have
probably.
some other thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you have some other guy consuming it. And again, oh my god, Cool Rain! Just don't even how many bloody
$30 is
synergistic
more
things
than
with Cool Rain.
You can do a lot with that, eh?
All the lightning arrows on
Shit,
the
I paid
ground.
$80
because they
to
can,
play
you know, lightning things
DD2
hit them and
originally.
explode, and all of a sudden
And
now
it's-
you just
this is
everyone's
like
running around with Cool Rain, spamming
1,000
lightning bolts
times
everywhere.
more. At the
and-
time, the game had 3 maps.
And Frostwall. Somehow
4
Frostwall had
characters.
about 15 abuse cases. And
I mean,
So,
that's
I mean, this
historically
is
accurate.
yeah, $30 is a huge value
Kinetic
for
blast,
PoE
Frostwall,
2
all that.
early access, no doubt.
It returns. Sounds like it's coming back.
it'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's cool. Even finding all the stuff so far has been really fun. But yeah, I generally play multiplayer. Most of the alpha I've done is being in multiplayer. Play with other people. It's good to get a lot of that testing in there as well because
support
not,
for that, then.
not a lot of others do it.
That's really good.
And then yeah, try and see what we can break, just for good fun. Honestly, the thing it's like hard is to then like, because you get this thing which is quite interesting where you have a staff is both a player and a developer. And I'm of the like, don't you better not keep that you know, something that's I wouldn't say exploit, but you know, something that's OP, a secret, right? You better bloody tell me, because
It's the exact reaction you had earlier.
You were saying people weren't telling you about
exactly.
their good
Like you get a
builds.
situation where someone doesn't want to tell you about their build. That's because they're like, oh, Mark will nerf it then. You know,
like
that's
you're
it.
supposed to be making games,
Exactly.
not hiding your good
Exactly.
I
builds.
legitimately had a Monday meeting, and you know, whatever.
You're a
I was like,
developer.
I swear, if I see any of you at the top of the ladder on day one, we're going to have a talk.
Yeah, exactly.
I know you've hidden something from me.
Exactly.
No, I did tell you about my flashbangs and how good.
But maybe it's fine. I just wanted them to check. Just
Well, that's the
no,
thing.
my
No,
flashback-
that is the thing that is hard. No one knows if their thing is actually look, there's a line that gets crossed, yes.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't know. Is it just I've found something cool and it's powerful, or have I found something cool and it's broken? You know, and those things. I mean, we have to make those decisions, of course. And a lot of the time, what is reported is just fine. And it's like, yeah, you got a good weapon, and you got this combo. You're strong.
If it's supported by items, then it's like fine to be very powerful. But if you're just like, I just pick these skills, and no matter what weapons I'm wearing, I'm just like completely ridiculous, then that's a different situation. Because now it's just a thing that anyone can do at a moment's notice, rather than actually requiring like, you know, oh, I have to find the big, you know, this combo of items and things like that. So that's a much different story.
But no, we've had a lot of good testing, a lot of good feedback, a lot of good people reporting that stuff, especially in the last like month. It's like coming in a lot because as the systems and everything's kind of stabilizing, you start to get a lot more of that, and people are understanding what the difficulties meant to be and what the power of characters is meant to be. As all of that came and started to stabilize, we got a lot more of this coming in, and we are kind of getting more understanding. But again, you'll never find them all. But you know, it's fun, good fun journey.
Support gems have changed a lot. How have you found the changes to them being now having no levels and the restriction of having only one support gem on your character of a type, but having a lot more of them?
I really like how this works. Like, I think that it adds so much more build diversity and interest to have to be making the decision of like, you know, where is this going to go? And the thing that's been important though with that system is it requires a lot more support gems to exist because you only have one on your character. You need tons of them, and like you need a lot of different ways to increase damage and a lot of ways to support different mechanics. It's like if you're going to have something like freeze, like, you know, if you're going to have a freezing skill, you need to be able to support that and augment that in like many different ways. And there needs to be more options than what you can even like. There needs to be, in order to have choice, you can't just have here's your 5 freeze things and that's all you do, right? There has to be more than that in order to be able to have it so you actually have some choices as well. So that kind of stuff has meant that you just need a lot of things going on there. But I think that the choices that you end up with as a player of like, you know, where do I put my model projectiles? Where do I put my PS? Where do I put, like, I think that leads to a lot more interesting decisions with how you build. And, you know, like, I think that to me is where a lot of why it just works so much better. And we were certainly hesitant about the whole, you know, you can only have one support per character thing, because it sounds bad if you just hear about it as a player without actually playing it. Like your first reaction is you just hear that and you're like, oh, it's just a restriction. And it is arbitrary in some sense, right? There's no like, we can't justify it thematically, really. It just is what it is. And so that, I really don't like that kind of thing usually, because if I'm going to, I want the theme to match the mechanic as much as possible. But in this case, it just made the gameplay so much better that like it just had to happen. So it was
arguably, if you need to, like, if you end up in a
situation where you like, I have to put the support on every slot.
Exactly. That is less choice, and that's the reason why the gameplay is
less
bad.
choice, less interest, and also you may as well just bake that now into the skills and or
100%. And so this is the thing. It is actually much worse to have that because it results in this outcome. But like that's a kind of more subtle argument that's like you have to kind of make to people
so
if you want
much
to
more
kind of
real
convince them this is
ass
actually
for
the right
that.
way.
Okay,
Because when you
just
tell
won't
people,
own
oh,
it
there's
for the
this
rest of your
restriction, it
life.
doesn't sound like what they're getting out of that is more choice. It sounds like they're getting less. But the reality is it is actually more choice because you no longer have like mandatory.
No paying
like,
for
here's
virtual
the 5
ass.
mandatory things you have to put on the skill. It's like there's actually
Well, I
much
mean
more
that's
going on.
true.
I
That's
think it's
true.
much better helped realize.
There's very
my
little
experience with
anime
Mercenary,
ass that
you,
actually
your
exists in
vision
the
of,
world.
having like all of these skills available to you and them actually being worth using.
For sure.
Because if you had all the same support gems, I feel like you just pick the one that does the most damage and you make it do the most damage, and that's the only skill you use.
Yeah, and I mean the great thing is now it's completely reasonable to have a skill in your character that you just use occasionally, right? Like every 5 minutes you might have a situation where you need to use that, and that's actually fine and completely reasonable.
Yeah, so I'm playing a Grenader, and I would be like, okay, I should only use this grenade normally, is what I would be like in Path of Exile, because this is the best grenade, or maybe this one that does like interacts with it in some way, the obvious combo. But now I'm actually like, well, actually, there's a reason I could use those lightning ones to apply shock, because I have all these shock support gems that I'm not using anywhere else, because I'm using the damage and the LMP on my big damage dealers. I can put the shock things on there, and I can actually have a shock setup. I can incorporate that into my build.
100%.
I can incorporate poison into my build to strip their armor and whatnot. And that
maybe you
I can
only
support
use
and
that
do.
occasionally when you face something that's got heavy armor, you know.
Yeah,
but it's like you know,
exactly.
it's like that kind of stuff I really
situational.
want to be viable, and that situational stuff I think just makes the game way more interesting.
It's really feeding into the flavor of the mercenary as like this like prepared kind of fighter who has all these tools at their disposal as well. Like you're like, oh, I have this grenade for if I get into this situation, and this grenade for this one. It's so good.
Yeah, nice.
I love it. I've a couple of questions here. People definitely have been asking about like Vile skills and transfigured gems and stuff and like that. I feel like this sort of thing doesn't make sense at launch. Exactly.
Yeah, because ultimately, if we were going to add something like that, it would make sense to add it just as another skill. So at this point, there's no real reason to do that. Like that kind of stuff comes in when we want to have a specific reward system somewhere that wants to be able to do that, and so we don't really need to do it right now. But look, we might decide to bring that theme back in in a reward system later.
Yeah, I think
like that.
for Vile skills especially, it's a cool flavor.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
but I think the transfigured thing is also interesting. Like, if you're looking to be able to, like, the reason why transfigured was nice is because it's like we got to sort of iterate on a bunch of different themes around the same skill, which obviously at this point we don't need to do that because we're already just having to make, still adding the skills. You know what I mean? So all the iterations of it are like less of a necessary thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll be doing more stuff like that in the future. Like we absolutely will be.
Do you know how many skills roughly you have / are going to end up with?
I actually don't know the number off the top of my head, but what I will say is that we initially, I think, when we announced like what the full game would have, we said 240, and I'm pretty sure we're actually nearing that. I feel
definitely it's going to be way higher than
that.
that.
Yeah, because I think we're nearing that now when we've only added half the classes. So I think that means that there's going to be a lot more than that.
100 of them or whatever are like some little utility skill or whatever, but there's even if you discount for those, it's
I know, no, that's a lot. I mean,
you got what like
because there's 20 to 25 for each of the for each class. So just with 6 of those, I'm terrible at math in my head. But I feel like that's 120. Well, let's say it's just a bit over 110 or something. Like, end up around there, 120, something like that. I think probably 120. Around there, like that. But then you've also got all the buff gems as well, and like each character class has 9 of those. So that then sort of adds up. And so you've already reached probably 200 just by the time you've got to there. And then it doesn't even count things that really are skills, but like are not. You don't get them via a skill gem. So like we're talking about all the ascendancy little skills, and there's like uniques that have little skill things on them. And like
all staffs, wands, and
scepters.
Good night,
we're not even counting that, right? Like because the staffs, wands, and scepters have skills built in.
Yeah.
And then those are like that's another. How many of those? There's like
I want
20
this
of
to
those.
be over with.
Yeah, I mean,
want to get back
if
to
you
the
add them all
meat
up,
and watch the first 90 minutes again.
Yeah, I know, but there's no one has counted recently. But there's a bunch.
Countless skills.
Ascendancy classes with skills.
No,
true.
Tons.
Yeah,
it's tons.
Yeah. And those skills, by the way, ascendancy class skills are fully supportable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild because I remember you did the thing with default attack where you can support that now.
Yep, you can support default attack, and you can support any skill that comes from something.
That one caught me by surprise. I was like, oh wow, you can actually link those up.
Yep, it's so that you're going to end up with quite a lot going on there.
I was even surprised when I was like, oh, I can add additional accuracy to Herald of Ice, and it like provides a buff to my character. I can like Add buffs through support gems.
Well, you know why that is though, because those things like heralds are so hard to find like a good set of supports to recommend.
Yeah,
so we're like, damn, we have to come up with like tons of these now. They're like
that.
really
I like
difficult.
that idea though. You can like create a custom aura.
Yeah,
kind of.
absolutely.
Cool.
So yeah, it's that actually mean it's actually nice because part of the it means that you get the feeling of having more aura effects on your character without having to have the spam of actual auras that many characters had in PoE1. Like you get to kind of have all that stuff as well. So that's been really nice.
Thanks for the invisible aura MTX. Well, it does remind me though. So with all the this is very off topic, but with all the
no more off topic, Ziggy. Come on, bro.
New 3D art for uniques and stuff like that. Have you had any thoughts about reworking the skin transfer MTX?
You gotta realize this is getting to the point where it's painful.
Honestly, it's not in our thing.
They're coming up on
thinking about,
the Q&A has matched the actual dev screen time, and there has been no Q&A yet.
There's a lot more cool base art.
Yeah,
that's
going to make people actually want to use it now.
So you'll probably be using that a lot more.
So yeah, it'd be cool to see something for that in the future potentially. So onto the end game, which was I feel like a big bulk of the announcement
for sure.
Yeah. So just as like an overview, so we have the end game versions just for beta launch, by the way.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a lot more later.
Yeah.
We have the end game pinnacle versions of the two trials.
Yep.
So as like fully farmable content. They don't have trees though. Those ones.
They don't have trees, but they do have a progression system of some kind. So you've got the relics, in the Sanctum sequel, and then for the Trial of Chaos, you have the inscribed ultimatums have getting mods from the end. So when you kill the final the final boss of that. Which is alleged to be the Trial Master. Then you
alleged.
Yeah. Then he'll drop items that can then have mods on them to make the trial itself harder. And there's also some pretty interesting ones on there that we actually were going to put in the video, but it was starting to get a bit long. Which was that you've
starting
got the
to get a bit long. He says
where you've got the bets that you can make.
The video was way better than this.
13 exalts, and then you might get double that back if you're able to complete the thing. So those are some of the mods that can spawn on there, and as well as mods that make the actual trial harder as well. So there's things like that as well. So yeah, those two have those kind of like different outside the Atlas tree because they're not really part of the Atlas. Like you'll get keys for them while you're playing in game, but technically speaking, they're kind of like they scale to in game, but they're not like sort of part of the whole Atlas. You don't like play them there.
Yeah, so they're their own distinct endgame
exactly.
So there'll be 3 roguelike dungeon things that will be
sure.
Like
I wouldn't say 3 roguelike dungeons. I will say there will be 3 trials that have various mechanics that can be different.
Yeah.
But then of course you've got the 4 kind of what I guess would say sort of. I don't know. We actually need a name for what are we calling the things that are icons on the
because they were called leagues, but they're not really leagues.
It doesn't really make sense to call it a league exactly. That is what we call them internally. We just call them them as like there are 4 leagues that you have that appear there.
Doesn't really work anymore, does it?
I don't have a good idea right now.
Yeah, we need to come up with a name
we probably have actually named it. I just don't remember what it is.
Right. And then you've got the kind of boss hunting kind of element as well. And then the kind of, I guess what you would say is the pinnacle of the kind of boss hunting thing is then, you've got the cities with the lieutenants and then the Uber Act bosses. And then above that, you have the pinnacle boss who we don't want to spoil. Although I did show you a little bit about it just in private before. That's that one's gonna be hard. Like I know you're cooking up some pretty difficult mechanics there.
It's fun. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah,
because now you don't need to worry about if people can't progress through. It's not a progression blocker. You can just kill them.
It's a progression blocker to difficulty to the higher difficulties though, because once you kill that, of course, then you get the increase of the difficulties, and then it's like, okay, now try it again, but way harder. And then there's four levels of difficulty for each of those for each end game system.
They're having problems with their video syncing again.
The end game trials, everything has like its own distinct passive tree, and progression through them is also by doing them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to prevent the situation
New
where
Zealand
you feel
internet
like
for the loss.
Allocate points for a certain piece of content, and then you feel like you can't do the other content because you're kind of wasting the points that you've got.
Yeah, the lock-in.
And we kind of band-aided that in PoE1 by adding multiple Atlas trees as a way. But I think the solution is much better, where effectively you can progress all of them, and you can either do just all on one for a while, or you can just do each of them as you come to them, and just add them kind of piecemeal. But either way, however you want to do it, you can make progress on on your character. Well, I should say in your league for all of those, because the progress and all that stuff is, of course, for the whole league, not just for a single character.
Yeah, and previously we used the Atlas tree, I would say very much so, to make sure that we were doing the type of content that we wanted to do.
Yeah, so now it's not so much about finding the content, because that's what the tablets are for.
Yeah.
Now it's more about improving your ability to sustain effectively. Like you're going to want to have those points to sort of get sustainability for the next level up, and we want to make sure that there is sustain if you're doing, engaging with those mechanics well.
Yeah.
But effectively, you do have to actually to get sustain at higher difficulties. You will need to be able to be making smart choices in terms of allocating and using the tablets correctly and that kind of stuff. It is part of that sort of story of all of that. Yeah, that's kind of the main thing with that.
Yeah, this idea of sustaining the content you want to do by doing it is a little different to how it's been in PvE1 a lot of the time, where it's you had to fuel it by going back to maps to,
right.
Get your delve juice.
I mean, you're still doing maps ultimately, in terms of
find
but effectively, so long as you're doing the content that you want to do, you should, and as well, and making it harder. So your build has to be good enough to be able to sustain it. Then you will be able to sustain that stuff. And if you want every single map to have a breach in it, that's absolutely doable by using the tablets correctly.
Yeah, so the Atlas passive trees and the trees for each of the distinct types of content is about scaling the reward and difficulty primarily now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And what does, I saw on the...
Yeah, what happened? They got all the buffering going on now.
Increased difficulty. What does that mean?
It's somewhat arbitrary and asymmetric, but it will feel like, for example, some of the difficulties will actually change the boss's skills and how they work.
Wow.
Generally, that will increase the level of the area, right? So you get the general monster and life scaling, but arguably to a player that's arbitrary.
I just looked at it. That's their feed, not the stream.
And in other contexts, it might be more of certain monster types, less of others, and stuff like that. It is generally, so the small nodes will increase difficulty of the meta content, whereas the notables will increase the reward of the in-map content. But when I say difficulty, that is reward as well. So an example of how this works is let's say the boss has 6 uniques it could drop, or 5 or 6 uniques. It can drop 3 at difficulty 0, then at, say, difficulty 1, it can drop, maybe has increased level or higher item level, some rarity. Now also that when I say rarity, also do note rarity does increase the grade of items, not just making them yellow or orange. It does make them better yellows or better not better oranges.
Right?
But it does affect. Yeah, it affects other things about items than just the rarity.
Yes. And so, when I talk about just getting rarity here, I don't want people to, and PoE1 players in particular, to think, they're just going to go from yellow to more yellow. So anyway, and, maybe the next tier will add a unique to the pool, like a more, what we hope will be more valuable unique. And then the next one can do a bit more rarity, something else maybe, introduce a different unique perhaps. And then the last difficulty introduces something ideally, without giving away exact specifics of them, more in the line of a modular unique item, say like Megalomaniac or like Forbidden Flesh and Flame from PoE1. So a unique item that is ideally very powerful, very chase, but has a lot of different combinations. Watcher's Eye is another good example, right? So a new series of jewels is a good example. There are other uniques that are modular and stuff, and that comes in at the last tier. And so you want to really be getting to that hardest difficulty so you can be getting these farming for these extremely good, powerful, unique items. But of course, you have the thing, if you're never ready for it, if you try it and you're like, oh, this is too hard, you can always just respec the nodes.
Yeah, you can unspec them away and then not, just effectively decide, I've got these points, but I'm not, I want to go back and do this later. And so that ability to effectively configure the difficulty like that, I think is...
So if you're maybe target farming one of the uniques, the difficulty 0 drops, you might want to just be like, I'll do that. I'll do the difficulty stuff later and I'll just farm it at this difficulty. So,
and I think that's a much better way than than some of the systems we've used to scale that in the past. And the nice thing is, of course, with difficulty is that we can effectively use whatever scaling levers we want to make that more difficult without necessarily having to, like because we could have been like, oh, you increase difficulty, it's like 200% life or something like that. But by effectively being a bit more vague about it, we can actually like specifically tailor the difficulties of the different tiers, like with more specific changes.
Yeah, this like multiple projectile thing he shoots has more projectiles.
Sure, and that kind of thing. So just whatever we feel works best for making this particular fight more difficult.
It seems like there's a lot more for players to kind of discover experimentally there as they progress.
For sure.
In what ways they're getting harder. And that is going to be different for different players too, where like a different build is affected by a difficulty change more so than others.
Potentially.
And that's an interesting question as well, I think, where how much are you guys pitching these sorts of distinct endgame pieces of content at being like completable by the same build or by encouraging players to make a different build that's better at certain
So this is a very difficult one. And it's something that we've discussed a bit recently is like the harder you make, the harder.
Oops. We hit the perma buffer.
Content, the less builds will be considered viable by the players because effectively, like a build's only viable if it can defeat, like
We're having
the
bad
pinnacle
video
boss
issues
at
again.
4. Like that will be kind of the general perception. So we have to be really like I actually don't know necessarily what the right answer here is. Like we have the ability. I mean, maybe you feel like you do, but I don't think you do.
I wouldn't say I'm 100% confident on it, but I'll have a go at it.
Look, there's going to be iteration here because what we'll see is like, if we find that like, there's only like some...
The tech guy in the background
like,
needs to give Ziggy D the cue to wrap this shit up.
We might have to dial it back a bit.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a bit of experimentation, and it's very
We're
hard.
having all kinds of tech issues now.
We don't have the crazy history. Pee-wee does not have the history of Pee-wee 1 to be able to, to know kind of what is the right life value to have on a difficulty 4 pinnacle boss. Like, how do we even know that at this point, really, without,
That being said, though, like, the bosses are a lot more skill-based and tactical, right? Like, at the end of the day, the gear is, to some degree, necessary because no one can really make no mistake for some amount of time. So you do have that thing, and you do need to mitigate certain things. But like a lot of these are like very dodge roll tactical, or using certain skills or mitigation tactics or whatever. There's heaps of different things to bypass the things that make them hard, for sure. But I would say it is very much a lot of skill is involved, especially when it comes to some of these with dodge rolling. Like I'm trying to emphasize that quite a bit. Or blocking, if you want to do a different way about it. Not to say you must block, but yes, dodge roll is a pretty key mechanic here, and I'd say we're certainly upping the emphasis on using it and using it well as you get into these higher tiers. But gear is always a way, and combinations of uniques and passive tree and builds is always a way to go, I'm not good at dodge rolling, I'm going to gear around that skill check and become strong enough to defeat the boss.
Or another skill, like some sort of skill that helps you block,
using skills in the mix is fine, But I would say pretty generally you can take, I'd say any decent character, you get you gear up all the way, and as long as you're good enough, that is a way to defeat them. I would say there's no real hard requirement on doing something crazy niche or out there or complicated.
You're certainly not going the route of like, this boss is fire immune or something.
Oh, no.
Thanks.
No.
We've been through that already.
Yeah.
Excellent. So this very cute atlas, this infinitely expanding civilization map-esque atlas, which I know you're particularly fond of, Jonathan.
Yep.
What's kind of the idea here? Like, is the layout the same for everyone? Is it the same across the league?
So it's the same for all your characters in the league, but the layout is different for everyone. It is random.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to find stuff. Like it works like Delve in this respect, which is obviously a league that I was particularly a fan of. I'm just a really what I really wanted is I wanted a feeling of exploration in the atlas. And it's something that we sort of tried to do with the Atlas and PoE 1, with that feeling of kind of, having the connected areas and exploring, but it didn't feel like exploration in quite the same way that this does. That's a feeling I loved, and it's one of the reasons I love Delve. So that's, kind of where this was coming from. And at the same time, it's sort of solving various other problems that we've always had where, one of the things that's really cool to do is to be able to have things like, okay, like in this area, you've got like this item drops and like that kind of thing. Like I guess in PoE 1 you had div cards, but yet there was always a problem where if you have differences between in-game areas in a system that works like PoE 1 does, then effectively that's the only map people, like whatever the best map is, that's the one everyone will run like continuously forever. So effectively, we wanted to try and make sure that you actually like had an experience that had more variety while still retaining the whole, like I get to play the content that I want. So ideally with the Atlas we kind of get, that we've got in PoE 2, we get to kind of have both of the best of both worlds. We get to make sure that there is some variety. You know, you feel like you're exploring. But because once you've run a map, that's run, and now you have to, you know, move on and do it and find another one. It's not just like the, you know, like just play one map again and again and again. But yet the content, you know, can be added to it. You can do things if you like the, you know, particular maps, you know, because there are biomes and you can see them from far away. You can be like, okay, I know there's a particular desert map that's great, so I'm going to go for deserts, and that's fine. You can do that kind of thing. So you know, like you've both got controllability, but also you know, the ability for us to kind of make more variants.
You get a lot more very high satisfying spikes.
Yeah.
Where, like, for example, you get more variables where you just have, okay, there are like 4 towers, really. You got a good tower cluster, and you've got really good maps in that range. So, like, you know, there are maps. So, in Path of Exile 1, for example, you know, the range is effectively, say, how do I quantify this? Like, say, 350 monsters up to 700 monsters.
Yeah.
Whereas the range here is like 300 monsters up to like 1,500 monsters, you know, much more drastic range. Now, those numbers are arbitrary, but it is approximately the representation of the range. Obviously, you then modify it and add more to it and all of that. So you will have some maps that are like extremely good with delirium, and some maps that are like way better with something more like breach.
Yeah.
Because delirium enhances the monsters of the map, whereas breach entirely adds the monsters. And you will even have things where there are maps that are like way more magic monsters, way more rare monsters. And so you probably want that with, you know, pick your league of your choosing and whatnot. You have all these variables that are at play, and so you all of a sudden find a really good set of towers with some really good maps and radius, and then you'll get really good tablet modifiers, and then you'll get really good maps with really good prefixes, and you want to just combine all of this and you obviously instill them all, and you corrupt them all. And there's the corruption influence.
We didn't show that,
and so
did we?
then there's the corruption influence on them. And it's like, okay, like...
It is possible for there on one map to be many, many mechanics stacked to the point of craziness.
So it sounds like the juicing is definitely there.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's important, right? I mean, like, that's part of the PoE experience. But, yeah, for 100%.
But how much control do you have as a player, though, over min-maxing your just exploration of the Atlas map? Like,
so effectively,
can you do better in some way?
So effectively, what you're going to want to do is the towers are where you go to like see areas around, and then there's the structure of the connections is quite open. So like you can beeline for things pretty well. Yeah. Like if you you can certainly see a lot more maps than what you play, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So because of that, like, you know, choosing what you want is easy to do.
And you can kind of see the towers in the fog.
Yeah, so you can see the towers in the fog from a distance, which means that you know, like a lot of the time it's like, you know, go to a tower, you'll see some maps you want to play, you go play those, then it's like the next tower is just a few other maps away. Go to that tower, see the next area, and so on.
I'm guessing that's like a certain range out you can see.
Into the fog. The fog kind of in 3D kind of. The fog's actually a 3D thing, and it rises slowly as you get away from where the thing is. So that's how you kind of get the towers to.
Cool. So you might see a cluster of towers off somewhere. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can see that.
It sounds like this is like potentially an infinitely expanding map that is going to be, by the end of someone's league, quite big.
Yes. So we actually need to add a search feature. I don't know if they've done it yet for finding specific maps that haven't been run yet.
Yeah, we have a few things. Like there's a button you can press and it like goes to your last map round, one that goes back to a home base, and one that goes to some of the special, you know, more iconic things you find. But we certainly need more. 100%. So that is something we will be working on. Hopefully it's there. Who knows?
And so Waystones have a tier, but they don't have specific maps on them anymore, which obviously shrinks that whole map pool thing down substantially. What sort of impact does that have?
It'll make the map stash tab a little easier to manage. That's good.
Yeah, so have you thought about like what sort of, I don't know, economic consequences that have for like how players progress through maps? Is it easier to do when you don't have to collect all of these individual maps to get the completion bonuses and stuff like we do currently? Like we have that whole, you know, hunting down over 100 maps to get completion for. That's
now you're hunting, you know, you're hunting certain valuable maps, you're hunting towers, you're hunting content, you're hunting, you know, the warlord, the faction leaders to get the pinnacle.
Yeah.
You know, you're hunting unique maps, a very different thing for sure. As opposed to, and then the item is all about, I've just got a key, I just want good modifiers. You know, there's not really all that whole other variable to it. So there's still a lot of interesting choice and access, but we've taken it from the item and put it on the actual world map. But it's cool. It also makes you just feel like you're traversing a world. You know, you're not instantly like finishing the campaign, very grounded, and now I'm in space.
You know, like Path of
I
Exile
was gonna
does have
ask,
that.
I only literally just thought about that. I was going to ask about that. So, you know, the mapping system was always this like extra dimensional kind of unknown thing. It's pretty interesting, but it is a little
So
weird.
we wanted to start with to actually like at least. I mean, look, I'm sure we'll get to the extra dimensional beings eventually, but at least to start with, you know, we wanted to have a bit more grounded initially.
Yes, you're on the planet.
Yeah.
Right, you're in
You're on the planet. That's like a good thing. We have become a sci-fi crazy, but yeah. You know, you haven't gone to the moon yet.
Yes, not yet. Well, even then we were saying like, can we at least before we go to outer space, go to the moon first? Like, well, actually, how many moons are we don't? Anyway, there's a whole complicated thing we need to figure out there.
Wow. I feel like there's a delve but up league coming. All right. So we've got this 1 in 4 maps is boss maps, and then that means the other 3 are not boss maps.
Yes.
What does a non-boss map look like? How do you win it?
So effectively, what you need to do is kill the rares in the map to remove the corruption and finish it. Once you get down below 50 monsters, it will point out any rares that are remaining. There'll be like a marker just so you know.
I was worried
but
about that.
honestly, I wouldn't expect that to even be necessary most of the time because the layouts are kind of designed so that like you know, if you generally speaking, you want to clear the maps to find the rares anyway because those are the one those have good drops. And effectively, the only reason that you would need that marker thing is just occasionally you get some slightly weird degenerate layout where there's some side bit you didn't notice or something like that, and then that's where you have to go. So generally speaking, you'll be able to make your way around and kill them all.
The goal of the player is you're cleansing corruption from the world, you're bringing order back, you know, stuff like that. So you even get the thing on the map where you're like, you know, if there's some corruption-y looking stuff around the map, when you complete the map, that gets purged away. You know, so you feel like you're reverse painting the map a little bit, and you're
cleaning up.
The whole map
exploration
exploration thing sounds like it'll be way more satisfying than the current PoE Atlas.
Ultimately, what we wanted to do is we wanted boss combat in PoE 2 to matter when we have it.
Yeah.
And so in order, like if you have a map boss every area, then if we made it so the boss combat mattered enough, like in order to actually balance it that way,
stressful.
It's too much. Like it actually is like, you know, you spend too much of your time fighting bosses.
Yeah.
So effectively, if that's what you want to do now, you can do it because there's bosses there. You know, like when I say 1 in 4 maps is a map boss, that doesn't mean that 1 in 4 maps you play is one, because you know obviously you can pick what content you're doing by exploring around.
You're picking your pathing and your path.
Exactly. So effectively, if you want to hunt the bosses, then that is the thing you can do. If you want to just like do some mindless grinding for a while, you can do that too. And what it means is we can actually make the bosses way more rewarding. They can drop way more items than they were going to because of the fact that there's not one at the end of every area, right? Like we can actually, and the fight is substantial. You get a lot of drops. So that actually is something.
And they get their own tree.
And they what? Oh yeah, no, right. You mean the boss killing tree? Yes, there's a tree for boss hunting. Sorry, I thought you meant every boss had its own tree. And I was like, geez, did you do some design while I was looking?
Not yet.
Josh was like, wait, stop. It's too much.
Jeez.
That's like a year 3 feature.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind. Yeah, so there's actually like I do love that there's a boss hunting because I'm super into that. There's a boss hunting tree that you can fill out as well. So how do you get points on that? Like,
yeah, so effectively, I mean, well, you can.
You get a lot of points for the core tree. There's a core tree that affects all mapping. That all of things like pack size, quant rarity, and you've got multiple keystones that all can work together and all can. So I think there's 3 of them. One plays on like corrupted maps. One plays on like prefixes and suffixes, and I can't remember what the other one does right in this very moment. But you obviously get that core tree, and then you have a boss tree, and then obviously all the different league and pinnacle content trees. So you get those points by just completing maps. It just has you effectively get a quest, and effectively it's like you complete 10 maps, you get your first 2 points, and then like complete X maps and one, goes up the chain.
But of certain tiers, like
basically, at least tier 1, at least tier 2, at least tier 3.
This is the tier climb, effectively, where it's like as you get up the higher tiers and clear maps of certain tiers, that's when you start getting points for the Atlas.
At like maybe say the 3rd one, I can't remember the exact specifics. It's like complete this and defeat a boss, and then later it's defeat at least 5 bosses at something, and so killing bosses generate.
It sounds way better for fresh starts. I'm not having to like go and get that estuary map that I missed or something. It's
yeah, for sure.
I'm just doing content.
But it is kind of the analog of that in a way, because like it's that feeling of like I've got a system to progress through. Like I need to meet these objectives, and
definitely got a lot of
progression. I'm getting from that you're getting the the Atlas passive points and so on.
Cool.
So yeah, that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, so you can really like focus in on map blasting with the bossless maps, and or or on bossing content if you want to, or on breaches, or on.
And you can always put
ritual.
a breach on a map with a boss, right? You can do both.
Yeah,
It's
like
not
they can have
that's-
all. You can have every type of content in one map if you want.
Yeah, is like a boss map a kind of like a distinct thing from like a regular map in terms of like the layout or the thing you've done?
Technically, they are separate, but generally speaking, like
They'll be like similar
Yeah, they're
versions.
basically the
They're
same.
pretty
but
similar,
They're pretty
yeah.
similar.
So
but
there'll be like a boss estuary and a non-boss estuary.
Yeah, there are some cases at the moment where there are some maps that can't have a boss, and because we haven't done the one that would go here is not in early access yet, and that kind of thing. But effectively, as I said, generally speaking, it'll be 1 and 4 that you'll find.
Okay, excellent. So I think that covers. Did I miss some things from? You've got like all the smaller contents, like the song boxes and essences and things like
so
that. coming back as
initially
well.
we actually had a design where everything, like even all the smaller content, there was still going to be icons for it on the tree. On the atlas.
Yeah.
But we actually found that it meant that when you were actually exploring, it felt like there was nothing random to find. So we wanted to make sure we also have kind of just completely random stuff that like doesn't have a progression system that you just run into randomly, because that's fun too. And we'll probably be adding more stuff like that as well over time. That's just like I randomly encountered this, and that was like not expected. So
Is that sort of stuff on the core atlas tree at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can kind of like see more of that if you want
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Yep.
Great.
And often mods on the items as well. On keep waystones.
Yeah, cool. Yep.
Lots of different names. Maps, waystones, same thing.
Yes, I've had to keep kind of correcting myself about that. I was like, I don't know.
I mean,
guess
look,
these aren't really called
internally,
maps anymore.
we definitely call them maps all the time. The thing is the only reason why it doesn't make sense thematically is because a map does imply it's of a specific location, whereas a waystone can take you to anywhere.
Yes.
So that's the reason why the name change had to happen. But I think that probably even players will probably just call them maps, I bet, just because, that's the PoE1 connection.
So we've got the Breach, Delirium, Ritual, Expedition, those like leagues that maybe need a new name.
Yep.
Is there another one that you're just both personally really keen to bring back in the future?
Oh, I mean, like I've always wanted to have Delve again, but I kind of got a bit of that wish with this system.
Yeah.
It's also a very like content heavy league to make, because you need to make tons of encounters, and doing it properly is a huge thing. But I mean, look, I love Incursion as well. It's one of my favorites. Like, I'm keen for that. I don't know if there's anything other than that you're really keen for.
There's a lot, especially because there's a lot we can do with all this new art, new monsters, right? Like,
All right, Mercadia.
for example, if you just take Legion, Legion had all those 5 civilizations.
Sorry, I
We've
was
now
checking my
got
email.
An entire new array of Vile monsters, Vile bosses, etc., that we can use as a baseline. We've got way better, consistent direction on what's going on there. Heaps of stuff, new animation, and the capacities are just like out of control. But then you've got, Incursion. We've got, awesome Vile artwork we can use there and make that all awesome and nice. New corruption mechanics that we can extrapolate on.
You don't want to have a roof as the boss anymore?
Nah, you're not just going to have a floating roof. The Omnitex is just a small floating roof.
Oh, you're keeping with the theme of vacuum cleaners.
Wow,
Standing and then
mistakes
the
were
broom
made. Now we have minimum. That's a world where
Minimum
you had
vacuum
super
cleaners?
uniques with 1 or 2 skills.
Yeah.
Right. There's only so much you can do with a floating roof. So anyway, and then I don't know, even like Bestiary coming back with something, because we've got all these awesome bosses, way grander in scale, and you can do these more grand hunts for them, as opposed to just like, I'm like in a city and there's a rare spider, You can just get way more epic and way more involved and with all the new art and so much stuff to like.
A Bestiary 2 that's like hunting big beasts and preparing for them and tracking them. That'd be pretty cool.
Exactly.
I'd definitely take some mercenary action into that. It'd be a good fit, I feel. All right. Well, there's lots for us to look forward to there. You have some kind of like penned already for adding to the beta.
I mean, all plans can change, but there are absolutely. I mean, look, that we've done things like commissioning art assets and so on. Like we've got there's stuff coming along. It's just a question of like when we actually get there,
committed.
What's it going to look like?
Yep. All right. Let's talk about crafting a little bit, because you've done a lot there, and it's pretty fundamental to the game, I think. So, what's the core of what you're trying to do with crafting in Path of Exile 2 compared to Path of Exile 1? Kind of noting that you've really kind of stepped back from the idea of like reforging an item many times or scouring it.
So we really want to make it so that you're finding crafting items all the time. You're using those crafting items way more often than you were in PoE 1.
Yeah.
That you like just the game of like picking something up, like seeing what I could modify it to, and then actually equipping those items is just happening way more often. And there's so many subtle changes around this, like in terms of just like the way that the base mods scale and items and the like things like that, like all the stuff to kind of make it so that as you find new base types and new things, like you've got a reason to craft them. Part of that is making sure that you've got enough of that currency. It actually took us a long time to even get comfortable with the idea of making something like an Exalt drop that often, because there's just this thing cemented in your mind of like, this is rare, right? Like it's an Exalt. How can it possibly drop like multiple times in Act 1? Like it just seems crazy. But with the way like removing scouring affected so much of the way that we can craft. Like I know that you noted earlier that you can. There's so many more things you're allowed.
The new
to craft
crafting
now
looks
that you weren't
awesome.
allowed
You can
to
craft
before.
relics, which
yes,
were
and the reason
uncraftable.
why that's allowed is because without scouring, like those crafts become one-time things, which means that it's actually okay to allow for that stuff. And I think that's opened up a huge amount of stuff. There's so many more types that can be crafted.
It adds so much more value to the dropped item
Exactly,
as well.
exactly. So that stuff has just, I think, opened up a huge amount there. And it also has, and this wasn't necessarily an explicit goal right at the beginning, but it's also meant that the game of like, I'm just going to click again and again as my crafting session is no longer really the meta.
Not just spam re-rolling.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything kind of is something that you want to be able to use.
You
a
are
few
still
times.
reforging and meta crafting things.
Oh yeah,
You've
yeah.
got
We've still got stuff
annuls,
like that, right? We've
you've
got annuls and you've got
chaos that does
but that stuff
add
is
remove.
higher up. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of more of a later game
It's not
thing. Yeah, exactly. Because you have to think about it after each time. Like, will I improve this? Will I make it worse?
Yeah.
There's stuff to do there, and like the meta crafting that omens can do is also very interesting. Like, there's some pretty powerful stuff there. But once again, we introduce that stuff later on, and so effectively we want to, I guess for lack of a better word, democratize crafting at early levels. Like, make sure that everyone's able to do that stuff, while having the more advanced stuff be kind of a little bit later.
We certainly had a goal at one point where I was like, we're talking with Rishi, and I'm like, if every single time we're doing alpha wipes or getting the stuff to play, I'm like, if I am not seeing and hearing about people using Exalts during Act 1, then we have failed, and we need to drop more of them. And so we ended up, like, I would say, honestly, in the last month, we have, like, over, like, 8 to 10 times the amount of currency dropping, and... there's the cool things about it as well, which are the subtle things, like a boss is way more likely to drop the higher tier currencies and stuff because, again, rarity affects that as well now. So you're like way more incentivized to go and kill bosses to get them, and there's heaps of awesome stuff around there. But we're actually now finding people are exalting gear during the campaign, throwing it on weapons and building weapons from scratch that you find are very good. Transmute, Org,
That's
Regal,
just the
Exalt,
way to
Exalt,
go.
that process
Especially
is like,
to introduce newer
Transmute,
players to crafting.
Org, Regal, Exalt is like a thing that you're doing often. And like enjoy, and and you find good bases and you do stuff with that.
I can speak to that experience. So I've played probably 6-ish hours. I'm most of the way through Act 2 on my mercenary, and I've found maybe 6 or 7 Exalts. I took a ring from like a 1 blue stat ring that had a nice roll, maybe a nice life roll or something, and crafted it up to 6 property rare. And I crafted a crossbow that I found with good sockets that had a good damage roll in it, and I took that to 6 properties with multiple damage mods. And I'm like, each time that power was going up, and so I was doing that.
It feels good.
I felt like the bottleneck was Regals, which was actually kind of interesting because I don't know if that's intentional or just luck, because I did really have to think about which blue items were good enough to take to a rare, so that I could then put my Exalts on them.
So you get more of those by disenchanting rares.
Yeah, they
so
are
effectively-
farmable.
So they are farmable, which is completely intentional. We want to make sure that, like, if you don't have enough of those, like, so generally speaking, it's like you're going to want to keep, like, I feel like once you get like more than like 5 or 6 transmutes, then you stop disenchanting blues and start selling them instead. And the same thing can be true also for Regals, where it's like, okay, once you've got more than a certain amount, then you're like, okay, I can stop having to disenchant the stuff and kind of switch over. But the nice thing is like when you don't have enough, there is a way to get them, which I think is really important. And the same is true with the socket currency as well, where it's like, when you don't have enough, you can start salvaging. I know you were telling me you were buying stuff from the vendor with sockets in order to salvage it.
Them with my my methods, my degenerate ways.
So that stuff, it's just really nice to have for people to have the ability to, to get that stuff when they need it. And so it's nice that like all that really basic stuff of just like getting items to better tiers and is now way easier to get. And that solved a problem that we had through quite a lot of the betas, where people were saying they didn't feel like they had enough control, like they didn't feel like they had a way to advance their character when they needed to be able to solve specific problems. And I think the socket thing really has helped a lot with that now, because now we have a way finally to be like, okay, if I need a bunch of fire resist, there is a way to get that, and I've got the tools to do it, and I've got items I can use to do this stuff. So that has helped a huge amount, I think, of solving those like issues that come up with your character.
And this is to confirm how you've solved bench crafting. The question
Exactly.
of
So
that.
we went through so many iterations of bench stuff. It was like a huge thing. We implemented tons of UI. Like there was tons of wasted time there implementing crafting bench things. The problem that we had was that the systems that we were making, it's like we could balance them in the ways the players were happy with, and then the designers were very unhappy. Or we could balance them the way the designers were happy with and the players were unhappy. And it's like when you've got a system where like you're fighting the players for how the balance should be, like you can tell that means you have a system that is bad. But I think we were very I myself honestly was too slow to recognize the fact that a complete overhaul was needed. Then at some point the socket stuff originally came from the Varlorb. Like it was designed there. And then at some point, I don't know who came up with it. I think it might have just been you, who said like, why don't we just
Rishi.
Rishi thought of that. Okay, yeah. So Rishi thought of the idea of like, hey, what if we just put sockets, in early game? What if you got them in Act 1? What if you had runes that would let you get the basic boss as the way of solving the remedial crafting problem? And so then suddenly, as soon as we do that, it's like, oh, like I'm happy, players are happy, everyone's happy. So that means we have a good system that is working and gets those good feelings. So that I think was a real win. I love how that system is feeling at the moment.
Yeah, so the bench was achieving two things kind of in its way, which was, or maybe even three. Gear customization for one, like you take an item and you can do something more to it, firstly. And then you've got the problem fixing of like, I need a bit more fire resistance.
Yes.
And then the third thing was like the meta crafts. So you've handled those each in different ways.
Exactly.
You've got the runes, which do the first two things. The customization and the problem fixing. So early on,
but I think for the customization, it's the what do you call them? The soul cores. Like the runes are more about the kind of like I need to fix resistances, whereas the soul cores are more about like I want to customize my items in different ways than what I would otherwise normally be able to do. And then of course you got the omens to solve the metacrafting problem. So we effectively moved all that stuff around. And essences, of course, yes, of course. So essences, what they allow you to do is get 2 deterministic mods. So because you can upgrade to blue, but you can also upgrade from blue to rare with an essence as well. So that lets you kind of get some of that stuff, and then plus some of the omen things you can. There's stuff you can do there that is I think going to be pretty interesting.
And that's just at the start of release.
Yeah, because obviously there's going to be more, of course, as we add more things. So
So I was worried that some of the changes you're making might move us away from some of the like deep impactful crafting that we have, but it sounds like you are still allowing like powerful meta crafting and the ability to make like a really good item
for sure,
but you're also making sure that like the physical item itself that you find matters more.
Absolutely. And I mean, like the more subtle,
that's what it's all about, right?
There's so much more going on. I think just like clever things we've done with the item system as well. Like one of the things I love that we did is we've made it so that so we've got blue and yellow chests you can find now, and we've changed the world generation so that if a dead end is generated, the chance that you get a rare chest there is way higher. So effectively, if a rare chest will spawn in the area, then it will choose dead ends first to go there.
You feel better about the dead ends.
Effectively. So like that means that we effectively mean that like when like it makes the world feel like as far as item drops go, that like it feels intentional, right? Like I went down this into this dead end room, but look, there was a rare chest there, so I feel happy about it. Like that kind of thing is really cool. So there's things like that, but there's also the way that so we've alluded to it a few times, but the way that rarity now works, where the mods get better as rarity increases, and also things like the you get better currency rather than just it means we don't have to have like the spam of items that's like crazy. Like you actually feel like that you kill a boss and it drops good shit, as opposed to just lots of shit. That's I'm a big fan of how this feels. I think it's a lot better. But it does mean though, of course, if you're a PoE 1 player and you see a boss kill, like the number of like the expectation of like, because a PoE 1 player sees like looks at the amount of spam on the screen to some level as the way of like knowing how good the drops were. Now, of course, you got item filters and everything.
We
kind
have
of
quantity
that.
brain rot.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly, that is a good way of putting it. It really is more about like are the items actually good? Like ideally, you kill a boss and you pick every item it drops up. Like that is to me is a win, and I think we're basically getting at that point.
I quite like how the exploration systems and that as well, with the chests down dead ends and things like that, acts as a player leveler in some ways, where like a player is struggling.
The more you explore, the more stuff you'll find, and that's true as well for the optional encounters around the place as well. If you're struggling, go fight some optional content. There'll be stuff there that can drop, and and you will definitely find more things. And
lots of guaranteed rare items here and there,
Exactly.
and certain like that. This little boss here will drop a rare caster item, and like heaps of stuff.
And the funny thing about that is that stuff came about a little bit from the fact that we actually had a problem where people were just face tanking bosses and dying over and over again. Yeah. And they keep on respawning, and they would never be like, oh, I'm going to go away and actually find some other stuff. And so I was thinking for a long time about like, well, why is it that in other games that people don't do that? Like, if I'm playing Elden Ring and I die to a boss 10 times, I'm not just gonna just continue doing that. I'm gonna be like, oh, maybe I'll go do something else for a while. So we realized that the map, like the idea of just there's lots of stuff to find, is actually a really important part of that. So in PoE 2 now, one of the recent things, and it's taken a lot of work from people to get this working, but now all of that you can see all this sort of weird side encounters that have specific drops on the map.
Yeah.
And that means that if you're having trouble with the boss, you're like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna go do some other stuff. And then you'll come back and you will be powerful enough to kill the boss much more easily because you do absolutely find the rewarding things.
There's a little chest on there or a little campsite.
Or there's lots of little hard-coded drops from specific bosses. The hard-coded drops, they only drop one time, so you can't just farm them endlessly.
Yeah.
But effectively, if you go do all that side content and you check it all off, you'll get some very rewarding stuff.
Yeah, you got some pretty clever systems there. And I definitely noted I was using the map thing a lot to be like, oh, well, to be completionist about it a bit. But also, just being aware of like, oh, cool, there's some good stuff in this zone that I can come and find. And I think we figured out that some of that stuff reveals after you find the waypoint in a zone.
I think
for
that's how it
example.
works. Is that?
Yeah, it's either there's a few. So it's like either because an NPC told you about an area, in which case it just happens to be revealed, or at the very least, yes, when you get there. Generally, it's just when you get there you see everything. But there's a few different conditions that will reveal everything. It kind of depends. Like a lot of people just click through the dialogue, so they'll never know the NPC told them, but they maybe did.
I was checking my map kind of like when I went into a zone, and then maybe after.
That would be me.
But you never get to an area and don't see some unless they are very obviously hidden intentional secrets.
Yeah, there's nearly something everywhere.
They might be there, they might not.
Yes, I found half of your key for your secret quest.
Oh yeah, don't worry about that.
So pivoting into economy and trading.
Wow, man, I cannot believe that this is still going. I mean, I'm glad to get the info, but there's no real info
It seems
here.
from the player's perspective, it was a smash hit.
This is literally just discussion, and it's excessive.
We're 100% on board with that.
It's over 2 hours now, and the dev stream was only 90 minutes.
I mean, what normally caused almost all the anger and friction for me was especially bulk trading. It was horrible, and I was just like, oh, this is like a dream come true.
Myself and so many other players, I feel like, were more engaged in Endgame. We were able to do the thing we wanted to do more, and we're just less aggravated on a moment-to-moment basis. It's good. So, do you take that then as as a big positive for it going into Path of Exile 2?
100%. Draining.
How do you
Absolutely
feel like the
draining.
to the game being quite different in the end? Because they are pretty different games. Like the economy works a bit differently.
I mean, honestly, I think it will just work. I mean, look, we have no idea what the trade values will settle on and how that'll end up. But
is it going to be chaos? Is it going to be exhaust?
But ultimately, I think that the trades effectively Settlers was a test of what the economy will be like in PoE 2, and to some extent because of the way that we did the gold and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty confident that that's going to be okay. But obviously, you never know, right? Like when lots of people hit the economy, what can happen? Hopefully, we don't cause horrible hyperinflation or have some horrible issue like that. But I guess partly this is what an early access is to find out, right? Like whether there's any issues like that.
Was there any
economy testing?
Was there any surprises with that or with gold in terms of how things panned out?
Thankfully not, honestly.
Right.
We were worried, but thankfully none of the horrible situations came to pass with that, and it ended up working just fine. So it went great.
Who'd have thought 10 years later we'd be back here saying, you know what? Gold was a good idea.
Yeah,
you just had to do it right.
Exactly.
Because I remember 10 years ago, this game's brilliant. It has no gold. Stupid gold.
But the funny thing is I don't think we would have arrived at the way gold is now if we had it in the first place.
Yeah.
Like the non-tradability of it, like using it as a sort of marker for how much play you've done.
Yeah.
I don't think that we would have ever had that way if we hadn't arrived from here. So
yeah.
I think that path dependency kind of did matter.
Yeah. The paths we weave. So, how likely then, based on just how successful it is, are you to want to expand the exchanges capabilities to other things like maps or waystones or even gear?
Well, I mean, look, I'm interested in this, but I don't think it's necessary right now. So we're not going in early access, at least. We're not going to launch with any expanded stuff in that way. But I guess I do want to sort of see how it works, and I'm interested in potentially trying something like that in the future. I just don't like the currency exchange was like 90% of the problem.
Yeah.
And so fixing that like fixed a lot of the, you know, like it seemed like we would need to do more initially, and then maybe now it's seeming like maybe we don't, but I still want to experiment with it potentially. So you know, I'm interested to see how it goes. But
the gold cost with that seems excessive in PoE1.
Yeah, they were for sure. They were.
Yeah, definitely.
Like some items are 250 gold, and
so
you reverse it and do it the other way around.
So this is a
where
tricky
instead
question
of
to
your
answer, especially
buying chaos or selling a divine, you swap it around, and it goes from 250 to 12,000 gold or whatever. It's,
so,
in my opinion, a little imbalanced.
How you're using them, but also how much are you getting from trade versus from yourself?
I mean, this is a tricky question, but I mean, I think that really the feeling of like being able to trade is super important. So being able to get that stuff, I think, is good. Like not everyone wants to do that. You need to be able to progress through the game well without having to do much trade. But I do think that, like, you know, look, it's definitely going to be the case that if you're playing in a trade league, you're going to have the ability to it accelerates you very significantly, and that's the case, and it will continue to be the case. And like, we are a game that embraces trade.
Yeah,
right?
well,
like,
I think the DNA of Path of Exile 1 is very much that, like, it is a game about economy and trade.
100%.
And
So,
for some people, getting rich is their main motivator.
100%. So effectively, yeah. So I mean, that will absolutely be a factor. And look, like, I think that the feeling of that will probably end up feeling quite similar to PoE 1 in that regard.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, you know, that's the type of game we're making.
Yeah. Do you think it's that said though? Do you think it is in some ways better for a solo self-found sort of experience?
I mean, I simply because, again, as we talked about, we're dropping a lot more currency that we expect you to use on gear, as opposed to save till end game for one, and then by end game, like, we don't have Kirak mods costing, you know, that kind of stuff that all costs chaos, and you don't have like the meta mods costing divines and all that, right? They're all different items. You're like, I want meta mod crafting, there's a ritual, I'm going to get
them
it
as well,
right? So you're not just like having to I'm blocked behind this thing because I need so many divines and I can't get that because I'm solo self-found, and farming divines is not exactly, you know, beyond trivial.
That's awesome.
You know, there's a number of ways there where I'd say it is honestly a much better solo self-found experience. But, you know, each to their own, that to be seen, and, you know.
And there'll be a separate solo self-found mode, presumably, even potentially beta launch or in the future?
It is our intention to have hardcore and solo self-found.
We'll have both of them.
Right, cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't play hardcore for your first round, honestly, because you're likely to die. Like, once you learn the boss mechanics, it should be fine. But
someone's gonna.
First time, you know, it's gonna be tricky.
Couch co-op hardcore, and you get to see your friend die right next to you. That's the true dream.
Actually, hang on, wait. In couch co-op hardcore, do we still lock the camera so you can't walk away from your friend?
No, we put you back to solo.
You back to solo?
Yeah,
okay, great,
right.
good. That's good. Good to know. It's like you have
to have a mourning period of about 30 seconds.
Right.
But you're just like, all right, you can go home now. We're like, yeah, go.
See ya.
What do you do?
Yeah, that's a devastating moment. I did lose my place there. Yeah, I think we mentioned the co-op support and everything. And we'll scroll down and take some of the additional questions here. Excellent.
Oh, they're going to look at a question from chat now.
So, will there be a penalty for individual party member dying when grouping up for bosses on that note then? It seems weird that the boss straight up resets when playing solo, but when playing in a group, nothing happens if a party member dies.
So tell us about the rules
now
that we have, because I know you've changed them recently.
Yeah, so, well, bosses are obviously harder for having more people.
Yep.
Less crowd controls, things like obviously more life, and I'm not just saying double life, more than double life, right? It does get more than twice as hard, or more than in players as hard. So yes, you could argue, okay, we have reviving as an advantage. Well, yes, it does. It does take time to revive, and if your friend dies early and you're unable to revive them because you're constantly being interrupted, well,
from what I saw, it's pretty hard to pull off.
You're not having a fun time.
Get a big stun or something.
Another change that we made recently is, of course, for each revived between each set of checkpoints, every time you have to revive them, the revive takes longer subsequent times.
So that's important because it just means that if you're like, you can't revive spam anymore because it's going to take longer and longer each time. But then when you go to a checkpoint, that resets. So like you're back to normal
now,
again.
In endgame maps, you cannot revive each other. Death is a consequence.
Yeah. I was going to ask actually about like endgame maps and what is the rule for dying in endgame map? Is it 1 portal deal now, not 6 portals?
Well, you still have 6 portals so you can have your party members, but death.
And you can leave and come back as long as you don't die. So you can take items out, but a death will end that map for you.
Yeah. And to remind people, the if you like log out or the server crashes or something like, not that that's going to happen, then the game pauses. So when you boot the game back up and log back in, you'll be still in your map, right?
And also, even we've also now have it so that if you just Alt F4 the game at a random time, you'll actually, even if you come back like the next day. Because for example, you might have rage quit. You will appear back at the checkpoint you were at. So if you are like fighting a boss, you die a bunch of times. You're like, crap. Alt F4. You come back. You're going to be right there at the boss checkpoint again.
That part is campaign specific because there are no checkpoints in maps.
Yeah, non-maps. But in for the campaign though, and that honestly has helped a lot. Like there were so many. I think it really did cause new players to have problems in PoE1 where they felt like they just lost track of where the hell they even were when they came back after a session. If like they might have not got waypoints for certain times or things like that. Like you now can't have the situation where you log back in and you're like, oh, I forgot like 3 waypoints in a row and now I'm like freaking miles away from where I was, which I think happened to new players fairly frequently.
I'm glad in a world where everyone's becoming a Souls-like that you guys didn't do the running back to the boss segment of gameplay, and you just kind of jump back in and have another crack.
So effectively like that's nice to just have the save checkpoints to your character, which I think is a nice one.
Were there any other mechanics around there? Reviving, well, obviously in hardcore you're dead. That's the drill.
It's irrelevant at that point.
So your maps almost embraces a kind of semi-hardcore mentality there where there is actual cost. Like we went through so many iterations here where it's like, okay, like the moment that you have to spend something of economic value to do the attempt, hence a map item, and especially if it's got breaches and all this content that's coming from precursor tablets, all of this stuff is worth stuff. So you all of a sudden have heaps of stuff on the line, and then you don't want to be in a position where you're like, I need to bring in some people to do this because I'm not going to risk that value. So that's why we just were like in maps, no reviving. It's just like, yeah, sure. You still can always bring in any context someone way more powerful than you to carry things, right? That's the benefit of multiplayer. But feeling like you have to do this thing because then they can just keep reviving you so you can get all the rewards. Like we're trying to get away from all of that. Otherwise you get this weird thing where like you're often always too scared to do the thing. Now you're scared, but everyone's scared and it's fine, and you don't feel like you're like, okay, you have to come with a sense
now
of
you're
confidence.
scared, but it's fine because everyone's scared.
So it's just a little bit less fear when it comes to all of a sudden doing that.
That's much better in the context of the fact that you can pause the game if your cat's on fire or if the server crashes or something that you just paused and you can jump back in as well. You're failing because of your own faults.
Now it's worth noting in multiplayer we do have a thing, of course, with respawn at checkpoints as an option. So if a player dies and you don't want to die, you don't want to finish the fight out, you can both choose to respawn at checkpoint, and then it will just create a new instance.
Cool.
You don't have to die to do it, and you don't have to log out and do any shenanigans like that. You can just press escape, hit respawn at checkpoint. It'll ask other players to confirm, and then it moves you all to the new area.
Cool, excellent. I didn't want to go super on it because we've definitely talked about it before, but click to move versus WSD, it's definitely been asked about a bit. So there's been plenty of reports about WSD being amazing. Personally, I've been using it a ton and really enjoying it. I know you've said a lot of people around the office have like given it a try and adapted to that, but it has raised the point for people that feel like they're still very much against that for whatever reason, or maybe that they literally only have one hand and and want to use click to move still. How does it stack up? How does click to move still stack up now?
I think honestly it's fine. Like it's not been a problem.
There was a time where every time I go to sit down at a developer's computer, there'd be in WSD, and just because it's a little bit easier to move around again or whatever. But lately, I'd say now it's back to almost every designer's computer I sit back down at to go play. They're back in click to move.
Interesting.
Yep. It's gone full tilt the other way.
Interesting.
And I'm always like, change
wonder
it
why
back.
that is.
But even watching Octavian play, On click to move,
He's a
like,
click to move player, yeah.
He's
You have a
100%
few
click to move. He
purists
is
there.
very proficient with that.
Yeah.
With it, like
That'll be reassuring for, I think, some of the people that
Yeah.
are worried about being forced into WASD.
Mhm.
Even though it is obviously playing so well by all accounts. That's very good then. Yeah, and Octavian's often doing the demonstrations for your live things too, so you'll be able to see that even.
I have to force him to play WSD sometimes because I'm like, oh, I think the Mercenary looks so much better with WSD just visually. So, you know, I'll tell him to...
It does feel very good on the Mercenary.
Yeah,
You get
yeah.
that kind of like stalking through, especially with that kind of like preparational tactical play style.
Yeah,
It's good. I'm loving it so far. We did already talk about the skin transfers. Could we scroll down to any additional questions that we have? I feel like I don't even know how long we've been going for, but
I mean,
I'm feeling
it's
the
a
physical
while. We're
fatigue creep in at this point.
Yeah, exactly. we've been rolling. Yeah.
People asking if there's going to be anything like challenges or challenge rewards in the early access.
Not at first, no.
We will do it later, though.
Did I ask about races, events, and private leagues?
I think not initially, but we will do it later for sure.
Cool.
I think I'm not sure what happened because I think the issue was that the private league interface was like on the PoE1 site, and we had to do some work and something like that. It wouldn't be far away though. Like it won't take us that long before we get to it. Like you know.
I can't exactly remember either, but it wouldn't be private leagues in particular wouldn't be far away.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll have them, just not like right initially potentially.
And I think I did miss this actually. So cluster jewels are a thing or not a thing? Are they've been kind of replaced by those
Yeah,
radius?
we replaced them with that almost like rollable timeless jewel kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
At least for now, there's like so much passive tree there, and the jewels accomplish the kind of off-build thing anyway.
You
Like,
hardly need to add the extra passive trees on your passive trees.
yes,
yet.
yes, we do. Yeah,
That's after launch.
We made the passive tree implicitly bigger, so you know.
The cluster jewels are in the tree already.
That's again, I talk about like year 3 features. That's around a like year 3 to year 5 feature as well. So
Yeah. We got another decade of what we had with Path of Exile 1 to look forward to for Path of Exile 2, hopefully, before we start worrying about Path of Exile 3, maybe.
Jeez.
You go, just start thinking about
give
that.
us a little while.
We so I guess to just finish us off for today then, do you guys have a recommendation of what is the best class to play in the beta?
I mean, that's a very hard one. Honestly, like
There's so many choices now.
There are. So let me. Well, okay. If we're going by the numbers, if we go by player satisfaction reports on per class, if we break it down from the beta.
I mean, this is good technical information here.
Then that means the monk is very interesting because the monk is the class that dies the most often. But it's also the class that when people play it, they have the highest satisfaction level by a very, very tiny margin that compares to the others.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it is like glass cannon, you know, like it's very fast, but you have to you have to retreat and move in and out. So,
I fell in love with the monk playing it. It looks like it's gotten a little better.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I think if you're a new player, then the mercenary, if you're like used to shooters and stuff, I think playing the mercenary could be a good win. Like I really love that class.
I don't know. Cool. I've been loving the mercenary, but to me it feels like you need to really be considering each engagement a lot more. It's a bit more tactical.
Maybe I don't know. Like
considered.
I like it. I really like
to correct if you.
But honestly, like I mean, I go through favorite classes all the time. Whenever I change to play a different class, it becomes my favorite.
That's my current favorite.
So you know, it's just whatever I'm playing tends to be the thing. So yeah, right now I'm doing a mercenary playthrough, so that's probably why I'm into that. But yeah. I'm not sure if you've got a similar thing.
No, you were talking about the numbers as well. It was interesting that Monk and then Warrior had the highest satisfaction
yes,
levels.
Warrior's next, by the way, technically, if you're looking for...
That's pretty good. That's 2 melee classes.
Exactly.
That's a win.
Yeah, you know, that's something going on. I mean, they were dying a lot more at the time. But
it's such a change from, like, especially early Path of Exile 1. Like, it's gotten a little better in modern days, but still.
I mean, I just have a real desire to freeze time, so I just want to go sorceress and then just go. I don't know what
it's
skills
good to get some
I'll
sorceress love. I feel like she's not getting enough attention.
I don't know what skills I'll play, but I definitely just want to be able to freeze time. So it just feels cool.
Right. So you could be playing a crossbow build anyway.
Yeah, I might be a crossbow time freezer. I don't know. We'll see what's going on.
Yeah, right. I liked that I noted that our mercenaries were very different as well. I was playing full Grenader. You were.
I was doing the freeze shotgun.
Yeah, very cool.
Some sort of monk trigger build, obviously, is always just going to be fun to play around with.
They have so many of those like stacking effects, the wind and the ice coming off it, and the ascendancies showed some more as well. Oof.
Just see how far that can be pushed and how many spells can I get to trigger per second.
Monk does seem good for that. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much for your time, both of
you.
you. For I don't even know how long.
That was a mammoth session. I think we're coming up to 1 o'clock here, so
there's still,
you know,
there's still lots to talk about, but I think we just need some time to digest.
For sure. Well, thankfully we didn't have everyone saying patch notes when this time.
So good.
So that means we can actually have a conversation.
There's no pressure on us to like wrap it up, boys.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's good.
Fantastic. All right, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the Q&A. That's a good
They want patch notes now.
Oh, patch notes.
Well done.
It's not a patch.
Thank you.
It's a launch.
Exactly.
You can't have patch notes.
Where's the launch notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, and thank you very much.
Thanks heaps. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been an epic journey. It's kind of surreal. And it's only the start of another journey, really. So
That's it.
yeah.
Can't wait to play.
It's cool.
I mean, I'm going to go play more now, but
Yeah, sure.
sorry.
I got to go fix bosses going up elevators and.
All right, y'all. Looks like that is it. So if you bared with it this long, it got real grindy at the end. However, the first 90 minutes was absolutely incredible. PoE 2 right around the corner. I'm going to go rewatch that first 90 minutes after a short break and digest all of this stuff. And I'll be doing a bunch of videos on both YouTube channels over the coming days, kind of going over some of the goodies. But anyway, that will get it for now, though. Thanks a ton for hanging out. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the info dump. I thought we were going to get some PoE 1 League info, too, but not quite yet. But PoE 2 is right around the corner, and I am looking forward to it. But thanks a ton, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy, y'all.